Swords clang as troops fight. They battle the mindless beasts people typically call goblins. Their platoon captain continually tries his utmost to guide his squad, but it appears these creatures are far too strong for them to handle, so the captain urgently requests our hero's assistance now. Here comes our necromancer, Ju Dong-hun. He is a necromancer hired as a mercenary to assist the squad. Without pause, he raises his wand. At his lone command, the skull atop his wand begins to emit a dark force. Suddenly, a set of skeletons appear. They instantly rush boldly into the fray and begin confronting the goblins. The soldiers watching from the side stand amazed by the necromancer's powerful aura. They never imagined witnessing such a formidable individual in an Iraqi dungeon. Now that they have carefully observed his abilities, they firmly believe he must be some top-tier expert. It finally explains entirely why the platoon captain appeared so calm before, though they still question how he managed to enlist someone this capable. Meanwhile, our hero silently overhears all of the admiration, and he truly cannot help still feeling somewhat gratified. Frankly, being a necromancer is extremely uncommon. Among 8 billion humans worldwide, roughly 1,000 possess that power. As a result, it remains a highly esteemed calling. But even if necromancer sounds impressive, his summoned skeletons are merely basic erratic creatures. Thus, our protagonist does not feel especially proud of his current efforts. Even the soldiers who were wowed a moment ago now notice these skeletons are the simplest summons a necromancer can wield. One of them suggests the necromancer deliberately uses these low-tier creatures to flaunt how easy an E-rank dungeon is. He is plainly envious, but we know otherwise. Ju Dong-hun is not simply a normal necromancer, he is cursed, trapped at every rank he attains. He can manipulate the souls of the deceased at will, and he can also subdue foes with blazing spirits and toxins. However, this curse stops him from summoning creatures more powerful than skeletons, leaving his abilities feeling constrained and aggravating. It pains him to watch everyone else grow stronger while he remains stuck. He grows deeply jealous of those near him. It all began a decade ago, when humans started acquiring special powers upon turning 20 years old. These skills were entirely random. Some people gained talents for blacksmithing or sewing, while others received powers for exploration, healing, or support. Since they were granted by chance, not everyone was pleased with what they got. Nevertheless, these abilities enabled humanity to endure the onslaught of monstrous creatures. However, the soldiers remain unaware that Dong-hun's advancement is bound by a curse. He can only summon E-rank skeletons, and that is all he will ever manage, right up to his dying day. So, although they view him as a distinguished necromancer, they fail to see his hindered growth, which traps him at the lowest tier. Nowadays, Ju Dong-hun is merely an unpredictable dungeon runner. Period. Following the raid, our protagonist approaches the team leader to confirm that the job is finished. With that, he declares his exit and sets off well. He moves along the busy streets. His spirits continue dropping. He feels downcast, sorrowful, and overwhelmed by his cursed condition. What troubles him most is the burden of everyone's assumptions about him. They see the term necromancer and expect greatness. Unaware that a curse confines him to mediocrity at every step, he soon realizes he has been paid for today's work, a paltry 400,001 in total. That sum hurts, given that even part-time gigs would earn him more money. Yet this is the sole road he genuinely wishes to follow, and surrendering is not possible for him. Suddenly, a live broadcast on a huge screen draws his focus. It bears exciting news. Evidently, the Dark Lord who cleared the Lunar Rift previously has achieved ranker status within only 3 years of activity. Because of this, South Korea now has 37 rankers, ranking second worldwide after the United States. This achievement is massive, a major step forward for the nation. Moreover, it marks the first time a hunter reached ranker status in a mere 3 years, excluding the original rankers, highlighting just how formidable necromancer powers can be. He absorbs this news wearing an expression filled with both remorse and annoyance. While everyone else ascends the ranks, he remains trapped at the very bottom. It stings even more, knowing the Dark Lord gained his power on exactly the same day as him. Imagining that, while Ju Dong-hun remains a cursed necromancer limited to summoning skeletons, the other man has already turned into a ranker feels painfully unfair. Jealousy and anger blaze within him so fiercely, it seems like flames swirl all around him. Still, he cannot reject the truth, despite loathing it. Remaining idle will not alter his fate in any way. If he desires a new result, he must act. Thus, he comes to this. To train in seclusion, he orders his skeleton. They swiftly appear, now prepared to begin fighting. He currently possesses exactly 2 distinct effects. The first uses 10 energy to summon a regular skeleton, allowing up to 10 summoned at once. The second effect lets him assign names to each individual skeleton. Ju Dong-hun remembers the moment he realized he could give each skeleton a name. Back then, he felt truly thrilled, believing this might be the game-changing ability he had long awaited. He thought it could reveal a hidden potential he did not yet grasp. However, it turned out he was simply delusional. Anyway, he calmly approaches his clattering skeletons, instructing them to perform some gentle stretches and gradually strengthen those flimsy joints of theirs. Here, we receive a formal presentation of Ju Donghun's faithful skeleton allies. It turns out that whenever he summons them, he inevitably gets the same skeletons. The one wielding a massive blade called Bony 1, the one holding a lengthy spear called Bony 2, and the one wielding a bow is Bony 3. Ju Donghun constantly urged them to train diligently, hoping to boost their strength. To his surprise, he indeed started noticing real improvements. These skeletons, which once struggled to handle a single goblin, could now effortlessly battle 3 at a time. Yet that marked the limit of their progress. E-rank skeletons remained E-rank, no matter how intensively Ju Donghun pushed their training, or even if he employed a C-rank teacher for them. Ultimately, they simply could truly never go any further. Reality proved unforgiving no matter how hard he worked. They remained hopelessly stuck at their final ceiling. While Ju Donghun finds himself drowning in his own despair, we spot a disgusting orc, lurking behind a cluster of bushes. The moment Ju Donghun notices it, he spins around, and the orc emerges from its cover. This monster is enormous, with pointed features that make Ju Donghun shrink back in terror. He never thought he would face an orc here. The system promptly chimes in, explaining the skeletons are now being suppressed by the aura of a powerful entity, and all their attributes are lowered by 20%. Ju Donghun grows utterly frustrated and afraid. Seeing his worthless skeletons overpowered by an orc only irritates him more. His feeling of helplessness deepens further as he watches the orc steadily advance toward him. The monster's appearance signifies just one fact: a dungeon break is close. A dungeon break occurs when an uncleared dungeon ruptures, letting monsters spill into the outside world. Then the orc lifts its enormous axe. So Ju Donghun swiftly orders his skeletons to defend. Only one skeleton rushes in, just in time to absorb the hit, sparing Ju Donghun from certain death. But the orc easily pulls Bony 1 aside as though it weighs no more than fragile paper. Because of that crushing strike, both Bony 1 and Bony 2 are knocked out, leaving Ju Donghun stuck in a crisis. Realizing the situation is truly hopeless, he attempts to sprint away at top speed, but Bony 3 swiftly intervenes and forcibly strikes the monster squarely with an arrow. While Bony 3 is readying a second arrow, Ju Donghun decides to summon extra skeletons. With 70 energy left, he can raise as many as 7 more boneheads to assist him. Ju Donghun summons 2 skeletons and commands the group of 3 to attack remotely. Yet whatever plan he attempts, absolutely nothing proves effective against this fiercely brutish monster in any way. This orc wields such overwhelming might that it can crush these feeble skeletons to dust with one blow. One after another, 3 of his skeletons fall, while the orc continues rampaging, utterly without restraint. With the final scrap of energy he holds, Ju Donghun summons extra skeletons, but the ORC stands, fully prepared to smash them all. Things appear bleak, and Ju Donghun senses his demise approaching. He does not wish to perish so soon, yet there seems no way out. Right as he nearly gives up, a certain system window suddenly glows a brilliant gold, like a beacon of hope in his darkest hour. A notification shows Ju Donghun has now fulfilled a hidden condition, something he truly never anticipated. It is a special power associated with cursed necromancers like him. The condition is known as the 1000 uses rule. As the system declares this, Ju Donghun starts emitting a shimmering golden aura. The system adds that, to enhance his special skill, he must summon an ordinary skeleton 1,000 times. That is not everything, though. His rank has also risen to D rank, and benefits tied to that promotion will arrive shortly. Ju Donghun's desperation deepens with every moment. He only wants the system to give him anything helpful. Aware he may not survive long enough to capitalize on it, he is pushed beyond his limits, and his gut screams that death is near. At last the system reacts. It restores his energy, and his rank abruptly leaps, climbing from one level to another. Once the upgrade finalizes, his skeletons start shining brightly beneath a radiant golden halo, indicating they have obtained fresh power. Armed with renewed might, Bony 1 swiftly unsheathes his blade and halts the orc's strike before impact. This time, Bony 1 stays unharmed, unlike the earlier moment when the orc threw him aside like garbage. Ju Donghun cannot suppress his joy. Witnessing the skeleton's enhanced abilities sparks his first real glimmer of hope in ages. To better examine his improved rank, he swiftly instructs the system to create more skeletons. Instantly, 2 fresh skeletons materialize before him, Bony 4 and Bony 5. Bony 4 is outfitted with a strong shield, while Bony 5 grips a wand in his bony fingers. Ju Donghun beams like a child in a sweet shop. Delighted by these new recruits to his undead team, the skeletons quickly confront the orc, operating in remarkably synchronized fashion. The shield-bearing skeleton steps forward to serve as the team's tank, while the mage skeleton conjures a tremendous surge of fire and hurls it toward the orc. Bony 3, the spear skeleton, refuses to idle and instead rushes in to deliver the decisive hit against the beast. By uniting their strengths, they finally bring the orc down. At last slain, Ju Donghun remains still, gazing in amazement. Ever since discovering his curse, he believed his entire existence had been ruined, but at this moment it seems fate has granted him another opportunity. Later, we see Ju Donghun enjoying a bowl of flavorful instant noodles. His gaze, fixed upon his system screen, intensifies. He can scarcely believe it. The notion that his powers might truly develop never crossed his mind as feasible. However, even now, he remains uncertain about the precise steps required to attain C rank. Achieving D rank seemed more like pure luck, so pushing beyond that point appears nearly beyond his reach. Nevertheless, he chooses to maintain his standard routine of drilling his skeletons. Intermediate-level skeletons are already quite formidable, prompting Ju Donghun to speculate how much more power they might attain. The possibility of his mage skeleton casting vast blizzard spells truly intrigues him. He envisions his spear and sword skeletons evolving into genuine experts in their individual combat styles. But only time can reveal that outcome, and Ju Donghun eagerly awaits that day's arrival. The following day, upon entering the guild's office, he spots a cluster of individuals in conversation among themselves. Concern marks their expressions, instantly drawing Ju Donghun's notice. While eavesdropping, he sees someone wearing a green badge. That emblem plainly indicates this individual is a C-rank hunter, and Ju Donghun wonders why anyone so highly ranked would appear in a location such as this. The boss hastily calls for Ju Donghun, revealing major news. It concerns the Parang Guild, founded by Korea's legendary ranker Ji Parang, also referred to as the Fine Bow. Apparently, the entire country recognizes this elite guild, widely acclaimed for its highly talented hunters. The boss clarifies that the guild intends to investigate a newly revealed dungeon and requires porters. Their wages are tenfold greater than standard assignments. Hearing about that hefty reward rapidly seizes Ju Donghun's interest. His boss inquires whether he is interested, as they are also hiring D-rank hunters. After all, most other work pays peanuts nowadays, making this seem like a prime chance. Ju Donghun acknowledges the offer's promise, yet hesitates. He opts to investigate exactly what type of dungeon it might be. His boss explains it is a newly unearthed dungeon close to Paju, and it is quite difficult. In fact, 5 separate groups have already failed to conquer it. Such a high failure rate is alarming, astonishing Ju Donghun completely. His boss also notes that the dungeon's official rank is still not decided. Previous groups attempting it were amateurs, but now, with the renowned Parang crew heading the mission, it supposedly cannot fail. Plus, as a porter, Ju Donghun need not battle at all. His only role would be hauling gear. All he needs is to fulfill his duty and earn his cash. That is appealing. Although the tenfold payment likely serves as danger compensation for that dungeon, especially one whose rank remains unknown. If Ju Donghun is honest with himself, he is still drained from facing that orc the previous day. Yet however much he dislikes admitting it, the offer is tremendously enticing. He recalls a statement that the Dark Lord made during an interview. To advance one's rank more quickly, one must tackle dungeons beyond one's current capability. Otherwise, progress is impossible. The greater the rank, the greater the dangers. Yet that also brings greater rewards and possibilities. So our hero picks up the contract and signs it immediately, then requests 1 week of leave. His boss instantly approves, feeling so pleased that he vows to treat Ju Donghun to a nice meal sometime soon. Later, our protagonist returns to his usual training area, where he brings forth his skeletal group, noticing the intimidating force they now radiate. He takes pride in realizing his dedicated practice has genuinely borne fruit. He instructs them to assume their stances, and orders them to unleash the mayhem. His skeletons swiftly assume their functions. The sword-wielding one slashes a log as though slicing through a mere cucumber, while the spear skeleton bores a sizable cavity into it using his long spear. The archer skeleton fires its arrows, that actually pierce several trees with a single shot. Our hero stands astounded, marveling at this genuine might that rivals a D-rank's upper limit. It appears nearly as potent as a C rank now. He realized they had improved, but never imagined they would be quite this powerful, certainly not so quickly. Observing the battered practice dummies, he concludes it is time to improve his equipment. These wooden figures are insufficient now, but buying fresh gear requires money, and that is something he remains quite hesitant to part with. Yes, it is wonderful his skeletons grew more powerful, yet the real issue is his own vulnerability. What if a formidable foe chooses him as the primary target instead? No matter how formidable his summons might be, everything would still end badly for him. Right then, Ju Donghun observes one of the skeletons striding toward him, presenting a wand forward. He feels somewhat confused witnessing this, yet he still takes the wand. at which point he observes a protective barrier materializing around him. He cannot fathom why the skeleton behaved in this manner. It seemed the skeleton almost read his mind, responding directly to his inner worries. Then the rest of the skeletons begin moving closer. One of them even offers him a clear thumbs-up gesture. Ju Donghoon feels astonished by these skeletons engaging with him like this. Previously, they merely obeyed commands, nothing more. So what has altered? Why can the mage skeleton suddenly cast a shielding barrier instead of only hurling fireballs? That is the moment the shield skeleton sets down his huge shield. Then once he has Ju Donghoon's notice, he points to the dummies. Ju Donghoon cannot grasp what is happening, yet afterward, we see that the shield skeleton wants to be a practice dummy. He can serve as a dummy for others to train. It seems Ju Donghoon won't need to spend his precious funds. The skeletons all begin training sessions. Each one focuses on improving its own abilities. Ju Donghoon orders the spear skeleton to attack, eager to see if the air shield is truly solid. The skeleton swiftly conjures the protective air shield, and then the spear skeleton strikes. Astonishingly, the shield remains perfectly intact. It does not break. This comforts Ju Donghoon, showing that at minimum he will stay protected during real fights. He instructs everyone to keep training. This time, he volunteers himself as the target for their attacks. The skeletons rush at him right away, giving their all. Yet regardless of their efforts, Ju Donghoon stays unharmed. Meanwhile, a system window overwhelms his sight, announcing that his skeletons have advanced in level. Beyond that point, the system also congratulates him, stating that after their initial growth post-awakening, the status window is now active. Ju Donghoon notices a status window for every individual emerge before his eyes that allows him to see every statistic, skill, and relevant information about each person. The same holds true for his skeletons. Every skeleton now possesses its own status window. Ju Donghoon feels deeply gratified to see his work pay off. Now he must train them thoroughly in every possible aspect. With that resolve, he pledges to mold them into the most powerful skeletons in the world. Eventually, the crucial day comes for Ju Donghoon to begin his long-awaited new job. He has packed a sleeping bag plus extra provisions, completely ready for any challenges he may encounter along the path. However, recalling his new porter role at once, he cannot stop feeling somewhat irritated by it. At that moment, a squad member declares that every hired fighter must move to the dungeon. He instructs them to gather at the entrance as they will all enter together. Ju Donghoon notes that the dungeon sits quite near Paju Station. Inside, the entrance appears ordinary, as though it naturally formed into a standard dungeon. Other hired fighters, however, grow uneasy. They suspect this dungeon might be extremely challenging to navigate or survive. They mention that a denser hue around the entrance usually indicates a greater likelihood of a complicated or difficult dungeon. Still, they feel somewhat calmer knowing they are with Parang, believing it reduces risks. One person even jokes about hurrying so he can return home for rice soup and soju afterward. However, Ju Donghoon doubts that relying on a prominent guild alone can guarantee everyone's safety. In truth, this world contains an innumerable number of dungeons, as well as equally countless hunters who vanish inside. Losses and tragedies frequently remain overlooked beneath the dazzling fame of high-ranking hunters. Countless lives are lost, but existence proceeds as usual across the globe. Yet, Ju Donghoon stands prepared to enter, determined to stake his own life on the attempt, completely. Suddenly, he hears a woman's voice calling him. When he looks back, she has disappeared into nothingness. He cannot tell where she went, yet her voice is unmistakable. She remarks that it is intriguing how she can detect some kind of energy coursing within his body, despite his rank badge obviously marking him as an E rank. He keeps asking her identity, but the woman insists he must respond to her inquiries before she reveals anything. She questions why he keeps his powers secret from everyone in Pyongyang, and why he joined as a porter. This intensifies Ju Donghoon's anxiety. How could she possibly know these private facts about him? Meanwhile, the mysterious woman senses his growing doubts and recognizes his skepticism toward her presence. Observing his expression, she smiles. At last, Ju Donghoon summons his nerve to ask if she is a spy, trained as an actress. She reappears and seems to believe Ju Donghoon might be a spy from a rival guild himself. The instant he truly sees her, he feels utterly stunned by her appearance. Upon spotting a golden badge, normally awarded only to S-rank hunters, or those beyond that level, that indicates she holds the top position among South Korea's 37 elite hunters. She is the Dark Empress Ji Soyul, Parang Guildmaster and Gi Parang's sole younger sister. With her special power, she is someone no one should ever infuriate, though she appears rather intimidating. He never imagined he would actually converse with the powerful ranker he has long admired. Ju Donghoon becomes meek and attempts to clarify politely that she has it wrong. Since he is absolutely not a spy, he is hardly an E rank, and if Parang's rival guild were truly significant, they would never rely on someone like him. So it makes no sense. She falls silent, wearing a grave expression on her face, but she soon chuckles. That light laugh grows into loud laughter, She apologizes, claiming she was merely playing a prank. Her abrupt reversal in attitude leaves him thoroughly taken aback and disoriented. He wonders why someone of her stature would tease a relative unknown like him. It is obvious her mere presence demands respect, leaving all those nearby visibly overwhelmed by her appearance. Meanwhile, Ju Dong-hun drifts back into deep contemplation, wondering if she investigated him beforehand. He is starting to suspect she observed him drilling with his skeletons, which is highly unusual. Nonetheless, this seems like a rare chance for a powerful hunter to pay attention to him. He soon expresses regret for earlier, conceding she might have behaved somewhat rudely toward him. She remarks it was astonishing to see an E-rank porter harboring 5 D-rank energy signatures within himself. Clearly, she has exposed him, and he lacks any real defense, since in truth her claim is entirely accurate. Thinking about it now, her ability to gauge his power with energy detection alone is already astonishing in itself. Ji Soyul then mentions that Gipperang requested she join the second team's expedition as a scout for their mission. Hence, she sought a porter and coincidentally stumbled upon one who seemed suspicious, namely Ju Dong-hong. She asks why he took the role despite the potential risk it clearly carries. Yet she admits that, given his abilities, he is definitely the most competent porter there, and he hardly appears to be someone who would flee in fear. Her probing inquiries only increase his tension, but at last she lets the matter go and acknowledges his unique talent. She vows to pay him twice as much upon completion. This situation seems utterly surreal to Ju Dong-hun. Not only will he receive double compensation, but he can also travel alongside a high. He accepts immediately without hesitation, simply because chances like these rarely appear. Before delving into this puzzling dungeon, let us clarify the way dungeon ranks are determined. It seems dungeon complexity begins at F rank and progresses upward until it reaches S rank. However, no official system dictates these classifications, so humans had to subjectively categorize and measure them. The challenge is that nobody can accurately gauge a dungeon's rank before entering it. This grim truth persists because there is no sure way to evaluate a dungeon's difficulty in advance. All people can do is venture inside and learn as they proceed. One possible step is to note how bright or dark the aura around the entrance appears. A darker hue typically signals higher difficulty, though this method remains imperfect. To bring order, the association created certain guidelines. If 5 or more hunters of a given rank cannot clear a dungeon, its designated rank is raised accordingly. Moreover, if 5 or more A-rank hunters fail to clear it, the dungeon is classified as S-rank. Sadly, such procedures demand sacrifices. The unranked dungeon Ju Dong-hun faces now falls neatly into that exact category, as deploying the principal team immediately is not feasible. They dispatch a scouting party first to evaluate the overall danger. The moment he steps inside the dungeon, his initial feeling is that he has just walked into an extensive cavern-like chamber. Fortunately, their vision remains clear, thanks to the glowing pearls spread around the interior. A hunter tries to gather the pearls for resale, expecting good profit. However, the red-hamed guy cautions him against such carelessness, pointing out past hunters who died handling items too freely. Ju Dong-hun notes how casual the others seem despite the potential dangers around them. It is not shocking. Everyone except Ji Soyul, who is an S-rank holder of a top badge, remains calm. Ji Soyul then warns them not to relax too much and urges them to stay prepared. She instructs Littlefire and Swiftblade to survey the surroundings for one full cycle. She next addresses their guide Kang Sun-wook and assigns him to locate any quick escape route and protect the porters. Kang Sun-wook appears confident, assuring them he will succeed easily. Ji Soyul questions his certainty, and he replies that failing at such a straightforward duty would disgrace his very title. An alias like Guide implies an expert in pinpointing locations, a title granted by the system to those with outstanding navigation skills in dungeons. The guide then faces Ju Dong-hun, asking about his anxiety. Ju Dong-hun confesses he is somewhat tense, yet rather than console him, the man bluntly tells him to remain uneasy. Unsurprisingly, Ju Dong-hun feels confused. That is no comforting advice at all. Then the guide reveals his harsh reasoning. He explains that this dungeon features several highly suspicious elements, or signs. He clarifies that Dark Empress Ji Soyul, being a top hunter, warned them for a valid purpose. The area here is unnaturally quiet, and the layout appears too straightforward, suggesting a strong possibility of no monsters. He reasons that if creatures inhabited this cramped cavern, there would be subtle noises, tremors, or traces of movement indicating their presence. Such silence indicates a concealed trick, possibly more perilous than common creatures. Ju Dong-hun marvels at the guide's perceptiveness in piecing everything together so early. It is truly remarkable. The guide then explains that he has worked in the dungeon field for many years, making it simple for him to form such deductions. He gestures toward a certain path and instructs Ju Donghoon to join him in searching for the exit as instructed. Ju Donghoon notices that the guide heads in the exact opposite direction from where the other hunters went, yet he assumes it will be okay. He proceeds along with the guide. The guide becomes increasingly uneasy as they advance. When Ju Donghoon inquires about this apprehension, the guide explains that absolutely no signs, traps, or clues appear, which is itself highly unusual. He even mentions a sensation of growing weight and wonders if Ju Donghoon experiences it as well. Ju Donghoon confesses that he senses a cold shiver along his back and questions whether they should proceed deeper. The guide is equally uncertain. He admits he has never experienced such apprehension, not even when meeting top-ranged hunters. Yet, this environment suggests something incredibly formidable could be hiding in the darkness. Because Ju Donghoon is a necromancer, the guide insists he conjure any creature to aid them in this predicament. If trouble erupts, they should at least manage some form of defense. He calls forth all 5 of his skeletons. Thereafter, he retains merely 50 energy points. The guide doubts these simple skeletons can assist much and questions Ju Donghoon if he has stronger options. Irritated, Ju Donghoon admits these are his only assets. Suddenly, both sense a crushing weight, as though unseen power is restraining them. They resolve to press onward toward a broader space ahead. However, Ju Donghoon doubts that reaching it will genuinely solve their predicament. The guide shares his uncertainty yet perceives the existence of multiple entities ahead. If living beings occupy that area, perhaps the location is at least partially inhabitable. Lacking alternatives, they continue moving ahead, despite the crushing force turning each step difficult. Observing his master's hardship, the shield skeleton tries to form an air barrier around Ju Donghoon, yet it breaks almost instantly, leaving Ju Donghoon coughing up blood. Such pressure is powerful enough to crush the ability the instant it is conjured. He sees Kang Sun Wook has somehow moved far in front. Ju Donghoon refuses to perish here. He intends to survive and one day become a ranker. And he must live if he hopes to succeed. Then a strange event occurs. A system message appears, declaring he has reached the stage of an old man with white hair brimming with intense bitterness. Ju Donghoon cannot comprehend what this message signifies. The system continues cryptically, providing more confusing statements with little clear meaning. This time, it announces that the old man's powerful bitterness generates frosty strands of hair upon his head. At last, it urges him to go inside and vanquish this white-hailed elder. Ju Donghoon's sole assumption is that this white-haired elder stands as the dungeon's main boss. Suddenly, he spots a group of survivors. A thin, worn man appears both startled and relieved at the hunter's arrival. He quickly inquires if they have come as a backup team. Ju Donghoon figures these individuals are hunters who also struggled against the pressure to get here. Meanwhile, the survivors see the guide's A-rank badge, and upon spotting the skeletons, they recognize the presence of a necromancer among them. Confirming that this group must be a rescue party, they beg Ju Donghoon to help them escape, first requesting food and water, as they are extremely parched. He chooses to hand out emergency rations immediately. Ju Donghoon feels a bit annoyed that the guide abandoned him in harm's way. Still, he realizes that this is simply how things unfold in a dungeon setting. After Ju Donghoon distributes water and provisions, the survivors gratefully begin drinking and settle down to eat. While they are eating, the guide questions them about their situation and how they ended up like this. A single man steps up to represent his group, producing his B-rank hunter badge as he holds the highest rank among the survivors. He begins by declaring this place to be hell. He has hunted for quite a while yet never faced such a bizarre dungeon before. Its oddity stems from the complete absence of any exit. From the initial location, regardless of the chosen path, this distorted cave returns everyone to the same spot. Then, an oppressive aura trapped them, preventing any escape. In the end, their only option was to confront what awaited beyond that door. However, the requirement to clear this dungeon is absolutely extreme. Supposedly, a white-haired elder consumed by bitterness resides here, and defeating him is impossible. Even a B-rank hunter would become helpless against this elder, as powerless as a child in his presence. Yet the thin survivor believes an A-rank veteran could make a difference. Thus, he pleads with the guide to confront the elder and free them from this place. However, the guide does not feel confident either. Meanwhile, Ju Donghoon questions whether the boss is truly that powerful and wonders how these people remain alive. A survivor clarifies that the elder never kills anyone. He merely receives challengers and puts them through a peculiar examination. They remain uncertain of specifics, though he simply overpowers them with intense, excruciating force. If he deems a challenger unworthy, he simply ejects that person from the area. However, before discarding them, he declares they are not suitable for whatever test he set. That is quite strange, to have a dungeon boss that spares challengers. Reflecting further, it's also odd because this elder is a human senior, which is unprecedented. It marks the first instance of a dungeon boss appearing as a human being since everything changed. Even Ju Dong-hoon feels surprised, uncertain whether a human dungeon boss could realistically exist at all. Regardless, they need to pass through that door and finish the task of locating an exit. However, Ju Dong-hoon does not fully trust Kang Sun-wook, whose focus is solely on guiding rather than direct combat. Just as this crosses his mind, Dark Empress Ji Soyeol arrives, accompanied by the rest of her group. After being briefed on their predicament, she chooses to enter immediately. From their auras, she discerns these survivors are neither doppelgangers nor disguised threats. She remains concerned by the intense aura emanating from the gateway, yet she refuses to remain idle. The survivors break down in joyful tears, embracing one another with intense relief. She instructs the porters and survivors to remain in place while she handles the situation herself. Ju Dong-hoon also feels relieved, realizing that her awakened S-rank power places her on a vastly higher level than any R rank. Furthermore, she holds a spot among the top 1,008 hunters worldwide. Done tying her hair, she chooses to go inside and tells everyone to get ready. She firmly grips the handle and proceeds to walk inside. A while later, our boy, acting as the porter, sits in silence, waiting for the other hunters to come back. But just then, the door suddenly swings open and Swift Blade, the red-helmed fellow, and Little Fire, the one with glasses, get tossed outside like battered trash bags. Surprisingly, even Dark Empress Ji Soyeol has been thrown outside. Dong-hoon is completely stunned by what he sees. It has not even been 10 minutes since they entered, and they are already tossed out. Seeing a powerful S-rank get disabled this quickly is truly unbelievable. But it appears that the lady is not giving up yet. She orders Dong-hoon to give her a high-level potion, determined to head back inside. Dong-hoon feels astonished by her courage, especially after she was thrown out so badly. So he asks if she truly plans to return. She confirms without any hesitation, adding that the survivors were correct. The old man never killed her. He only overpowered her painfully. He hands her the potion, and she cracks the bottle open with a swift motion, making it obvious she plans to show that old man. No, she is indeed worthy. Hearing worthy sparks a thought in Dong-hoon. He recalls this term is used when a master seeks a disciple. He figures the old man's bitterness might come from failing to discover a fitting student. After drinking down the potion, she throws the empty bottle to Dong-hoon and heads back in. And so Ji Soyeol's endless challenge began. Yet each time she went inside, she was tossed out, covered in bruises. No progress was made, even after many attempts. She began feeling frustrated, unsure how long she could keep this up. She still doesn't know the old man's true motive, nor how he excels in both sword and spear techniques. She refuses to stop and keeps pushing forward to triumph. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon simply waits, looking exhausted. As a day goes by, his mood worsens from all the chaos around him. 4 days slip by, yet she keeps challenging him without pause. Each time she went in, the old man revealed another skill. Not only was he a master of sword and spear, but he also knew magic. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon senses they are in serious danger. Even if Gipperang appeared, nothing would improve. He suspects that 2 or even 5 rankers might fail to overpower the old man. After numerous attempts, she finally concedes that the old man is truly on another level. Yet she still refuses to quit testing him. Dong-hoon admires her persistence and can see she truly thinks like a ranker. However, even now she cannot finish this dungeon, and the survivors are beginning to have a hard time. She grows more annoyed because doing nothing is no solution. Come to consider it, every hunter, the guide included, has entered that door and returned. Except for Dong-hoon, of course. He begins walking in their direction, causing Ji Soyeol to wonder if he has something in mind. He replies that he also wants to attempt entering. Naturally, the Dark Empress is puzzled, and the others begin ridiculing Dong-hoon. They think it's hilarious that a mere porter would venture into a dungeon that even an A rank couldn't beat. Swiftblade steps up to Dong-hoon, warning him that as a porter he should stick to hauling their gear. He seems ready to unsheath his sword if Dong-hoon dares step out of line, before the situation worsens. But Ji Soyeol defused the moment by asking if Dong-hoon wants to tackle the dungeon alone because he doubts her. Dong-hoon denies he has any distrust, which makes Ji Soyeol point out that by their contract, he is just a porter and cannot decide how they explore. Naturally, he knows this. She then questions why, under that rule, he still wants to challenge the dungeon. Dong-hoon recalls the old man's remark, saying, the old man sought a suitable pupil, so he thinks the man's bitterness comes from failing to find one. He adds that a worthy student need not be flawless, only promising. Seeing her catch on, she asks if he believes the old man wants to mentor him, rather than vanquish him. Dong-hoon agrees, suggesting it might be the dungeon's hidden requirement. He explains that some dungeons can be cleared differently through secret methods. It finally clicks for her, at least somewhat. She briefly decides to believe him, yet she wonders how he will become the old man's student. She questions whether he truly has more promise than anyone else present. Dong-hoon notices everyone glaring at him, assuming this lowly porter is acting superior, so he admits he cannot claim to possess great potential. Ji Soyeol grows more annoyed, accusing him of retreating from his statement. Dong-hoon, sweating under her fierce stare, tries to calm her, but she continues gazing straight at him with her sharp, cat-like eyes. He fumbles, then explains it's about experiencing pain. Everyone else has endured it, leaving him as the outsider. Besides, he suggests she rest for now. Ji-soil gives him a wary grin and spins around looking displeased. From the very beginning, she was suspicious, and that feeling never left her. Now her suspicion is confirmed. She's sure he's some sort of spy. She demands to know his identity, noticing he has the predatory eyes of a wolf. She questions if he's chasing the dungeon's treasure, guessing he wants a lucky opportunity in this raid. Dong-hin is stunned by how accurately she guessed. He thinks she should be a fortune teller, not a ranker, given how she instantly sees through him. In the end, she permits him to attempt it, given that they have no alternative. Plus, she wants a rest, just as he suggested. If his plan succeeds, great. Besides, she has no room to criticize since she already failed. Dong-hoon is surprised that she is honestly letting him proceed, and she urges him to use this one chance. Noting they are low on supplies and no rescue team is arriving, they must finish this dungeon soon. He silently thanks her in his mind, with genuine respect. With that, he proceeds to enter. The moment he arrives at the door, the system asks him if he intends to open the door and face the challenge. Naturally, we know the choice he will make. The door swings open, revealing a dark room and a powerful aura filling the area. The system instructs him to overcome the old man. The old man emits a fierce glow, forcing Dong-hoon to shield his eyes. When he finally looks forward, he sees that nobody stands before him. A powerful force pushes Dong-hoon down, making him drop to his knees. The old man appears annoyed that no worthy challenger has come. First, there was that weak woman, and now an even more pitiful figure. He clicks his tongue in disapproval, judging Dong-hoon unworthy of a glance, and deciding it's best to discard this worthless being. The old man's eyes flash with menace, and Dong-hoon feels the crushing pressure intensify around him. A golden system notice appears, declaring he is confronting the memory of a cursed soul. The system also reveals a hidden condition has been met, tied to his cursed necromancer trait. Dong-hoon cannot make sense of any of this. Meanwhile, the system keeps mentioning his meeting with a cursed soul's memory. It explains that a necromancer wields the dead and faces cursed souls with unwavering resolve. The system congratulates him on unlocking an S-rank skill called Memory Recreation. Dong-hoon, astonished at an S-rank power, briefly wonders if he's dreaming. The system repeats he is now employing Memory Recreation, identified as an SER rank skill. Dong-hoon is unsure when he activated this skill, but he realizes the old man, despite threatening him, has not made a move. Another system note appears, announcing it is reconstructing the cursed soul's memory of the master of all technique, and that he will soon be transported there. A bright flash lights up once more, blinding him, and when he opens his eyes, he finds himself caught in a fierce snowstorm, and the old man stands before him. The old man mutters that no one in this world is a worthy candidate, yet it seems wasteful to simply abandon his powers. He finds life meaningless, having struggled to attain his current level, only to discard it all now. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon frantically glances around trying to grasp his surroundings, but everything is buried under snow. Suddenly, he feels a throbbing pain in his head, and senses the old man's emotions and memories flooding in. He hears the old man refer to himself as a swordsman, spearman, assassin, archer, mage, support healer, and beyond, skills gained by mastering the flow of chi. Once he controlled chi, every technique merged into one. Evidently, he surpassed all others and lived an extraordinarily long life. Yet even he could not halt aging. Dong-hoon stands silently behind him, hearing him remark that drinking cold water feels like ingesting poison. The formerly gentle air now weighs heavily, seemingly set on ending him. It's extremely painful. He's also parched, but he refuses to die yet, determined to bequeath his knowledge to a successor before the end. At last, the old man sinks to his knees, lamenting that all he ever wished for was one disciple to inherit his skills. He cannot accept that no one meets his standards, and having one successor seems like an empty desire. He is so eager to transmit his power that he'd sell his soul to preserve his full legacy. With that, the old man and the system proclaims, the S-rank memory recreation skill is complete. It appears Dong-hoon now understands the nature of this place, but before he can take any action, he senses the same crushing energy returning, pushing him down. The system indicates that the master of all techniques is fixing his gaze on him. He experiences a stabbing ache in his chest, yet somehow a strange grin appears on his face. Even amid the pain, it appears he has finally pieced everything together. The old man speaks to him again, asking if Dong-hoon has glimpsed his soul. Naturally, Dong-hoon says yes, hardly remaining upright beneath the crushing energy around him. He believes that if the old man truly seeks a disciple, one to take his immense power and wisdom, it might be Dong-hoon. However, aside from mild curiosity, the old man believes Dong-hoon is worthless, lacking what is required to hold his arts. He increases the crushing force further, leaving Dong-hoon pleading desperately. Dong-hoon warns that if the old man persists, he will remain a wandering spirit forever, never finding a student and leaving behind only the memory of a stubborn, bull-headed phantom. But the old man refuses to hear such talk, growing more irritated by this insignificant mortal boasting so boldly. To make his point, the old man extends his hand, aiming to snap one of Dong-hoon's legs. But Dong-hoon fights back, urging him to hear him out. He points out that the old man has mastered every art, whereas most people can barely perfect a single one in their entire lives. But the old man waves this off, insisting the world is huge and time abundant, certain another genius will emerge. Dong-hoon counters by mentioning the woman he fought before, informing the old man she is deemed among the world's strongest. This remark draws the old man's notice. He never imagined someone so feeble could be ranked among the best, wondering how she could be so highly regarded. Dong-hoon then dares the old man to look straight into his eyes, convinced the elder can instantly detect any deception. As expected, the old man sees Dong-hoon as truthful, which is all the more troubling. At that instant, Dong-hoon seizes the opportunity, asking if no one qualifies, why not pick him as a disciple. However, the old man shows no desire to teach him. He already found Dong-hoon impertinent, and now he considers him brazen, too. The old man declares he would rather instruct trash than share knowledge with Dong-hoon. Dong-hoon replies that the old man needn't train him personally. He simply opens his system display and calls forth his 5 skeletons. The idea is straightforward. If the old man refuses to choose Dong-hoon himself, then these skeletons might possess even greater aptitude for inheriting his arts. To persuade the old man further, he notes that these summons feel no pain, granting them more endurance than any living being. They are also tougher for lacking fear. The old man's expression stays blank. As he observes these undead more closely, he spins around the other way, his aura still weighing heavily on Dong-hoon. The old man is amused that his sought-after successor might not be human, but rather undead. He clearly recognizes their vast potential. They must have been outstanding warriors in life. He has long desired such students. Teaching multiple disciples could be difficult, yet the old man is ready to compromise. At last, the moment we've anticipated has come. The system confirms that Dong-hoon has at last met the hidden requirement. A dazzling light envelops the scene, and they are once more in a snowy mountain range. The old man now decides to believe in Dong-hoon's resolve and the fire in his gaze, but he demands a promise. No matter what happens, Dong-hoon will accept all his teachings and ensure his legacy remains in the world. The system nudges him to sway the old man if he truly aims to gain all those potent abilities. So Dong-hoon quickly speaks with dramatic flair, making it clear he won't lose this once-in-a-lifetime chance and will inherit every bit of power offered. The old man's expression shows that Dong-hoon has earned his approval. The system then confirms that he has successfully cleared the stage by becoming the old man's disciple and completing the dungeon. Dong-hoon awakens beneath glaring hospital lights. Seated by his bed is none other than Dark Empress Ji Soyul. It seems she has been waiting a long time for him to regain consciousness. Still dazed from his strange ordeal, Dong-hoon tries to understand his current circumstances, and Ji Soyul formally reintroduces herself as the Vice Guild Master of the Parang Guild, this time speaking seriously. She stresses she is also called the Dark Empress, hoping to unnerve him, but he already knows who she is. He just wonders why she came to his hospital room. He realizes that, after clearing the dungeon, he apparently passed out. Ji Soyul confesses she was astonished that Dong-hoon subdued an unknown-level boss. No one would have guessed a mere porter she hired randomly would accomplish that. Her penetrating gaze could easily rattle anyone. Pulling himself together, Dong-hoon asks why a vice guild master of such a big guild would personally visit him. It appears she is simply curious about how he managed to beat that ridiculous unranked dungeon, and what rewards he obtained. She wishes to confirm whether their theory was correct, and Ju Dong-hoon truly became the old man's disciple. Her questions made sense. She initially planned to tackle the dungeon entirely alone. From Ji Soyul's viewpoint, a random man who arrived just to haul their gear stole the glory. He figured that a harsher, more reckless ranker might already have decapitated him for stealing their kill. So, before he answered her queries, he politely inquired about the news articles describing the completion of that dungeon. She instantly realized he worried about being exposed, though it was unnecessary. According to official reports, the Parang Guild's elite team had cleared the dungeon and required all survivors to sign strict confidentiality agreements. Ju Dong-hoon beamed with joy to learn he hadn't been pushed into the spotlight. He bowed his head and gratefully thanked the Dark Empress for keeping him out of harm's way. She was honestly astonished by the porter's calm demeanor, because countless experienced hunters would gladly do almost anything to broadcast such a striking accomplishment worldwide. Yet Ju Dong-hoon is more grounded than that. For him, safety always comes first above everything else. She reassured him that the published reports were likewise intended to safeguard her guild's honor, and sense of pride. Nobody would accept that a mere porter was the MVP of such a risky expedition. Choosing a volatile mercenary over a genuine ranker does seem logical. However, the Perengil is deliberately concealing their true outcome to avoid facing humiliation before everyone. If he dares to reveal the truth, he risks being quietly taken out. 3 entire days had passed since they finally exited the dungeon, and he stayed completely unconscious for that whole period. Nevertheless, he gained a desperately needed stroke of luck thanks to Ji Soyul. Yet he realized that discussing his rewards might jeopardize his safety. Therefore, he decided to act cautiously, explaining he still hadn't determined what he gained from clearing the dungeon. He added that he would need a bit more time before offering a proper answer. He pretended to be ill and frail from the ordeal, hoping Ji Soyul would believe him. Juyu Donghun also promised her he would never flee, since no hunter in the world could possibly slip past the dark Empress Ji Soyul's watchful gaze. Surprisingly, she fell for his pretense and agreed to return later with more questions, once he got everything in order. And so, she left the room. He could finally take a real breath again. Life had moved fast for him over these past few days. He awakened. After 3 long years of hard work, he encountered a ranker and also cleared a bizarre dungeon. If he landed on the wrong side of authority and blame, he would be utterly finished. Yet it might also serve as a chance to forge solid ties with a strong organization. Alone in his hospital room, the system urged him to review the rewards for finishing the dungeon. As soon as he confirmed the prompt, he received a permanent increase of 20 points to his energy. In addition, he acquired the rank skill called Teaching of All Techniques. Checking his status window, he saw few visible changes. He remained a so-called cursed necromancer. But his skills had grown more extensive, thanks to his 2 new rank skills, Memory Recreation and Teaching of Old Techniques. The sight of those powers was overwhelming enough to make him tremble. At last, he realized why so many veterans were obsessed with conquering dungeons. The power to read a dead individual's memories, Memory Recreation, seemed like a hidden skill. This very ability to access the old man's memories had let him finish the dungeon, though he could not see any other use for it yet. He felt sure he would discover another purpose for it eventually. More intriguing was the quest reward, Teaching of Old Techniques. Its first effect let him summon the Master of All Techniques, who once ruled another realm, for 60 minutes. Unable to exert physical force here, the old man could only share knowledge. Only the user could see this grumpy elder, and the cooldown was fixed at 24 hours. After just one look at the skill's description, Ju Donghun leapt out of bed and he gathered up his gear. He raced to his familiar open-air training spot with all possible speed. Ju Donghun lifted his hand and activated Teaching of All Techniques, summoning the old boss who had toyed with everyone at the fortress. A radiant glow formed into the shape of an elderly man. At last, the Master of All Techniques emerged into daylight again. Ju Donghun smiled and greeted his new master, politely addressing him as. In return, the old man struck his head forcefully and labeled him a fool, an utter dimwit. Even though he had vowed to inherit all of his teachings, the kid still waited 3 full days before calling him forth. Furious, the old man accused Ju Donghun of laziness and warned he would never keep pace. Naturally, Ju Donghun tried to clarify that he had only just woken up and had summoned the master first thing. Moreover, the skill supposedly prevented the old fart from physically affecting the world, so how did he manage to hit Ju Donghun's head? To his shock, his inner thoughts were plainly transmitted and perceived by the master. They were now linked mentally, meaning no thought could slip by unheard, because they had already wasted too much time. The old man was eager to begin day 1 of training at once. He assumed all he had to do was bring out his skeletons and let the master train them. However, the old man had another plan in mind. He wanted to determine how to train Ju Donghun personally, since he already grasped the skeleton's abilities. The main weakness, in his view, was their summoner. Ju Donghun definitely disliked the sound of that. The old man demanded to know whether Ju Donghun understood why he was known as the Master of All Techniques. In his prime, he earned that grand title by studying and refining a vast range of skills to perfection. He had already devised a training plan for each skeleton, but the rest depended on Ju Donghun's own efforts to understand and master it. Ju Donghun protested that his talent had already been judged worthless. The old man became irrationally furious and commanded him to be quiet. Since he was the one who pledged to inherit these teachings, he had to honor that vow. If he cannot, he must keep pushing until he succeeds. Besides, the old man claimed he could employ a special art to turn trash into an unrivaled genius. Through that technique, fortunately, he was able to affect only his summoner physically. The old man was eager to employ certain arts and methods he had developed yet never tested. He explained that tough meridians could be unblocked through qi, and the young man's body could improve with 3 days of intense massage. It would hurt, but that was where Ju Donghun's grit mattered. Things were not unfolding as he had hoped when he tried to wiggle his way out of the agreement. The old man scolded him to keep quiet and show gratitude. In his former world, hordes of geniuses would have done anything to study under the Master of All Techniques. They all craved his grand technique of the celestial artisan, a method he invented late in life. Zhu Donghun, seeing gaps in the old man's logic, wondered, if he could turn garbage into a genius, why did selecting a disciple matter? However, this technique required the master to spend his own life energy, a high price indeed. Moreover, if he elevated a disciple's abilities any further, his body would simply dissolve for no gain. But since he had already died and was bound in spirit form, that penalty presumably no longer applied. So Zhu Donghun questioned why the old man hadn't picked any other challengers in the dungeon and just used that overpowered method on them, which earned the young man yet another painful blow to the top of his head. That strike came from asking foolish questions instead of fully heeding the master's remarks. As he had already stated, the grand technique of the celestial artisan is an art that converts trash into genius. It is useless unless used on someone worthless. It only works if the target is basically food waste. Being labeled food waste as a twisted compliment was definitely something else. Again, this technique fails on anyone with even mild talent, since other energies have already shaped their bodies. Unlike individuals with real power. For instance, the Dark Empress has genuine strength, but Zhu Donghun's body is extremely undeveloped, despite his ability to summon the dead. On top of that, naturally gifted prodigies are more remarkable than artificially created ones. So the old man had tried his best to avoid this approach. He originally hoped for a more promising candidate, but ended up stuck with Zhu Donghun. Though his comments were harsh, the youth acknowledged every point. Moreover, the idea of growing stronger in tandem with his skeletons seemed like a great opportunity. It was akin to striking two birds with a single bone. So, when the master of all techniques asked him whether he was prepared, he answered with complete sincerity that he was. His fresh resolve was rapidly shattered and his agonized screams echoed through the training area. He tried pleading for mercy and wanted to give up, but the old man refused to let him. He kept hammering Zhu Donghun's back with his fists, massaging his torso with a flurry of blows. They had barely begun, and he was already raising a clamor. As the bizarre massage intensified, Zhu Donghun bit his tongue and fought with all he had to bear it. If he hoped to become a true ranker, he had to push through the torment. The old man assaulted his body, yet praised his courage and endurance. Noticing he was adapting, the master raised the intensity further. Zhu Donghun had never encountered pain of this magnitude before. The torment was so intense that he actually developed a C-rank pain-resistant skill by withstanding the agony. And the skill could still grow further over time. With one last slap and push, Zhu Donghun coughed, and he dropped to the floor. That massage seemed endless. But it was finally finished. The old man commended him for clenching his teeth and fighting like a champion. Even with worthless talent, it's unusual for anyone to show such resilience. If he keeps striving to grow stronger while firmly preserving the willpower required to endure endless, relentless torment, he might not be a hopeless case after all. Beaten and broken, Zhu Donghun asked if they were done for the day. Unfortunately, the summoning period still had around 30 minutes remaining. The old man firmly lifted him by the shoulder, refusing to let him rest on the floor after that precious massage. His undead battalion was waiting for their leader to begin the real training. Zhu Donghun surrendered to his fate, tears slowly rolling down his cheeks. This truly became his new normal, driving him to seriously contemplate giving up altogether. You see, every profession is built on physical strength, and it appears the skeletons can develop that power even without muscles. The old man's first real lesson focuses on correct posture, specifically the horse riding stance he has relied on throughout his life. Human muscles concentrate in the lower body, so a stable foundation is essential for strength and balance. Since his body had just been severely battered by what was labeled a massage, Zhu Donghun struggled hard to maintain proper posture. To make things worse, the old man specifically called him out for his lack of talent, but then he praised his tenacity once again. The master believes the summoner must never lag behind his summoned units, so he has to work twice as hard. But Zhu Donghun already sensed his strained muscles were torn, and would need some time to fully heal. He couldn't help thinking that posture training was useless and merely added more torture. Still, he pushed through, as he always did, and collapsed the instant the master ended the session completely. That's all for today. For his assignment, Zhu Donghun had to perform basic physical drills each morning before summoning the master for the real training. And so the master of all techniques was summoned, leaving Zhu Donghun completely stuck on the ground, struggling to catch his breath. His skeletons looked at him with genuine worry. When Zhu Donghun finally caught his breath, he turned toward Bonnet 1. He asked the skeletal swordsman to carry him, as he couldn't move a single muscle after that brutal first day. Early the next day, Zhu Donghun's first stop was the mercenary agency. As soon as he arrived, his agent called him over to the front desk without delay. In the lobby stood the final dungeon survivors they had recently saved. The man stood up and walked to Zhu Donghun, greeting him as Mr. Necromancer. They observed that he seemed to have changed somewhat, In fact, he looked considerably more muscular and better looking. They were not exaggerating. Only a day after the massage and the old man's training, he had noticeably bulked up. His shoulders had widened significantly, and even his skeletal structure had been visibly altered. It was difficult to believe that a grueling 30-minute massage could cause such dramatic changes. Regardless, he could not fathom any reason for these hunters to appear before him now, searching for the porter at the agency. One of them stepped forward and formally introduced himself as Kang Jae-ho, a C-rank hunter. He claimed that Ju Dong-hoon's behavior and outlook inside the dungeon had made an impression on him. Because they survived thanks to Ju Dong-hoon, he tracked down the porter again to form a team once more. Out of courtesy, Ju Dong-hoon also introduced himself formally, fully revealing that he was merely an E-rank necromancer mercenary. Kang Jae-ho got straight to the point and offered a business proposal about another dungeon. They had obtained permission to take on a well-known C-rank dungeon, and they intended to employ Ju Dong-hoon. They heard from the agent that he was in serious financial trouble and desperately needed work, so this plan seemed ideal. Ju Dong-hoon glared at the agent as though he wanted to kill him on the spot. All this man ever did was sell him out for any possible job, even spilled poor Ju Dong-hoon's financial troubles. But it was also true that he urgently needed money. Jae-ho cautioned him that the dungeon they planned to tackle was tricky, even for a C-rank. Still, it was worth attempting. With enough luck, they could earn some very valuable items. Not long ago, a few groups even obtained a power potion. Just hearing about a power potion immediately piqued Ju Dong-hoon's interest. You see, a power potion is an exceptionally rare dungeon drop at any rank. It is a high-level concoction reputed to cure any curse or ailment. Jae-ho was glad to see Ju Dong-hoon showed interest in his plan. He also clarified that they were not hiring him as a porter, but as a fully recognized party member. Regarding payment, he would no longer get any money up front, since he wasn't just hauling gear. Instead, he would receive a fair share of the loot profits. Finding himself finally treated like a real hunter left him bewildered in his own thoughts. He calculated the possible earnings if a power potion really dropped, since its market price was roughly 50 million won. When divided among 6 people, each share could be around 833 million won. He could never have imagined earning that much under his previous hustle. The prospect of such wealth totally overwhelmed his thoughts. Jae-ho asked whether he was in, and he agreed at once. He was sick of working as a porter anyway. Besides, he felt eager to witness his upgraded skeletons in genuine combat. This seemed like a prime opportunity for it. So Jae-ho finalized the arrangement and gave Ju Dong-hoon the details for Monday's hunt. After securing another job, his next destination was the training grounds. While the skeletons followed their individual drills, Ju Dong-hoon asked his master for permission to enter the dungeon run on Monday, explaining that hunters grow stronger via these expeditions. The old man mocked the idea as ridiculous. He viewed Ju Dong-hoon as a novice who had yet to master the basics, trying to sprint before he could even walk. Nevertheless, rushing or not, he still had to make a living. Eventually, the old man gave in and agreed. He preferred offering his only disciple hands-on experience, rather than mere theory anyway. Ju Dong-hoon brightened the moment he realized the master was likely allowing him to accept the job, but skipping practice would not be tolerated, making him flinch. The old man insisted Ju Dong-hoon could simply summon him inside the dungeon. Once that was settled, then the old man raised his hands and motioned for his unfortunate pupil to come over for today's massage. All color fled Ju Dong-hoon's face. Barely one day in and he was already traumatized. Thus he submitted again to the brutal rub-down and beat-down. Ju Dong-hoon once more fell prey to the old man's punishing massage sessions. By now his body was trembling from the effort. Utterly spent and near tears, this poor man realized he might truly perish for the sake of training. Indeed, he had gained a skill called pain resistance, exactly as his system informed him. It included a secondary effect that dulled his senses whenever his pain grew too intense, and without it he would likely be dead or fully insane. Grateful he survived the old man's torture, Ju Dong-hoon hoped to develop that skill further to bolster his resilience. The elder commended him for his durability thus far, unaware that the poor fellow was barely scraping by through this ordeal. Unfortunately for him, the old man planned to raise the training intensity starting tomorrow. Since Ju Dong-hoon was coping well with the current level, he did a double take upon hearing that and asked if he had heard correctly. Meanwhile, the bony skeletons were also practicing their own weapon swings. The elder instructed everyone to assemble immediately. They shuffled over on their skinny, bony feet. The elder indicated a spot and ordered them all to take the squatting stance. Just as before, he further declared that as part of their training plan, he would teach each skeleton a new technique every day. Ju Dong-hoon found this astonishing. The elder gestured toward one of the skeletons and selected it as his first subject. By now, Ju Dong-hoon's summons understood how severe the old man's training could be. The poor skeleton gave its master a worried glance. The swordsman came first. and Ju Donghoon noted that it possessed no real skills other than swinging its sword. The elder had no issue with that, as he intended to cultivate the swordsman's techniques within their training. He ordered the skeleton to proceed and practice swinging its sword. Bony One took some reassurance from its summoner, but in truth, even Ju Donghoon realized his summon would endure a living hell to survive the old man's sword regiment. The unfortunate skeleton fidgeted. Despite being undead, it still feared what the elder might inflict upon it. Regardless, the session started with the skeleton practicing its sword swings. Next, the elder spoke to Ju Donghoon by name, hinting at a different plan for him. He began with a philosophical question to gauge Ju Donghoon's grasp of swordsmanship, asking what the art truly meant to him. In typical form, Ju Donghoon replied as anyone else might. He believed swordsmanship was merely a technique used when wielding a sword. Anticipating this simple view, the elder was not impressed, though he also felt that reducing swordsmanship in that way was perhaps the clearest way to see it. He echoed Ju Donghoon's opinion, agreeing that it amounted to no more than the skill of handling a given sword. He tossed a stick at Ju Donghoon's feet. Then the old master told him to pick it up. Donghoon pauses briefly to think about it. He realizes the old master wants more than the skeletons to gain his skills. In truth, he wishes for Donghoon to become his student and learn techniques similar to his undead servants. Holding a stick, the old man with white hair tells Donghoon to assume a proper combat stance. Even though confused by the order, he takes his position regardless. The old master advises him not to overcomplicate the act of using a weapon, urging him to maneuver the sword in any manner he finds natural. Donghoon settles into a comfortable stance, fully prepared to attempt his first swing. The old man with white hair orders him to swing repeatedly with maximum speed and force. Following this, Donghoon starts executing awkward strokes through the air. While giving a light laugh, the master is impressed by Donghoon's efforts, but his response appears insincere since he believes Donghoon's swings are awful. He begins to doubt the old master's true ability, so the elder clarifies his reasoning by drawing attention to Donghoon's grip on the weapon. He notes that Donghoon's thumb and fingers are positioned correctly. As for his swing form, it's not entirely poor. The elder outlines how Donghoon moved the weapon from one angle to the next. He adds that he hasn't taught Donghoon any formal swordsmanship yet. Still, Donghoon now swings in a way he believes is most effective. The elder says a person's idea of a proper slash comes from all their life experiences. In other words, Donghoon was unconsciously pouring his entire life experience into those recent swings. After hearing such a deep explanation, the low-level hunter questions whether he truly did that. The elder playfully poses a question, wondering what would occur if someone applied the right amount of power and speed to Donghoon's strikes. Still somewhat clueless, Donghoon blanks out, not grasping the significance of the elder's query. The old man with white hair explains that any slash, no matter how crude, becomes extremely potent with enough force and velocity. Those two elements are unchanging truths. At last he understands what the elder means, and Donghoon firmly grasps his weapon and has a sudden realization. The elder wants him to develop his personal slashing style and then strengthen it. Satisfied with his progress, the old man turns and poses another question. He muses about a slash practiced countless times, ultimately achieving its maximum potential, and demonstrates his point. The elder lifts his blade and proceeds to illustrate a perfectly honed slash. Donghoon watches in awe as the old man with white hair starts his initial stroke. He makes a pristine cut through the air, then executes several more flawless swings in rapid succession. Even Donghoon is at a loss for words. The elder prefers not to dwell on theory, and insists he focus on refining his slash technique first. Once he masters that, his regular slashes will define his combat style. Donghoon realizes it's acceptable if his swing form appears sloppy. After all, nobody truly cares about the appearance of his swing. It's his own slash method, and he can apply it however he chooses. The system notifies him that he has gained a new skill named. This ability reflects his slash technique and can grow more powerful over time. The scene shifts to the Parang Guild's headquarters, where its master is busy with routine tasks. He is ranked 58th worldwide and is called the Fine Bow for his remarkable archery. Jiparang, balancing his schedule, addresses Jisoyo, his younger sister, who has arrived unexpectedly to speak with him. Even Giparang finds it odd and remarks on it. Ji Soyul explains she is concerned about a certain issue, startling her brother. She cuts to the chase and asks whether a ranked hunter can abruptly display abilities surpassing a typical ranker. Jiparang notes how unusual the question is, yet Ji Soyul insists on a swift response. He states that it usually takes considerable time to refine one's abilities, so a sudden leap like that should be impossible. Even if it happened, it would indicate the person secretly concealed their full strength and pretended to be weaker from the start. However, Ji Soyul insists that the individual she encountered definitely wasn't hiding his abilities. Jiparang accepts her statement, Knowing Ji Soil's heightened senses let her accurately measure a ranker's power. After all, she has a remarkably potent detection ability. Then Gi Parang asks what is truly troubling her. Clearly uneasy about the topic, Ji Soil silently reflects on how she has not even told her brother about the dungeon she tackled, involving the old man with white hair, because she can't accept being beaten so effortlessly by that dungeon's boss. That old man in the dungeon possessed astonishing power, far beyond any hunter she had encountered. It seems absurd that a supposedly useless, low-level hunter managed to accomplish the impossible. In the very scenario she had failed repeatedly, she remembers how their initial meeting left her with a peculiar perception of him, and driven by her curiosity, she invited him to join the raid party. Yet the fact that he completed that dungeon surpasses all other concerns. Dong-hun has stated he'll explain everything when he's able, so Ji Soil is willing to wait. Giprang notices she has gone quiet and wonders why she is suddenly smiling, even though she was tense just moments before, because he's intrigued by her behavior, knowing she usually focuses only on training to be the greatest. Feeling awkward, Ji Soil chooses not to disclose the dungeon story and stands to depart. On her way out, Giparang playfully tells her it's fine to discuss such matters with him. We switch back to Dong-hun's perspective now. The group slated for the raid waited until he finally showed up. The well-known necromancer stayed true to his word and arrived once he got the dungeon information via message. Interestingly, this dungeon is classified as C rank. The team's goal is to clear out monsters and defeat the boss. Although it appears straightforward, that simplicity seems suspicious. Dong-hun notes he has put on sunblock and brought plenty of water for the desert environment. Suddenly, he observes something peculiar. His companion said they would have only a small group, yet their numbers appear larger than expected. He also spots two women who clearly aren't hunters. His friend clarifies that he hired two low-ranking porters and has already paid their fee, so it's not a problem. Feeling reassured, Dong-hun decides not to probe any further. He believes it's logical to bring porters to gather loot within the dungeon, because even though it's a C-rank dungeon, he still feels somewhat uneasy. But he remains confident because his skeletons already proved they can beat an orc, reputedly the strongest monster there. The group steps through the portal. Once inside, they find themselves in a barren desert matching the earlier information. His system alerts him that this environment will be tough, reducing his core stats by 10%. The heat is far worse than they anticipated and they must cope regardless. In spite of everyone else struggling, Dong-hun appears to handle it just fine. He believes he'll manage without much trouble. After all, he considers it mild compared to the daily training he endures under the old man with white hair. He activates his summoning ability and summons his bonehead squad, all armed and poised for action. The skeletons increase the team's overall numbers and presence. The other hunters are shocked at how much sturdier his summoned skeletons have become. The group's organizer gets everyone's focus and describes the various monsters they will encounter. Scorpions and snakes are included, unnerving some hunters, yet they're only C-rank creatures at most, so there's supposedly little danger. He explains they must carefully follow orders and do as instructed, assuring them all will be okay. Beyond that, they commence a grueling trek across the scorching sands. However, the brutal heat is already wearing down the unfortunate hunters. The organizer unexpectedly halts the group for some unclear reason. After a lull, they see nothing around them, so it makes little sense that they halted here. Suddenly, a party member spots something unusual. A scorpion's tail emerges violently from beneath the sand, and a swarm of them crawls up to assault the group, prompting the hunters to ready their blades. They fight back using their gear, slicing through the C-ranked creatures. The organizer urges everyone to stay alert and concentrate on the immediate threat. They form up in combat stances to challenge the scorpions. From a short distance, Dong-hun watches them fiercely engage the desert scorpions, which he deems on par with the orc he battled before. Dong-hun summons the mage skeleton Bonehead 5 and orders it to form an air barrier around him. Heedful of its master's command, the undead caster conjures a protective shield. Dong-hun, sometimes called Dong-jun, then speaks to the others and lifts his staff, commanding them to eliminate the scorpions. Having ensured his own safety using his summoned squad, the shield-bearing skeleton sets its defense on the ground and activates a low-level taunt ability, and Dong-hun instructs the others to finish off the creatures. Provoked, the scorpions now converge on the shield-bearing skeleton, while the swordsman skeleton lifts its blade and lands its initial strike. However, the blade struggles to penetrate the scorpion's tough armor. Even so, the strikes are not entirely futile, so Dong-hun directs his summons to keep striking until the beast falls. The skeletons continue their frenzy of assaults. Eventually, the spearman skeleton succeeds in puncturing the scorpion's hide with a well-aimed thrust. Observing the ongoing clash, Dong-hun is pleased to see that his summons are far more powerful than he expected. The party's organizer also remarks with admiration on the notable improvement of Dong-hun's skeletons. Dong-hun humbly insists it's not special, saying he's merely cleaning up leftovers since the main force already already dealt with the scorpions. The leader teases him for his modest attitude. Dong-hoon quietly notes his lingering distrust of the man's behavior. He also observes another detail. The other hunters are so strong that his role in the team seems almost unnecessary. He is merely a low-level necromancer, yet they appear aware he gained benefits from that high-level dungeon earlier. Due to his confidential contract with the Parang Guild, none can openly discuss it with him. They can only corner him for details during a dungeon run, free from surveillance or official oversight. It removes any risk of proof, since accidents often occur in dungeons. No wonder he suspects the others of plotting, as if they're all silently evaluating him. Still, it remains only speculation, and he tries not to overthink it. While these thoughts occupy him, the organizer grins, believing everything proceeds according to plan, until they finally reach the temple of the ancient desert, Scorpion King. The system states that breaking the seal demands 1 life, and that the altar itself needs 2 offerings. This is where things become alarming. Recall the 2 F-rank porters who joined them? They qualify as sacrificial candidates, which is deeply disturbing. Dong-hoon feels stunned that this vital piece of dungeon information was conveniently omitted. The organizer's subordinates pretend to be completely caught off guard, yet these villains are fully prepared to sacrifice the porters at the altar. Terrified, one porter begs the group leader for help, but he's as heartless as the rest, deeming the 2 porters perfect for his plan. Without pity, he demands both porters step forward to be sacrificed. The porters protest, calling the mercenaries insane, but the leader is indifferent and advises them to accept this approach. Confronting such injustice, they ask him why he is acting this way. Suddenly, they realize this vile scheme was his intention from the start, and he releases a sinister laugh, reminding them about the generous wages he had offered these low-level porters as he brandishes his weapon. In his view, high rewards require paying a steep cost. Dong-hoon silently watches the situation. He suspects that if the leader shows no concern, it implies he's certain he could overpower Dong-hoon should he intervene. So the leader orders the porters to proceed and sacrifice themselves. However, someone intervenes to save them. Dong-hoon chooses to oppose the group. The leader is mildly stunned at his genuine compassion, ridiculing him for acting heroic. Dong-hoon ignores the taunts and insists on learning the man's true objective. He suspects there's a motive behind bringing him here. The leader is pleased to see Dong-hoon isn't entirely naive. As Dong-hoon grows angry and demands answers, the leader cuts to the chase, saying he wants details about the previous high-level dungeon and had no direct way to learn them. So he cunningly lured Dong-hoon into this place. Decisively, he assures Dong-hoon they don't aim to kill him. They revealed their true colors for a specific reason, namely to pressure Dong-hoon into choosing a side. If he cooperates, he must share everything about that high-level dungeon run, even offering a portion of this dungeon's profits as incentive. Dong-hoon considers it an insane proposal from people who willingly endanger others for personal gain. It feels like a classic villain inviting him to join their cause. Dong-hoon has already made up his mind, and that response is a forceful rejection. He doesn't care about offending them and orders his skeletons to resolve the conflict. They unleash a volley of arrows, which the leader effortlessly deflects with rapid reflexes. Though impressed by Dong-hoon's defiance, the leader warns that he will surely regret his choice. Dong-hoon remains firm, stating he cannot trust criminals. His skeleton crew intensifies their offensive. Even the swordsman's skeleton alone is challenging the leader. Significantly, the leader ridicules Dong-hoon for thinking he can match him just because he's grown more powerful. Nevertheless, Dong-hoon remains safe while his undead forces handle the fight. This C-rank hunter exceeds his assumptions, bordering on a much higher tier of prowess. All the same, Dong-hoon believes this works in his favor. The hunter smirks at the skeletons, deriding Dong-hoon for assuming he's the only threat. He hints there's a reason such unscrupulous people raid various dungeons. Detecting the man's killing intent, Dong-hoon warns his sword-wielding skeleton. He experiences a sharp pang when the hunter succeeds in striking one of his undead minions. The hunter laughs while an assassin suddenly appears from nowhere. This newcomer is the real danger, an A-rank assassin from the Shadow Lurker group. The assassin asks if Dong-hoon is truly the one who finished that high-level dungeon, which even Ji Soyul failed to clear. They regard Dong-hoon as feeble, but he is genuinely more concerned about that elder within the dungeon. As though matters weren't already dire, there is no clear escape. Despite surviving against B-rank hunters for a while, an A-rank opponent is another story. Suddenly, one of the porters tries to assist Dong-hoon, apologizing that he must endure extra danger on their behalf. Seeing their frightened and vulnerable faces, Dong-hoon questions why they must suffer such cruelty and be offered as sacrifices. Their plight angers him, reinforcing his determination to rescue them. Even though an A-rank assassin now stands in front of his undead minions, Dong-hoon is ready to do whatever is necessary, particularly because he holds a secret trump card, his old master, whose power eclipses even A-rankers. He activates the skill to summon the elder. However, the assassin and the other rakers appear to downplay the threat. The old man with white hair surveys the scene, stating he foresaw such a development. Dong-hun feels cornered and urgently seeks someone's guidance. Yet even his master insists it's all on him, warning he'll surely be crushed by these opponents. Dong-hun pleads for help, arguing that if he dies, the master's objective will fail too. The elder remains unfazed and feels he has more reason to be frustrated with Dong-hun. Despite having the potential to master every skill, even he cannot surpass the impossible. The assassin, speaking calmly, asks Dong-hun what he acquired from the dungeon. Dong-hun pauses, realizing they are specifically after the prize he got from the dungeon. Once he sees this, he figures there might be a possible escape. He realizes it's all intimidation to force him to reveal what he discovered. After all, they risk trouble if he refuses to cooperate. Sensing his pupil's intent, the elder understands what Dong-hun plans to do. Dong-hun piques their curiosity by mentioning the dungeon reward. The assassin states he only wants details of that treasure, something even Dark Empress Ji Soyul allegedly failed to obtain. Choosing to speak openly, Dong-hun says he has no choice against an A-rank hunter. Believing Dong-hun is doing the right thing, the assassin lowers his weapons. Dong-hun, called the trash necromancer, demands the assassin deal with the hunters who betrayed him before he reveals anything. He's furious at them and refuses to speak unless they are punished first. With that, Dong-hun readies his skeletons and asks the assassin if he agrees to these terms. Even though he's irritated by the bold proposition, the assassin hesitates briefly. Dong-hun admits he's too proud to ignore the hunter's betrayal against him. Uncertain about his reasoning, the assassin presses Dong-hun about his true purpose. Dong-hun gestures and assures the assassin there's no possible way for him to run away. He adds that even if he tried anything shady, he would instantly be stopped by the A-rank hunter. The assassin accepts this explanation. Now the B-rank hunters are at a disadvantage because Dong-hun has swayed their strongest ally. Dong-hun says he's ready to die, since surviving the shadow lurker's anger is impossible. The B-rank leader grows furious at Dong-hun's statements. Dong-hun insists he only wants revenge before accepting any outcome. If the assassin refuses, Dong-hun is willing to die. He even threatens to stab himself with a skeleton sword. Amusingly, both he and the skeleton look terrified. The assassin prevents him from doing anything rash and silences the B-rank leader. He agrees to grant Dong-hun 30 minutes to settle his affairs, but warns that if he tries anything foolish, he will subject Dong-hun to torture worse than death. It's a scary deal, but Dong-hun just needed this opportunity. He has 30 minutes to finish his task. The circumstances now favor Dong-hun and work against his betrayers. The B-rank leader doubts whether Dong-hun can really overcome him, yet Dong-hun trusts his skeleton squad to handle the fight for him. The elder is pleased his pupil devised this unusual setup and even offers to join the battle. He wants Dong-hun to treat this as a hands-on training exercise. He also wonders how Dong-hun will handle the assassin. If Dong-hun uses too much energy, he'll be drained when it comes time to face that threat. The elder advises him to save his energy and offers a strategic plan to handle his foes. Dong-hun commands his skeleton squad to defeat the B-rank party. They launch a coordinated assault on those traitors. The skeletons match their opponents well in the fight. Arrows are causing real difficulty for the B-rank leader. Meanwhile, the mage skeleton fires a fireball spell, unleashing a destructive blaze on the unsuspecting targets. The hunters are astonished that mere skeletons have learned spells and can wield magic. The sword-wielding skeleton charges aggressively at the B-rank leader. The leader's small daggers are no match against the skeleton's forceful strikes. Eventually, the daggers snap apart, further cornering him. The skeleton lands a heavy forward kick on him. Watching closely, the assassin notices the skeleton's exceptionally precise movements. He can hardly believe Dong-hun is actually gaining the upper hand in this fight. Suddenly, the assassin senses a disturbance. He's startled to detect someone at the dungeon entrance, where they were supposed to be on guard. Dong-hun now faces the beaten B-rank betrayer, who has no escape, and begs pitifully for mercy. The elder believes it was an easy victory that provided useful experience. He predicts the real struggle will come if Dong-hun must fight the watching assassin. He also suspects Dong-hun is overestimating himself, because he'll need every bit of strength to topple such a formidable foe. With firm resolve, Dong-hun says he has already staked everything on this. Then he orders Boniwan and abruptly senses someone approaching from the distance. The elder voices concern that someone as powerful as the assassin has just entered the dungeon. He scolds Dong-hun for not preparing better in advance. Dong-hun admits he has no specific plan for this scenario. He's in trouble and unlikely to escape. Feeling like a feeble hunter, he regrets overestimating his own gamble. Dong-hun's confidence falters as the B-rank betrayer mocks him, noting he has no real shot. After all, More than one shadow lurker showed up. Dong-hun is scared and considers fleeing, though it seems pointless. However, the second assassin actually arrived to tell his comrade that Ji Soyul suddenly showed up at the dungeon entrance. Dong-hun is completely stunned by this news. He takes a moment to grasp that Ji Soyul might have come to help him, but it seems illogical. Still, the assassins must depart at once because they can't defeat Ji Soyul if she finds them. With that said, they vanish, leaving the B-rank leader in utter hopelessness. As he desperately calls for his brother, Dong-hun is pleased, having never expected them to flee so quickly. Ji Soyul remains at the dungeon's entrance, wondering if she should actually proceed. She tracked Dong-hun through the Parang Guild's connections but feels uneasy about whether she's doing the right thing. She recalled Dong-hun's promise to explain everything when the moment was right. So, rather than entering the dungeon, she chooses to wait and observe. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, those traitors are being severely beaten. They're being smacked around relentlessly. Their leader is desperate to survive and focuses on the porters, willing to sacrifice anything for his own safety. Dong-hun notices he's planning something else, because he can't win in a head-on fight. That's why he's aiming for the porters. Dong-hun alerts his skeleton to strike before the man can execute his plan. They attack immediately. The skeleton chops off the man's arm in one swift move, showing no mercy. Dong-hun reasons he wouldn't have been spared if the roles were reversed, so he sees no reason to show mercy to the traitor who now begs before him. He feels the same way about the others in that group. In hopeless anger, the man hurls insults at Dong-hun and attempts a desperate tackle against him. Sensing danger, the skeleton slices off his leg, disabling his movement and forcing him to endure more agony. Dong-hun remains emotionless before the man, who pounds the ground in rage, regretting how it all ended up. Dong-hun steps closer, reminding the traitor that he was the one who betrayed him, not the other way around. Out of choice as the B-rank hunter pleads for a quick death, but Dong-hun has a grim scene in store for him. He calmly states the man will not have an easy death, no matter how much he begs. The sobbing man implores Dong-hun to end his life, but Dong-hun's skeleton merely seizes his arm and drags him away toward the temple area. He is thrown onto the altar meant for sacrifices. Another B-ranked hunter meets the same fate, as living challengers are required to face the boss. He curses Dong-hun while the final conditions for sacrifice are finally met. If not for this turn of events, Dong-hun would have chosen to leave the dungeon uncompleted, but after the treachery he endured, he is prepared to deliver the punishment they merit. The altar takes the two living sacrifices. Dong-hun intends to avenge himself against those who turned on him. Now that the requirements are complete, the seal is lifted. The hunters' bodies, offered as sacrifices, vanish completely. In spite of their betrayal, Dong-hun hopes they might have better fates if they're reborn. He wonders why Ji Soyul is taking so long to appear, because just the mention of her made the assassins leave. Without her, he would already be dead, so he's grateful she showed up. Facing even one S-rank fighter seemed impossible. Facing two would have been twice as hopeless. Dong-hun himself might have ended up as the sacrifice. The earth shakes now that the sacrifices have been completed, and the ancient Scorpion King is released when the gate opens. Its raw fury terrifies the porters, and even startles the skeleton summons. Their abilities are automatically reduced by a considerable 20%. Dong-hun realizes this next fight will be brutal. One porter nervously asks if they will survive. Dong-hun admits he's unsure but believes this is still preferable to facing the shadow lurkers. The porters concur. Meanwhile, Dong-hun pauses to collect himself, trusting his training will help, while his nagging master jokes, asking if he wants help defeating the boss. The elder says his pupil deserves to fail if he can't beat such a boss. Dong-hun is irritated by this criticism, as the elder departs, leaving Dong-hun even more distressed. The elder's skill duration has ended, much to Dong-hun's frustration. Worse yet, he spots the furious giant scorpion charging straight at him. He understands he must fight the scorpion alone without any outside assistance. Dong-hun notices the incoming attack from below and instructs the mage skeleton to cast another air shield. He orders the others to spread out and get ready to fight. Protecting himself, Dong-hun stands behind the shield-wielding skeleton, while the archer's skeleton takes careful aim. The enormous scorpion bursts from underground, towering over them. It surprises Dong-hun by ignoring him and striking at the other skeletons, proving the boss has some intelligence. At first glance, the giant scorpion appears similar to its lesser kin. The creature roars. Dong-hun commands Bonehead 4 to engage. That skeleton employs a taunt to make the boss focus solely on it. The Scorpion King switches its assault toward the shield-bearing skeleton, charging at full speed in a furious rush. The blow lands, but Bonehead 4 manages to block. This startles Dong-hun with the skeleton's toughness. This opening lets Dong-hun launch his counterattack. He quickly considers his choices and orders every skeleton to attack together. Without pause, they lunge forward to assault the monster. Arrows pierce its carapace, and flames engulf its body. The sword and spear skeletons repeatedly stab at the beast. Dong-hun isn't trying to find a weak spot, confident that nothing could withstand their sheer numbers. or so he believes. However, the scorpion reacts swiftly, using its potent stinger to strike multiple skeletons at once, knocking them back. Though overcoming the monster looks daunting, Dong-hoon is relieved his summons can still land some hits. He sees the Scorpion King's wounds, proof they are harming it. Dong-hoon commands them to fight relentlessly, even if it costs them their existences. And he checks his remaining energy and decides 50 points should suffice to defeat the boss. Dong-hoon feels certain he can repeatedly summon them, making his skeletal forces practically endless here. When one skeleton is destroyed, almost immediately, Dong-hoon resummons it, consuming 10 energy points, leaving only a limited supply remaining. The Scorpion King faces a renewed wave of skeleton assaults. Bonehead 1 and 2 strike first. The sword skeleton skillfully severs its stinger with a decisive slash. With the scorpion's prize tail gone, the other undead leap onto it to deliver vicious strikes, piercing its shell. So far, so good for Dong-hoon's side. Dong-hoon manages to defeat the boss monster on his own, but he's utterly drained. After numerous summons, he's down to just 10 energy points. If the Scorpion King had been tougher, the outcome could have tipped against him. Nevertheless, all his skeletons gain solid buffs, raising their levels after clearing the stage, and improving their stats and abilities. Dong-hoon is happy to have gained so much from this. He then receives a system alert to claim the Scorpion King's venom gland. Since it's a valuable item, he accepts it without hesitation. Dong-hoon joyfully agrees while the object forms in his hand. Inspecting it, he wonders if it's just a basic crafting material. The system clarifies that the creature's venom lies within the gland. In fact, it holds 20 types of poison for forging gear or learning skills. Suddenly, one skeleton signals its master. Bonehead 3 responds to the venom gland, triggering a hidden condition in the system. Dong-hoon gains the ability to create poison arrows, thanks to the new material. He never imagined unlocking a skill simply by meeting special requirements. Now he sees why the Dark Lord appreciates dungeons. Their item drops can be extremely rewarding. Dong-hoon promptly adopts the poisoned arrow skill, boosting Bonehead 3's abilities even more, since that skeleton acquires the skill on his behalf. With the monster defeated, the desert stage is fully cleared, and a system promises Dong-hoon a completion reward. Dong-hoon is suddenly transported, just outside the dungeon's entrance, confirming their successful conquest. The porters celebrate excitedly, grateful they survived, all thanks to this so-called lousy necromancer. Dong-hoon is pleased for them, and warns them not to pick jobs solely based on payment. After exchanging farewells, they depart. And with that resolve, Dong-hoon eagerly examines the dungeon's reward in his possession. The system informs him he has obtained another rare item called the Trace of the Desert. Dong-hoon inspects the object in his hand. Noticing it, materializes into a golden key. More details about this key are shared. It can unlock the dungeon known as Ancient Desert, and it is also bound to Dong-hoon. He wonders if it might be a linked dungeon. Although he wants someone to explain things, there is nobody nearby, except Ji Soyul, who suddenly appears to greet him. She says she was eager for his explanation since he is already exploring dungeons. She also worried he might keep dodging her forever. He is extremely anxious, and even his skeletons notice it. He debates whether telling the truth is best here, or if he should invent a false story. But the danger is that she might sense his lies. Dark Empress Ji Soyul is the last person he wants as an enemy, so he simply accepts his fate and decides it is best to confess everything. He also reminds himself that he is a novice hunter, without many advantages. Forming a bond with one of the top rankers might benefit him in every way. With a sigh, Dong-hoon decides to come clean. He remembers her interest in how he cleared the dungeon and the reward he gained. Dong-hoon is ready to reveal it all on one condition. Ji Soyul listens closely, until he asks her to protect him until he grows stronger. She finds it odd and asks if he owes a debt. Dong-hoon says he merely has a group of troublemakers pursuing him. She inquires about the second part of his request. Being new, he has much to learn, so he wants her guidance, beginning with the key he is holding. Seeing it, Ji Soyul is startled and asks if that object is a medium. Naturally, Dong-hoon does not understand, but he hopes it is valuable enough to catch a strong ranker's interest. Ji Soyul realizes he obtained that dungeon's exclusive drop, and she even calls him a fortunate man. She explains that the odds of discovering such a rare item in an ordinary dungeon are almost zero. Only one exists in the whole world, and it is bound to its finder, meaning it can never be traded. Still confused, Dong-hoon stares at her and questions its purpose. Ji Soyul explains that such mediums are special chances for advancement. They trigger linked quests that can escalate in difficulty, potentially reaching higher ranks, resulting in many special rewards. Hearing the words sprung shocks Dong-hoon. Ji Soyul mentions that even top rankers like her actively seek items like that. Her expression turns sad, revealing her regret. She eventually agrees to both conditions, which thrills Dong-hoon. At the same time, she imposes one condition of her own. The scene shifts as Ji Soyul and Dong-hoon return to his room. She is somewhat unimpressed by his poor living conditions. Noticing the piles of instant noodles on his table, Dong-hoon feels embarrassed, but Ji Soyul insists on staying near him due to their deal. Ji Soyul says she found no surveillance devices while checking the area. She also senses no strong hunter in the building, increasing his security. Dong-hoon is impressed by her thorough inspection. She is pleased to confirm where he lives and intends to remain on the rooftop for now, as Ji Soyul departs, telling him to let her know before the next training session. Now stepping back to what took place during their conversation. Ji Soyul's condition was that she would oversee Dong-hoon's training, because she has noticed his energy ever since he cleared that dungeon and sees he is steadily growing stronger. It piqued her curiosity and she wants to know what triggered his rapid improvement. Returning to his room, Dong-hoon thinks about how he disclosed all details of the special chance, meaning he told her about the old man with white hair, who is now pushing him through intense varied training. Only one problem remains: the fearsome shadow lurkers who will surely come looking for their vanished target. But Dong-hoon is ready to give them a harsh fight when they appear. The next day, the old man strikes his body with fierce, punishing blows. Dong-hoon must endure this harsh training, while the elder says his body is gradually adapting, which means they must raise the intensity even more. Poor guy suffers greatly and accuses his master of outright beating him. The elder rebukes him for insulting his grand technique and disrespecting it. Overcome by fear, Dong-hoon realizes he seriously messed up and provoked the old man's anger. The elder continues pounding him as he cries out in pain, while Ji Soyul looks on. His system announces that his pain-resistant skill has leveled up. His battered body collapses in front of Ji Soyul, who remains unexpectedly calm. She explains that even after witnessing his training, she truly cannot grasp its goal. She finds his routine perplexing. Despite his attempts to clarify, Dong-hoon says Ji Soyul should not be able to see the old man at all. She also cannot join the training because it is so unusual. The elder orders his frail student to stand up, since they still have 30 minutes of training left. He feels defeated, yet knows he has no excuse to dodge the master's fury. As for the skeletons, Boney 2 trained yesterday, letting Boney 3 take over. The skeletons steadily grow stronger each day. The issue is that the more they improve, the more Dong-hoon must learn on their behalf. So when he opens his status window, he sees all his stats. He is pleased with these improvements and feels content. Boney 1's skill, Boney 2's thrust, Boney 3's shot, and Boney 4's block. He has learned all of their skills except for the mage, Boney 5. To acquire that skill, Dong-hoon must first sense and harness chi in his body. The elder draws a circle on the ground and tells him to sit cross-legged. Dong-hoon complies and waits for more guidance. The elder instructs him to repeat the Great Blue Heart formula they used before. He is also told to concentrate while reciting it, letting the formless energy circulate. So he closes his eyes and intensifies his focus. Dong-hoon repeats the formula in his mind. The elder notes that the breathing aspect might be the most crucial part of the technique. After all, if he cannot feel chi, he will keep enduring the elder's beatings. Realizing the danger, he deepens his focus. During meditation, Dong-hoon longs to grow stronger and is ready to withstand any hardship. The scene shifts to Ji Soyul, who looks around the rooftop. She questions if he truly became the disciple of the old man with white hair, the very master who easily overpowered her many times. She recalls his severe comments. Ji Soyul thinks that the special chance must be why. Yet the real cause of Dong-hoon's power is his ability to withstand daily painful training to the point his bones shift. She recognizes his talent and concludes she has no option but to watch him. After all, the elder she once fought is constantly at his side. Ji Soyul feels a new spark of hope, thinking she might grow stronger simply by observing his practice. Meanwhile, Dong-hoon is currently resting, as Ji Soyul wonders how much more he will develop. Now we shift to the villains and move to their headquarters. The shadow lurkers have found out that Ji Soyul's interference ruined their last mission, so they now require extra backup. Their leader notes they already have strained ties with the Parang Guild. He is Nick Jae-kan, called the Hellhound, and is ranked among the world's top fighters. His subordinate apologizes for failing the mission even before Ji Soyul stepped in. Nick Jae-kan questions whether this opportunity can really let him dominate the hunters. The rank assassin confirms that Dong-hoon's case is intriguing enough to attract Ji Soyul's notice. Nick Jae-kan agrees that it is indeed fascinating and snaps his fingers, summoning his secretary. He hears they are busy for the next month and requests Dong-hoon's rank. Upon discovering he is only a novice, Nick Jae-kan believes dealing with him will be no problem. He plans to face Dong-hoon personally in a month. Meanwhile, that struggling necromancer keeps up his daily training. As Ji Solo watches him, Dong-hoon collapses after 40 repetitions. Ji Soyul calls his name and moves closer to him, saying she has an important matter to discuss with him. Ji Soyul stands in a quiet clearing, partly hidden by her dark hair. She calmly faces Yu Dong-hoon and says she has something important to share. Her voice is firm, matching the stillness around them, hinting serious news is coming. Ju, Dong-hoon grips his skull-topped staff, startled by Ji Soyul's sudden declaration. He recalls her vow to guard him from danger, feeling gratitude and concern. The forest air grows tense. suggesting her words might signal a change in his path. Night blankets a rooftop as clouds swirl beneath the moon's light. Ju Soyul stands there, recalling her promise to protect Ju Donghun until his power grows. Her gaze suggests she must decide how to help him face looming dangers ahead. Back in the forest clearing, Donghun laughs, thanking Ji Soyul for staying close. Uncertainty weighs on him, yet he senses her words carry weight. Determined to learn more, he braces himself for whatever big news she is about to share. Donghun admits he never imagined constant watch. Ji Soyul stands tall, arms crossed, explaining that protecting him demands vigilance. Her stance reveals she's prepared to face any threat. Despite his discomfort, Donghun understands how serious she is about his safety. He reminds her she is a top ranker with responsibilities. She counters that is why she must talk to him now. The tension grows as she suggests her schedule demands major changes, and Donghun's training cannot continue like this forever. Ji Soyul reveals she has watched him constantly for 2 weeks, neglecting her guild tasks. She warns she can no longer delay them. Her expression suggests events are pushing her hand, forcing a new plan for his future and protection. She raises 2 fingers, announcing he must choose between 2 urgent options. 1. Follow her for 6 hours of missions. 2. Use the golden key from his desert dungeon. The forest seems to hold its breath, awaiting his important answer. Ji Soyul elaborates. If he chooses the first path, he'll shadow her on a tough assignment. If he chooses the second, he'll activate that truly special medium. Donghun stares in surprise, almost forgetting the key's existence until this very moment. Donghun's eyes widen as he recalls the golden key's power. He marvels that he nearly overlooked it. Memories of his desert dungeon victory resurface. The possibility of another personal breakthrough sends waves of excitement mixed with anxiety through his mind. A glowing swirl of green light forms around Donghun's hand as the system identifies his item. Trace of the ancient desert, rank B, medium. The eerie radiance suggests hidden depths, beckoning him toward a challenge he once never thought possible. Another translucent window describes its purpose, unlocking a solo dungeon called Ancient Desert. Bound solely to Ju Donghun, this key hovers like a promise of both risk and reward. Its golden sheen seems to encourage him to seize his destiny. Ji Soyul explains that mediums force a solo challenge, shielding him from outside interference. She suggests it might be safer than staying exposed by her side. Pointing at the key, she hints threats can't reach him inside this sealed dungeon. Donghun examines the B-rank label, worried a solo mission could be too dangerous. Yet excitement flickers in his eyes. He realizes he's no longer that weak necromancer stuck summoning skeletons. Perhaps his new strength can match this big unforeseen test. A smile spreads on Ji Soyul's face, reflecting confidence in Donghun's hidden talent. Her gaze reassures him that she believes in his progress. In her eyes, he's grown more than he realizes, and she's ready to see him prove it. She explains the dungeon isn't as hazardous as he fears, reminding him of his recent achievements. Donghun straightens with surprise, realizing how far he's come. A determination warms his heart, hinting that he might be prepared for tougher challenges now. A wooden sword lies on the grass, symbolizing practice sessions. Ji Soyul insists this solo dungeon is the ideal test for Donghun's enhanced powers. Her voice echoes across the clearing, urging him to face what awaits beyond his comfort zone. She smiles and asserts he can conquer a B-rank dungeon alone. Light filters through the trees, highlighting her confidence in him. Donghun's spirits lift, surprised at her encouragement banishes his doubts. Hope swells, urging him to trust his evolving abilities. Donghun's eyes widen in disbelief, stunned that a top ranker praises him. He recalls the pity and scorn he endured as an ER rank. This moment feels surreal, like a spark lighting his self-worth. His heart races with a newfound determination. In his mind, he pictures himself cloaked in shadows, holding his skull-topped staff. His curse once defined him as a mere skeleton summoner. Now, a stirring resolve deep within suggests he might transcend past limits and become something far greater. He recalls his old E-rank badge, once symbolizing weakness and ridicule. Suspended in dark memories, it reminds him of endless doubt from mercenaries and clients alike. That token overshadowed his hopes, keeping him trapped in everyone's low expectations for years. Yet Ji Soyul's gentle smile now dissolves that old bitterness. For the first time, someone recognizes his worth. Her gaze seems to unlock confidence he never felt. He starts to believe he can rise above the label others gave him. Donghun tightens his grip on the golden key, feeling renewed determination stir inside. A gleam dances across its surface, reflecting his sharpened resolve. He remembers his hard-fought battles, and how each victory shaped him. This time, he welcomes the challenge. Smiling, he announces his choice. He'll enter the ancient desert alone. Gone is the timid E-rank mercenary. Clutching the key close, he thanks Ji Soyul for believing in him. With newfound confidence, he sets his sights on becoming a powerhouse. Under the morning sun, Ju Donghun meets Ji Soyul in a forest clearing. She says she knew he'd leave soon and asks if he's going now. He has just finished training and decides there's no reason to wait any longer. Ji Soyul calmly explains how to activate the B rank key, trace of the ancient desert. She tells Dong-hun to infuse his energy into the ornate key. Her eyes show mild concern, yet she believes in his determination to enter alone. Dong-hun nods, gripping the key with renewed resolve. The bright sky reflects his excitement. Ji Soyul watches closely, sensing both potential and danger. He stands, poised at the edge of a new challenge, ready to prove his evolving necromancer skills. A sudden flash of golden light envelops his hand as he channels mana into the key. Radiance spills over, momentarily outshining the forest around them. This signals the entrance to the ancient desert, where his solo adventure will officially begin. A floating system screen appears, asking if he wishes to activate Trace of the Ancient Desert. Another prompt confirms opening is possible. Dong-hun reads each glowing word, feeling a rush of excitement. He silently braces for the next big challenge. A warning note flares, this is a solo dungeon. Ji Soyul observes from a safe distance, swirling magic isolating Dong-hun. She wants to help but cannot enter. He stands alone, looking calm yet aware that he must rely on himself. Golden energy swirls around Dong-hun's face, revealing his eager grin. He promises Ji Soyul he'll return safely. The key's aura reflects both excitement and the lurking peril. Undeterred, he displays quiet bravery, stepping toward his first true solo challenge today. Ji Soyul smiles softly as the light intensifies. She trusts Dong-hun's resolve but can't ignore her concern. Surrounded by rustling leaves, she watches him vanish into the portal. Her silent hope is that his newfound power will see him home. Blazing golden magic engulfs Dong-hun entirely, transitioning him to the ancient desert. His expression is confident, eyes shining with eagerness. The forest fades away, replaced by bright emptiness. He steels himself, ready for whatever dangers await in this unfamiliar land. When the light subsides, he stands on scorching sand beneath a blazing sun. Surprise flickers across his face at the sudden heat. Unsure of the next step, he surveys his surroundings, aware that the pyramid must be near. He exhales. A glowing panel appears, confirming his successful entry into the ancient desert and detecting a pyramid. This floating notice pulses with strange energy, hinting at secrets to uncover. Dong-hun reads intently, mindful that a powerful dungeon boss could lie ahead. He spots the towering pyramid, its stone walls scorched by time and sand. Rays of sunlight glint off worn carvings. He whispers its name, realizing these massive ruins hide untold perils. Still, a surge of determination boldly pushes him forward. He channels purple necromantic energy through his staff, triggering Summon Awakened Skeleton, D rank. Shadows converge around him, forming a faint glowing skull. Each swirl of mist indicates his power, calling forth an undead ally to aid him in this place. In one sweeping motion, Dong-hun summons several skeletons. Their hollow eyes glow softly, each bearing basic weaponry. Purple mist coils around him, emphasizing his command. Though D rank, these undead stand ready, following their master toward the vast pyramid entrance. Rather than rush, Dong-hun steps carefully across the sand. He assumes the pyramid's interior hides deadly traps. Cloaked in black, he advances through a carved archway, skeletons clattering at his heels. His heart pounds, sensing the deep, unpredictable danger within. Glancing back, Dong-hun wipes sweat from his brow, telling his undead minions to maintain formation. Their bones rattle in agreement, each skeleton aware of its duty. He knows a single misstep could be fatal, yet he refuses to retreat, ever. One skeleton, its single purple eye glowing, swivels its skull with a creak. Blazing sunlight glints off its bleached bones, reflecting unwavering devotion. Though D rank, it stands firm beside Dong-hun, prepared to guard him against whatever lurks in this domain. Dong-hun acknowledges their lower rank, yet he smiles slightly. Statistics alone won't decide their fate. He trusts ingenuity and caution can help overcome a B-rank dungeon. Despite being outmatched on paper, he refuses to surrender to doubt or fear ever. Kneeling, he presses a gloved hand against the hot sand, reminding himself that a reckless charge could prove disastrous. Carefully studying the environment, he plans to exploit any small advantage. Confidence alone won't suffice, so he readies his cunning strategies. Dark energy swirls at the pyramid entrance, and Dong-hun leads his skeletons inside. Long shadows stretch around them, hinting at hidden traps. Sunlight fades behind him, replaced by echoing corridors. He steels himself, prepared to face the unknown in darkness. Venturing deeper, he feels a chill in the stale air. The walls press close, and footsteps echo strangely. Skeletons shuffle in tight formation, their hollow eyes scanning every crevice. Dong-hun senses both excitement and dread as he tests his skills. Suddenly, he emerges back at the entrance, sunlight again on his face. Surprised, he remarks how effortless it seemed. Sweat beads on his brow, unsure if they missed something. This unexpected loop makes him wonder if the real trial lies hidden. A bright system prompt appears, revealing a special connection between his necromancer powers and the pyramid's shifting depths. Dong-hoon frowns, intrigued. Could the dungeon be reacting to his summoning magic? The lingering text implies unseen forces are reshaping obstacles around him. In a flash, a second notification warns the dungeon is changing, sealing its exit. Dong-hoon's eyes widen. Purple streaks of energy ripple along the walls, confirming escape is impossible now. He realizes the easy path before was merely a deceptive illusion. Inside a dim chamber, he watches the entrance vanish behind swirling shadows. Two skeletons stand watch, their rattling bones echoing his own anxiety. Dong-hoon's heart pounds as he comprehends the pyramid's shifting nature. Every corridor here can warp at any moment. A fierce rumble shakes the floor. Stones grind overhead, as if massive gears shift unseen. Dong-hoon steadies himself against a wall, alert for traps. The skeletons brace their weapons, uncertain if the quake signals approaching monsters or another spatial distortion. Blue mist sweeps through the corridor, forcing Dong-hoon to stumble. One skeleton intercepts a sudden attack with its shield, metal clashing. Dong-hoon regains his footing, straining to identify the hidden enemy. He grips his staff, determined not to fall again. Unseen shapes dart through the haze, causing startled cries among the skeletons. They form a defensive circle, raising swords and shields in unison. Dong-hoon urges them to hold tight, preparing spells to push back whatever malevolent force lurks in this darkness. Weakened, Dong-hoon collapses onto the cold floor, groaning in pain. Strange figures lurk beyond the faint light. His confidence fades as he recalls his earlier bravado. Sweat dripping, he musters resolve, knowing he can't let this place break his spirit. He pushes himself upright, breath ragged. Admitting he never expected such harsh conditions, he glances around the gloomy chamber. His mind replays his confident entrance. Yet here he is, bruised and cornered, still clinging to the hope of victory. Mustering strength, he calls for Boni 3. The skeleton steps forward with a rattling nod, its glowing eyes locked on Dong-hoon. Though undead, it conveys loyalty through each purposeful motion. Dong-hoon appreciates this unwavering support in an otherwise hostile maze. Steadying his breathing, he decides to scout the area before rushing ahead. His fist tightens, grateful these skeletal allies remain intact. The echoes of his voice fade into the corridor as he vows to outmaneuver every trick the pyramid conceals. A sudden burst of brilliant blue light erupts from a skeleton, illuminating towering pillars. Dong-hoon shields his eyes from this unexpected radiance. Their once shadowy path becomes visible, revealing deep corridors that stretch in every direction. He exhales relief at this advantage. Floating text reveals Bonehead 3, used secure vision, level 6, creating a glowing orb overhead. Dong-hoon marvels at this skill, grateful for the improved visibility. With the darkness receding, hope stirs that they can navigate the shifting halls more confidently. Peering into the blue glow, Dong-hoon spots a wide chamber up ahead. Smooth pillars line the route, seeming to promise either safety or another trap. He steels himself, suspecting that beyond these pillars, they might find essential clues or a path. Yet, doubts plague him with every echoing step. The pyramid's shifting design could hide countless horrors. Even with newfound light, he questions if they're walking into greater danger. Still, he presses on, committed to unraveling the mysteries haunting these ancient corridors. He hesitates briefly, head bowed. Realizing there's no turning back, he murmurs he must move forward. The skeletons clatter behind him, offering silent reassurance. He can only hope caution and teamwork suffice against the pyramid's relentless, ever-shifting tests of skill. A swirling vortex of blue energy lights the towering walls. The brightness intensifies, unveiling carved columns and ancient symbols. Dong-hoon raises an arm to shield himself, astonished by this sudden surge. Whatever triggered it seems entwined with his necromancer power. Blinking, he feels the cool glow against his face, realizing the dungeon is reacting to him personally. Mysterious power resonates with his aura, as though inviting him deeper. Nervous anticipation fills him, unsure whether this link means salvation or peril. A system window announces, "Resentment of the Sunspear." Lines of skeletal warriors appear, each weapon ready. Their silent vigil suggests a grand trial awaits. Dong-hoon's heart pounds, sensing this confrontation might define his entire journey through the ancient desert. Text reveals the legendary Sunspear, supreme ruler of an ancient desert empire. Breaking through these trials could unlock incredible power. The swirling magic urges Dong-hoon onward, showing him spear-wielding undead. He wonders how such a fearsome relic remains sealed here. Dong-hoon's eyes widen at the rows of spears glinting under eerie blue light. The skeletal ranks look stronger than anything he has faced. Fear twists in his stomach, yet he won't retreat. Determination burns brighter, fueling his resolve to advance. Night rain drenches a desert city once scorched by sun. Buildings of sandstone glow under lightning while empty streets echo with thunder. The sudden downpour feels unnatural, as if warning everyone that something powerful has arrived, changing the city's hush forever. A hooded figure stands on a rooftop drenched by the storm. Their hunched posture and feathered wings suggest a hidden power. A low growl escapes, mixing with thunder's rumble. Shadows twist, hinting at a dangerous presence behind the darkness. The figure's wings slice the air, scattering dark feathers through the rain. Each feather glimmers with eerie energy as if charged by unseen magic. Lightning flashes reveal the storm recoiling from this power. Tension rises, warning of a violent confrontation to come. Below, a guard shouts hateful words at the winged stranger, calling them a monster. His voice trembles with fear as rain soaks his uniform. He grips his weapon tightly, desperate to stand firm against this unknown threat towering above him. A crowd gathers, shouting that the half-breed figure doesn't belong in their city. Rain streams over angry faces, twisted by hatred. Their voices echo in narrow alleys, cutting like knives into the stormy night, determined to drive the stranger away. The figure clutches a staff, recalling how people tried to harm them from birth. A crimson aura ripples on the ground, sparked by old wounds. Memories swirl of countless attempts to cut them down, fueled by deep prejudice and cruelty. In the heart of the storm, the hooded youth stands, battered but unyielding. Black wings spread behind them, sparks of red dancing in the rain. Despite bruises and exhaustion, their gaze is steady, refusing to bow before the city's violent rejection. A close-up reveals bruises and scarred features. Dark hollows replace the youth's eyes, stolen by cruelty long ago. Raindrops trickle down their face, mixing with traces of blood. Yet an unwavering resolve shines through, challenging anyone who dares condemn them again. A bald attacker sprints across the flooded street, knife raised. He roars for the youth to die, thunder rumbling overhead like a war drum. The storm intensifies, matching his fury, as he aims to finish what the mob started. In one swift motion, the youth deflects the attacker's blade, knocking him off balance. Rain splashes around their feet as they pivot with surprising speed. Stunned, the man realizes his target's strength, glimpsing the fierce will that drives this opponent. Suddenly, crimson energy flares from the youth's weapon, shaping into a sharp spear. Raindrops glow red as they pass through the crackling aura. The attacker hesitates, recognizing power beyond ordinary human limits, its force intense enough to reshape reality. The attacker crashes onto the muddy ground, gasping in pain. The hooded youth stands over him, spear alive with red light. Rain pours down in sheets, reflecting in the wounded man's frightened eyes. Unshaken, the youth claims victory, refusing oppression. Fallen attackers now litter the deserted square. Broken crates and steps glisten under the relentless rain, silent witnesses to the fierce struggle. The winged youth surveys the scene, wings partially unfurled, as if daring anyone else to challenge their resolve. Bruised and exhausted, the youth looks skyward, recalling every time people tried to steal their dignity. Rain drips from their chin, mixing with memories of hatred. A decision grows. If the world attacks them, they will no longer stand idle. A step sends ripples across a puddle, marking a turning point in the youth's life. Thunder roars overhead, echoing the resolve surging in their chest. No longer will they flee, they choose to defend what is rightfully theirs. They remember how everyone tried to rob them of safety and hope. Now, they vow to seize strength from a world that denied them. Wings spread wide, the youth turns away from foes, prepared to fight for a future without fear. Deep within a hidden chamber, rows of undead skeletons stand in eerie blue light. Each clutches a gleaming spear, eyes glowing with pale brilliance. The silent legion waits in formation, ready for orders. Their presence promises a dangerous challenge for any intruder. Ju Dong-hun, silver-haired and anxious, sees this undead army surge forward. Sweat beads on his brow as he senses their overwhelming numbers. With staff in hand, he braces for battle, realizing these skeleton spearmen threaten his survival. A crimson warning message flashes in mid-air, declaring 100 D-rank ancient skeleton spearmen are closing in. The alarm blares like a siren, driving home the danger. Dong-hun's heart pounds, knowing he must quickly strategize or risk being overrun. Against the blue floor, the skeletons march in unison, spears raised. Their bony limbs move precisely. Dong-hun steadies himself, aware they outnumber him. He clenches his jaw, determined to face this legion with every skill he has learned. Dong-hun calls to Bony 4, who rushes forward with a shield. Spear strikes crash against it, sparks flying off the wood. The summoned skeleton braces against the assault, while Dong-hun stands behind, ready to guide the fight with careful strategy. He notices the open space leaves them exposed. Knowing they can't handle all foes at once, Dong-hun plans to lure the horde into a hallway. There, fewer spears can fit, letting him and his allies strike back without being overwhelmed. Dong-hun's face hardens with resolve. He'll force the skeletons into cramped quarters, eliminating them gradually. His mind races with possible tactics, each meant to protect Bony 4 and the other summoned allies who shield him from defeat. A rattling of bones heralds the skeleton legion's charge. They surge in a wave of flashing spears, aiming to overpower Donghoon's defense. Bony 4 holds the shield high, while Donghoon signals a careful retreat, hoping to funnel the undead into advantageous terrain. Spear tips slam into Bony 4's shield, shaking the corridor. Shards of wood fly, and the summoned skeleton fights to stay upright. Donghoon shouts encouragement, urging Bony 4 to hold on a bit longer while they move closer to safer ground. A swift enemy skeleton lunges, but another of Donghoon's allies counters, splintering its ribs. Bones scatter across the floor. Each strike demands focus as Donghoon's summoned skeletons push back with vigor, hoping to survive this relentless assault. A purple glow envelops one skeleton ally, its eyes blazing as it smashes another foe. Splintered bones hit the slick floor. Donghoon channels necromantic energy from afar, urging his forces to stand strong within the swirling chaos of battle. Sweat drips down Donghoon's face as he grips his skull-topped staff. Purple mist coils around him, revealing his worry. Though they hold off the undead for now, he senses they cannot last forever. Determined, he readies the next crucial move. Bony 4 blocks repeated spear thrusts from the D-rank skeleton spearmen, hits echoing in the corridor. Ju Donghoon stands behind, noticing the shield weakening. Tension grows as spears strike again and again, leaving Bony 4's defense on the verge of collapse. Amid towering pillars, Donghoon calls for his skeleton allies not to fight recklessly. He instructs them to retreat slowly, forming a safer line. The skeletons pull back with shields raised, while the D-rank spearmen press forward in the dimly lit hall. One skeleton skids across the stone floor, its glowing eyes filled with nervous energy. It clacks and clatters, trying to keep formation while enemy spears jab close. Their scraping echoes around the corridor, revealing how outnumbered these loyal minions are. A shield-bearing skeleton lunges forward, smashing an enemy's skull in a burst of blue-white light. Shards fly across the floor as the foe collapses. Although more attackers loom, this small triumph boosts everyone's spirits in the midst of chaos. Donghoon glances at Bony 4 and other skeletal allies, still standing behind battered shields. He offers a reassuring smile, trusting their teamwork. Even with enemies nearby, his steady gaze suggests a new plan, hinting the battle's pace is about to shift. Suddenly, a spear hurtles through the air toward Donghoon. He notices it at the last second, sweat forming on his forehead. Time slows as he braces for impact. The corridor's glow makes the danger clearer, raising tension for everyone watching. Donghoon's eyes sharpen with focus, banishing any hesitation. He knows just one misstep could be fatal. The corridor around him hums with tension, underscoring how carefully he must move. Each heartbeat feels heavier, reflecting the high stakes of this fight. With one sweeping motion, Donghoon uses his staff to knock the spear aside. A loud clang echoes through the stone halls, momentarily startling nearby foes. Strength surges among his skeleton defenders, who rally around him, ready to launch another counterattack. Bony, glowing purple in its eye sockets, lands a precise strike on a distracted foe as Donghoon cheers. Sparks flash where bone meets spear, revealing the power of teamwork. The corridor shudders with every blow, yet confidence grows among the defenders. Another skeleton's eyes blaze with crimson light, as if fueled by might. Its jaw clenches and a red glow spreads across the walls, hinting at an explosive power within. Everyone senses a dangerous change, bracing for whatever this energized ally will do. Lifting a bony arm high, the red-armed skeleton channels swirling flames overhead. Streams of fire gather into a glowing orb, casting bright shapes across the corridor. With a fierce motion, it launches a fireball spell, stunning enemies and allies alike. A pillar of flame erupts, roaring upward and shaking the corridor. The intense heat tosses skeletons aside, scattering embers across the stone floor. Bone fragments clatter in every direction, emphasizing the fire's destructive force. The battle momentarily halts amid swirling sparks. Fires fade, leaving burnt skeleton parts on the blue-tiled floor. Though some foes lie motionless, rows of spearmen still advance. Small flames flicker among the wreckage, casting uneasy shadows. The corridor feels grim, hinting the fight is far from over. A skeleton's foot rises, framed by streaks of motion. Nearby skulls lie shattered, showing the nature of these battles. Silence hangs in the air, broken by the scrape of bones. This tense moment promises a brutal finishing blow on a fallen enemy. That raised foot crashes down, crushing the enemy's skull with a resounding crack. Bone shards spray across the corridor, leaving no chance of resurrection. The triumphant skeleton remains poised, as if declaring it will defend this ground at any cost. From above, more enemy skeleton spearmen flood the area in neat rows. Fires still burn amid scattered bones, providing flickering light. Their hollow eye sockets stare ahead, showing no fear or remorse. Danger marches closer to Donghoon's position. Donghoon surveys the scene, noting he's still severely outnumbered. His skeleton allies gather around him, battered but unbroken. Despite his deep sigh, he maintains a determined gaze. Clearly, he'll keep fighting, no matter how many foes stand in his path. With sweat beading on his forehead, Dong-hun flashes a confident smirk. He challenges the marching foes, gripping his staff tightly. Though danger grows, he seems playful, as though daring them to try. His unwavering stance hints at stubborn resolve beneath the fatigue. A swarm of skeleton spearmen charges forward, spears clacking in unison. Bony foreign shield-bearers brace themselves, forming a meager defensive wall. The corridor rings with the sound of bone and metal. Dong-hun focuses on positioning his allies for one final stand. Spears crash into raised shields, creating ear-splitting clanks and bright sparks. Wood splinters scatter while the skeleton defenders hold their ground. Despite the enemy's relentless force, Dong-hun's formation refuses to budge. Each collision underscores their resolve to protect their summoner. In a flash of red, an enemy spear smashes into a shield skeleton, sending bone fragments spinning. Though damaged, the brave skeleton grips its weapon, refusing to fall. The corridor glows with crimson light, highlighting the ruthless power of these attacks. Dong-hun raises his staff high, releasing a bright purple aura from the skull at its tip. Vivid energy swirls around him like dancing ribbons. Everyone senses he's summoning more necromantic power, hoping to shift the battle's momentum in his favor. Text floats overhead, announcing Dong-hun's summon-awakened skeleton skill. Purple mist gathers, revealing a new D-rank fighter called Bonehead 4. It appears with a sturdy shield, ready to serve. Hope flickers among the weary forces, as bones may bolster their defense. Nearby skeleton allies clack in surprise, their glowing eyes widened. They watch Bonehead 4's arrival with excitement. This newcomer stands tall, suggesting a spark of renewed strength. Even as enemies press closer, the morale boost may help them hold on longer. Dong-hun vows that if his spear breaks, he'll find another and continue fighting. He clutches his staff firmly, determined to press on with his own methods. These words ring with courage, showing he won't let setbacks steal his resolve. He unleashes Pierce. Lunging forward with precision, the spear-like thrust hits an enemy skeleton, exploding bone fragments on impact. A brilliant flash lights the corridor. This display of technique impresses even his undead allies, who see new potential in his strength. When Dong-hun glances back, another wave of skeleton spearmen pours in, rattling their weapons. The corridor stretches endlessly, filled with bone soldiers who never tire. Despite his recent success, Dong-hun realizes the onslaught continues, testing whether he can keep pace with them. A strike catches Dong-hun off guard, making him stagger. Gritting his teeth, he holds his staff defensively, refusing to collapse. Though pain jolts him, determination burns in his gaze. Each wound fuels his resolve, reminding him that giving up isn't an option. Purple energy flares from Dong-hun's staff, blinding a skeleton as he demands its surrender. Flames dance nearby, reflecting his frustration. Other enemies topple under the flash, evening the odds. Despite exhaustion, he fights on, letting nothing overpower him. Once the skirmish quiets, Dong-hun doubles over, panting. Charred marks and smoke cling to his cloak, showing the fight's brutality. Though shaky, he refuses to drop his weapon. Every breath reminds him he must remain vigilant, because the danger isn't over. Suddenly, glowing text declares the sunspear has awakened inside this pyramid-like place. A tall skeleton stands among broken bones, its head cocked inquisitively. An unsettling aura surrounds it, hinting at immense power. Dong-hun senses a threatening pivotal enemy has appeared. New messages glow overhead, taunting Dong-hun as the sunspear questions his strength. Its hollow gaze seems to sneer, daring him to fight. Dong-hun scowls in disbelief, sweat on his brow. Even exhausted, he vows not to back down now. In a torchlit corridor, a skeleton rattles uncertainly. With glowing purple eyes, it wonders who the sunspear might be. Despite confusion, it stands beside its master, Dong-hun, prepared to press forward into the darkness, where looming danger surely awaits. Standing against a bright archway, silver-headed Dong-hun remembers conquering a dungeon. Darkness swirls at his feet as he grips his skull-topped staff. He once broke the will of a mighty enemy beyond any top fighter's power, fueling his boldness here. Long pillars line the corridor, flickering torches lighting a path through gloom. Sensing the mockery of the sunspear, Dong-hun signals Bony-4 forward. The walls echo with whispers of past battles, urging him toward hidden dangers deeper within the dungeon. Bony-4 lifts a shield while Dong-hun stands behind it. Other skeleton allies gather, weapons at the ready. Though anxious, Dong-hun draws courage from their loyalty. The blue glow in their eyes hints at unified resolve, pushing him to press onward. A sudden red alert shines before Dong-hun's eyes, proclaiming immediate peril. Its blazing letters reflect the dungeon's hostility, as if announcing a test awaits. The air grows tense, warning him of a threat bigger than anything he's faced so far. 100 D-rank skeleton spearmen appear, forming ranks in the corridor. Their hollow eyes glow, spears clutched tight. Footsteps pound in unison, echoing like a war drum. Dong-hun stands firm, breathing hard. This swarm might be his toughest challenge yet. Dong-hun frowns at the possibility of endless skeleton waves. He's already tired from past fights but refuses to show weakness. Determined to push on, he prepares new tactics. The corridor's flickering light reveals his sweat, a testament to the pressure. Leading the horde, a single spear-wielding skeleton strides forward with bright eyes. It raises its weapon as if daring Dong-hun to advance. The rattling of bones fills the corridor. Dong-hun steels himself, realizing this fight tests his skill and courage. Spears thrust from every angle, and Dong-hun slams his shield into the closest attackers. With his staff ready, he fends off bone fragments about. Realizing endless enemies lurk, he vows to charge forward, refusing to be trapped by their numbers. A barrage of spears collides with walls and shields, sending shards throughout the corridor. Dust swirls as each hit impacts. Skeleton allies stand around Dong-hun, protecting his flanks. The rhythm intensifies his urgency to swiftly break free and keep advancing. Dollenholm beckons Bony 4 to relinquish its shield, refusing to let his ally face every strike alone. He steps forward, committed to taking the brunt. His voice rings with care and resolve, vowing they'll survive whatever this dungeon hurls at them. Gripping the shield himself, Dong-hun braces for the onslaught. Spear after spear cracks against metal, leaving dents and fractures. Despite the shaking impact, he stands firm, protecting his loyal skeletons behind him. Every blow strengthens his resolve to push onward. Calling to Bony 4, Dong-hun orders a shield spell and commands the other skeletons to guard his sides. He realizes fighting every monster wastes time. If they combine magic and defense, he can dash ahead, trusting in teamwork for their survival. Eyes narrowed, Dong-hun declares they'll ignore lesser foes and run for the boss room. Staying here only drains his strength. Determined, he raises the shield again, promising he'll reach that final chamber or fall trying, rather than remain trapped in endless battles. A spear-wielding skeleton crackles with magical symbols, attempting to block Dong-hun's path. Its grin suggests confidence. Despite the threat, Dong-hun braces for one decisive sprint, shield held high. He gambles everything on this charge, ready to confront the sunspear ahead. Dong-hun slams his foot onto the glossy blue floor, scattering tiny stone fragments. A skeleton's bony leg echoes the impact, as if answering a silent call. Tension thickens, marking another perilous fight in this torchlit corridor. Up ahead, a group of skeleton warriors rushes forward with glowing spears. Towering pillars cast flickering shadows across the floor. Their synchronized clatter warns Dong-hun that time is short, urging him and his allies to brace for another wave of attacks. Dong-hun, out of breath, directs his summoned skeletons to stand firm. He tells them to persist, even if their limbs shatter. Exhaustion clouds his features, but a fierce spark remains in his eyes as he clutches his staff and readies for battle. A barrage of spears collides with Dong-hun's shield, sending sparks flying. He braces behind its dented surface while Bony 4 and the other skeleton allies form a defensive line. Every impact rattles his arms, but he refuses to retreat from the oncoming assault. Dong-hun's body trembles under the pressure of constant blows. Sweat drips down his face as he steadies the shield once more. Though his arms ache, he will not falter. The skeletons keep advancing, and he prepares to endure every hit they deliver. He surges forward, smashing the shield into multiple skeletons at once. Their brittle frames crack, scattering shards of bone across the polished floor. Driven by desperation, Dong-hun channels all his strength into each strike, hoping to carve a path towards safety. Dong-hun shouts in determination, forcing a thin gap in the enemy ranks. Skeletons topple left and right as he pushes through, guiding his undead allies forward. Every heartbeat feels urgent, reminding him there's no time to waste on lesser foes. A glowing message hovers mid-air, declaring that he must reach the Sunlands. Dong-hun wipes sweat from his brow, nodding at this sudden instruction. Even with exhaustion tugging at him, he has no choice but to pursue this vital objective. Dong-hun delivers a crushing blow that shatters a skeleton's ribcage, spraying fragmented bones. Its glowing eyes flicker out, signifying another small triumph. Each defeated foe seems to nudge him closer to the final confrontation awaiting, beyond this endless gauntlet. He gasps for air, reminding himself that simply touching the Sunlands could end this nightmare. Though every muscle screams, a flicker of hope remains. If he can just keep moving, maybe he can break the dungeon's cruel cycle. One loyal skeleton, eyes glowing purple, steps beside Dong-hun. Its stance offers protection and encouragement. Time presses on, making every heartbeat precious. With so many enemies closing in, they must act quickly or risk being overwhelmed by the undead swarm. Following commands from his skeleton allies, Dong-hun charges ahead. He breaks free of encircling enemies, their rattling bones echoing like thunder behind him. Though fear grips his heart, the call of the Sun Lance drives him forward into the dungeon's deeper shadows. Dong-hun's voice echoes as he shouts for everyone to keep running. Sweat streams down his face, but his eyes burn with urgency. He knows this final dash could determine whether he lives or falls victim to the dungeon's skeletal threats. His determination flares even though his body is trembling with exhaustion. He reminds himself they are nearly there and every second matters. The corridor stretches on, but Dong-hoon pushes aside doubt, relying on willpower to drive him closer to his goal. A sudden brilliance fills the hallway, almost blinding him. Its radiance pulses like a beacon, suggesting the legendary sun lance lies just ahead. Shielding his eyes, Dong-hoon braces himself, sensing this light holds the key to ending the dungeon's torment. An uneven tile catches Dong-hoon's foot, sending him crashing onto one knee. Pain shoots through his body as he grips the staff to stay upright. He grits his teeth, refusing to surrender. Even on the floor, his resolve to continue burns. A message materializes, mocking Dong-hoon's weakness and calling him unworthy. Surrounded by rows of armed skeletons, he stands battered but undeterred. The boss's scorn echoes through the corridor, challenging the young necromancer to prove his worth or perish in disgrace. Dong-hoon clutches the skull-topped staff, frustration evident on his face. He mutters that he's merely an E-ranked hunter, yet still won't yield. Defiance sparks in his eyes. No insult or threat can extinguish his resolve to challenge the dungeon's mightiest foe. As if answering the boss's taunts, more skeletons march in formation, their footfalls echoing against stone columns. The relentless scraping of bones intensifies the oppressive atmosphere. Each step signals renewed danger, closing the circle around Dong-hoon like a tightening snare. Amid the growing legion, Dong-hoon curses. Fear mingles with determination as he surveys the skeletal ranks. No matter the odds, he stands ready to prove his necromancy is not feeble. His shield rattles in hand, but his courage remains unwavering. From Dong-hoon's vantage point, squads of skeletons appear at the corridor's far end. Their weapons glint beneath torchlight, promising another brutal clash. Each pillar looms like a silent witness to endless battles. His heart pounds, but he refuses to back down. He grits his teeth as sweat drips from his temple, frustration mounting with each wave of enemies. The corridor twists ahead, offering no escape. Dong-hoon tightens his grip on the shield, accepting that he must stand against overwhelming odds. A skeleton lunges, scraping its weapon against Dong-hoon's shield with a deafening screech. Sparks dance in the flickering blue light. The creature's glowing eyes remain locked on him, exuding menace. Despite the jarring impact, Dong-hoon refuses to yield even an inch. A crushing strike from the side obliterates the attacking skeleton's skull in a burst of red energy. Bone fragments scatter across the floor and the creature collapses. For a moment, relief floods Dong-hoon, but countless undead threats still lurk nearby. Realizing he's exhausted to keep brawling, Dong-hoon hoists his staff and dashes down a corridor. Fighting might be suicide now, so he focuses on escaping before his strength fails. Each step is agony, but the need to survive overrides the pain. He sprints away, cursing the dungeon's cruelty under his breath. Skeletons lunge from the sides, but he evades them, heart pounding like a drum. With every ragged breath, he clings to the hope that he can still outpace this relentless horde. His vision blurs with swirling red and black images, each symbolizing frustration and dread. He refuses to stop, lungs burning as he flees deeper into the endless halls. Anger at the dungeon's cruelty mixes with determination to escape its grasp. After what feels like hours, Dong-hoon collapses behind a towering pillar, chest heaving for air. His entire body aches, but he has a moment to breathe. Surrounded by darkness, he steadies himself, knowing he must soon continue toward his ultimate goal. Peering past the pillar, Dong-hoon spots a giant mound of bones glinting under the faint blue torches. Confusion floods him. How could so many remains gather in one place? The eerie sight sends a chill through his exhausted frame. He realizes these scattered bones belong to the skeletons he's just fought, all piled in a towering heap. Shocked by the sheer number, Dong-hoon wonders if he's been fighting endless waves, only to circle back to their broken remains. A vivid memory flashes, shield strikes, spear thrusts, and shattered ribs. He sees himself battling again and again. The grim truth sinks in. He's run in circles. Each collision with the undead only brings him back to the same grisly aftermath. A glowing diagram appears in his mind, revealing a circular dungeon layout. Realizing the corridors loop endlessly, he clenches his fists. Though fatigue grips every muscle, he refuses to surrender. He must find an exit, or this will never end. Dong-hoon trembles at the thought of re-encountering the same enemies, no matter which path he takes. Perspiration lines his brow, and frustration gnaws at his spirit. Every route leads back to the same halls, forcing him to confront his worst fears repeatedly. He glances behind him, spotting yet another group of skeletons. Their empty eyes glow with cold light as they shuffle closer. No clear escape appears. So he tightens his cloak and braces himself for the next inevitable clash in this looping trap. One particularly fearsome skeleton steps forward, weapon raised menacingly. Its bony grin seems to taunt Dong-hoon's helplessness in this endless maze. Despite the fear creeping into his chest, he stands firm. determined to prove that giving up is not an option. Dong-hoon tightens his grip on the staff, torn between fighting or running. He wonders if there's a hidden trick to escaping this cycle. Anxiety grips him, but he steadies himself, understanding that hesitation now could lead to sudden defeat. He debates whether to launch another risky fight or collapse in surrender. Exhaustion fogs his mind and doubt tugs at him. Yet the skeleton's advance reminds him there's little time. He knows he must act or be overwhelmed by relentless attacks. A glowing panel shows his stamina at a dangerously low level. Only a handful of energy points remain, making each move precious. With so few options left, Dong-hoon steels himself, aware that one mistake could spell doom in this unforgiving place. Scattered around are nearly 30 hostile skeletons. Their sharp spears and unwavering gazes promise a brutal final stand. Dong-hoon's own skeleton allies hover behind him, ready but weary. The corridor's echoes hint that a single push might decide everyone's fate. Realizing surrender leads nowhere, Dong-hoon lifts his staff, voice quivering with resolve. Fear grips his heart, yet he refuses to yield. With one last rallying cry, he chooses to fight for a chance at freedom, determined to overcome the dungeon's endless loop. Dong-hoon, a silver-haired necromancer, stands in a torchlit corridor. He grips a skull-topped staff, calling Bony Four and other skeleton allies to block approaching foes. His eyes burn with resolve, determined to survive at any cost, despite his low hunter rank. A wave of glowing-eyed skeleton spearmen attacks from the darkness. Bony Four and the undead companions clash, bone against bone. Despite being outnumbered, Dong-hoon's summons hold firm. Their loyalty reflects his cautious guidance, proving even low-rank necromancers can lead fierce defenses. Dong-hoon surveys the corridor, sensing his energy fading fast. Still, he refuses to give up, convinced any small opening could secure victory. He signals his skeletons to hold positions. Determined, he quietly vows to seize every chance to push forward. Stepping over scattered bones, Dong-hoon reminds himself that his summons must keep enemies away. Each crunch underfoot echoes his resolve. Though exhaustion gnaws at him, he grips his staff tighter, believing hope still flickers somewhere hidden in this twisting maze. Bone heaps surround Dong-hoon as he gasps for air. He pushes through his fatigue, urging himself to stay sharp. Determined, he believes no dungeon is unbeatable if he remains calm. The silent corridor testifies to his countless battles fought here. Slowly, he stands upright, groaning at the strain on his body. Each step feels heavier than the last. Even so, he forces a brave front, reflecting on how fiercely he has fought. He declares this challenge will not break him. A glowing blue panel materializes, urging Dong-hoon to continue until he finds the sun lance. His heart leaps at the mention of this artifact, said to break the dungeon's curse. Eyes shining, he senses renewed hope fueling his weary body. High above, a swirling darkness looms, pulsing with energy. Dong-hoon wonders if the sun lance hides there, ready to be claimed. Though the portal's eerie glow unnerves him, he steadies his breath, determined to unravel its secrets and break free. The swirling vortex churns ominously. Dong-hoon's pulse quickens, suspecting this portal leads to the lance. A strange sound echoes from within, hinting at powerful forces. He clenches his jaw, deciding he must face these shadows, no matter the dangers beyond. Bone, sire, a loyal skeleton smashes a threat against a nearby pillar. Despite rattling bones, it fights fiercely to protect Dong-hoon. Watching this display of devotion, Dong-hoon feels hopeful. Even bones can rise to the challenge if guided by determined will. Dong-hoon signals Bonsaer for help, wanting to be launched higher. He hopes to glimpse what hides beyond the darkness. Voice trembling with nerves and excitement, he insists every ounce of strength is needed if they wish to reach the lance. A taunting voice echoes through the chamber, confirming the sun lance senses Dong-hoon's approach. Its mocking tone dares him to continue, scoffing at his rank. Despite the challenge, he vows no insult will halt him, determined to prove his worth. Perched on a mound of bones, Dong-hoon hears a threat from unseen depths, calling him foolish. He clutches his staff, unshaken by those words. Though the dungeon's aura crackles with menace, he stands firm, unwilling to retreat or show fear. He braces a foot on a sturdy crate, challenging the lurking foe. Defiance radiates from his posture, as if daring the voice to attack. Tension hangs in the air. Dong-hoon steels himself, resolved to find out whose power dominates here. In a swift motion, Dong-hoon leaps from the crate, cloak sweeping behind him. The skull-topped staff glints under flickering torchlight. Determined to meet the threat head-on, he ascends higher, ready to clash with anything lurking in that mysterious, darkness-filled ceiling. The swirling portal looms closer. Dong-hoon's heart pounds, certain he's nearing the final stage. Dark shapes twist within the vortex, beckoning him onward. Though uncertainty tightens his chest, he refuses to waver, prepared to reveal whatever secret lies hidden above. Suddenly, two red eyes flicker deep inside the dark swirl. An aura radiates from that void, and Dong-hoon shivers with unease. Still, he braces himself, sensing this is the dungeon's ultimate guardian. His journey now hinges on confronting that presence. Summoning every ounce of will, Dong-hun flings himself upward. Wind howls past him, and the floor becomes a distant blur. He aims for the vortex, believing this leap might lead to the Sunlance. The dungeon's walls tremble, echoing his ascent. A panel flares into view, declaring Dong-hun has reached the Sunlance's chamber. Relief and excitement surge within him. Could this finally free him from the dungeon's clutches? Heart pounding, he braces for whatever final test awaits in the shadows. An ancient spearman flickers, then dissolves in swirling motes. The dungeon's defenses seem to unravel as Dong-hun stands at the core. He exhales slowly, realizing the final barrier is gone. Now only the true fight against the Sunlance remains. A grin creeps across Dong-hun's face. Though drained, he senses victory close at hand. Sweat drips from his brow, a spark of triumph lights his eyes. He tells himself every risk was worth it. The moment of reckoning is near. He lunges toward the swirling gloom, hurling a challenge at the shape within. Determination fuels his words, demanding the hidden foe reveal itself. The darkness quivers in response. Dong-hun's voice fills the chamber, declaring he will not be denied answers. A red warning panel flashes, announcing the Sunland's appearance. Shock widens Dong-hun's eyes as adrenaline surges through him. He realizes the showdown has arrived. Any hesitation could mean doom, so he steadies himself, preparing for the confrontation he's chased. Gazing into the mass, Dong-hun glimpses a shifting figure within. Shadows coil around it, filling him with dread. Yet he stands tall, refusing to surrender. Every hardship has led here, and he's ready to prove his resolve against this threat. A golden panel glows overhead, declaring Dong-hun's skill. Memory, recollection. Eyes shut tight, he delves into forgotten knowledge, sweat beading on his brow. Energy crackles, colliding with shadows around him. This moment may unlock the means to defeat his foe. Suddenly, a golden screen appears, announcing an imminent teleport. Blinding light floods the area, swallowing Dong-hun and his allies. Unsure of where this gateway leads, he stands firm, trusting his newly awakened power. The final confrontation lies beyond this veil. A swirling gust of golden dust materializes in a sun-scorched arena. Towering clay structures loom in the background. A winged warrior, staff in hand, stands alert, as though bracing for a fierce battle under the scorching sun's relentless glare. The winged fighter steps forward, revealing plumage and a gear-topped staff embedded with a glowing jewel. Sand whips around his legs, while the desert wind stings his face. He seems ready to confront any threat lurking behind these silent walls. A closer view shows the warrior's stern expression, his staff's jewel pulsing like a faint heartbeat. He surveys the deserted horizon, alert for hidden dangers. Wings raised, he radiates vigilance, as if the swirling sands might conceal deadly foes nearby. A sudden commotion breaks the silence. A hooded figure charges from behind a crumbling wall, blade drawn. The winged warrior turns with lightning speed, staff lifted. Sand flares around their feet, hinting at a violent clash under the relentless sun. In a brilliant burst, the winged fighter thrusts his staff into the hooded attacker's chest. Sparks erupt, lighting the dusty air. The attacker staggers, revealing the warrior's precision. The desert wind howls, as though mourning another victim claimed by violence. The scene abruptly shifts into a red-tinted realm, as though anger itself stains the air. The staff pulses with ominous light, while a vengeful voice declares past wrongs unforgiven. Rage seems to fuel the warrior's moves, intensifying his overwhelming power. Dark silhouettes swirl through the crimson void, echoing that enraged voice. Memories appear like drifting shadows, hinting at an unhealed betrayal. The warrior's spirit burns with vengeance, each wave of fury strengthening his resolve to repay old debts with brutality. Suddenly, brilliant gold light engulfs the red haze. The warrior stands beneath a scorching sun, wings spread wide. Pain lingers in his eyes, yet his stance suggests renewed purpose. He harnesses the grief fueling him, forging it into grim determination. High atop a grand staircase, voices praise the winged fighter as a legendary sunspear. He appears almost divine, bathed in golden rays. Onlookers below gaze with reverence, believing him a savior destined to free their parched kingdom from doom. At the base of the steps, cloaked figures kneel in swirling dust, pleading for guidance. Their muffled voices echo against the sandstone walls. Each face reflects desperation, hoping the sunspear can shield them from catastrophe in this unforgiving wasteland. Among them, a man stretches arms upward, begging for mercy. His plea resonates through the dusty air, uniting others in the same desperate hope. Fear and longing appear in each gaze, yearning for the sunspear's favor to avert disaster. The sunspear's lips curl into a smile, illuminated by a sudden flash of red. That subtle change disturbs the worshippers. Though they bow respectfully, tension fills the air. A single doubt grows. Is he the benevolent savior they expect? A horde of faceless figures thrashes and wails, arms raised in pleas. A disembodied voice declares that mercy does not exist here. The desert reverberates with their cries, foreshadowing a devastating fate. Dread creeps into every corner of this world. A sweeping view reveals an endless desert city under a scorching sun. High above, the winged warrior stands on grand steps. A dire statement echoes. Survival demands destruction. The city's fate hangs in the looming balance of his formidable power. Amid blazing skies, the warrior raises his spear toward the heavens, its gem glowing like captured sunlight. He summons surrounding fighters to unite in a stand. Their determined faces mirror his unwavering resolve, forging an alliance under the desert sun. Spears glint in unison as several warriors form a disciplined line. Metal tips shine in the harsh light, reflecting commitment to the cause. Their collective resolve reverberates through the dusty courtyard, promising a fight that could reshape this desert realm. A row of hooded soldiers stands motionless in the desert wind. One man kneels before them, clutching the sand, pleading for mercy. Silence blankets the scene, creating the sense that any moment could ignite brutality in this parched domain. From the steps, the sunspear commands the soldiers to destroy one another without remorse. Flames color the sky, emphasizing his decree. A hush of dread grips the gathering, for they know obeying means turning this desert into a battlefield. A close-up reveals the sunspear's face contorted with wild laughter, eyes reflecting pleasure. Chaos erupts below as fighters turn on each other. He watches, wings partially spread, savoring every scream. This is no savior's deliverance, only domination over terrified souls. From an overhead view, the sunspear lounges on a stone step, staff in hand. Below, figures swirl in combat, dust and cries rising. Surrounded by a glow, he rules this desert stronghold with cruelty, relishing each moment of destruction. A sudden flash of golden text announces the end of an S-rank memory skill. The gruesome desert visions disintegrate in searing light, leaving behind an echo of screams. Everything falls silent, hinting that those chaotic events were only a recollection. Ju Donghun appears, trembling in a torchlit corridor. Sweat drenches his hair, staff clutched tight. The memory's end startles him, confirming he witnessed the sunspear's past. Though shaken by such brutality, he steels himself to confront this looming menace. Massive black wings suddenly appear before Donghun, casting shadows on the stone walls. The same winged figure from his visions stands there, alive and menacing. Feathers drift in the flickering torchlight, hinting that the sunspear's power transcends mere memory. He lifts his gaze and confirms the sunspear in full view, staff in hand. Black feathers swirl around them both as Donghun realizes this is no illusion. Every detail from the desert vision stands here, challenging him in reality. Standing amid a pale glow, the sunspear's eyes are cold. His presence dwarfs the corridor's flickering torches, exuding an aura of menace. Donghun grips his staff, sensing that defeating this being may prove harder than any foe before. Donghun questions how this remains a B-rank dungeon with such a presence inside. Sweat beads on his brow as he realizes the danger. He steadies himself, recalling that previous illusions were far weaker. Now he faces the sunspear's might. He remembers a mentor once disregarded as weak but revealing great strength. This lesson warns him never to underestimate hidden power. Facing the sunspear, Donghun senses a similar threat. He tightens his grip, determined not to repeat past mistakes. The sunspear speaks with hostility, calling Donghun impure and unworthy. Malice laces each word, hinting at ancient grudges. Donghun shivers under that scornful gaze, suspecting this enemy's hatred extends beyond him. A decisive confrontation seems inevitable in this corridor. With a yell, the sunspear lunges forward, wings flaring wide. He accuses Donghun of rejection, demanding retribution. Feathers scatter in the torchlight as his staff arcs toward its target. The sudden speed leaves Donghun scrambling to defend against force. Donghun's eyes widen as he lifts his staff to parry the incoming blow. A surge of panic floods him, aware one misstep could be fatal. Sandaled feet skid on the corridor floor, revealing how unprepared he feels against this assault. Time slows as Donghun glimpses the spear tip aimed at his chest. Fear clenches his heart. He wonders if this is the end. Dust swirls in the torchlight, capturing his final, desperate moment before the seemingly inevitable fatal strike arrives. Abruptly, a jolt shoves Donghun's arm aside, deflecting the spear. Sparks burst across the corridor and the floor trembles. Gasping in relief, he realizes someone or something intervened at the last second, preventing certain death. Yet the threat remains close. Golden arcs flash as Donghun blocks another crushing blow. His staff quivers under the sunspear's sheer power, each impact echoing in the corridor. Though barely holding on, Donghun senses he must adapt quickly or be overwhelmed by this adversary. The sunspear momentarily pauses, glaring over his shoulder. From the shadows, an older figure emerges beside Donghun, carrying calm authority. Surprise flashes in both fighters' eyes. Someone unexpected has arrived, hinting that this dire showdown might change in unforeseen ways. Dong-hoon spins around, recognizing a mentor who once guided him. The elder scolds Dong-hoon for losing composure, urging him to focus. Dong-hoon demands to know how this savior appeared here. Yet relief glimmers in his eyes at this aid. Dong-hoon feels his mana waning, unsure how he can sustain the elder's presence. Still, the mentor stands firm, prepared to challenge the sunspear. Hope stirs in Dong-hoon's chest, knowing he may not face this final battle alone after all. A burst of light fills the corridor as the winged warrior's spear glances off empty air. He turns in shock, realizing his attack barely missed. Behind him, Dong-hoon and the elder stand tense, ready to face the mysterious threat before them. Fury ignites in the winged warrior's crimson gaze. He scoffs at Dong-hoon, declaring that no mere human can survive his deadly spear moves. Power crackles around him, raising the tension as he vows to crush anyone foolish enough to stand against him. The winged warrior smashes his hand into the stone floor, forging cracks that snake across the ground. Dong-hoon braces himself amid the tremors, refusing to retreat. Determined, he locks eyes with their enemy, readying himself for the next devastating blow. In a dazzling display, the elder forms a shimmering shield that repels the winged warrior's spear thrusts. Sparks illuminate the corridor each time blade and barrier clash. Observing this immense power, Dong-hoon senses the fragile balance between safety and looming danger. Bursting text reveals the elder's absolute shield at its highest level. Dong-hoon grits his teeth as the barrier vibrates under the winged warrior's fierce assault. He realizes that even such advanced magic can barely restrain this relentless force. The elder stands firm inside the radiant shield, chastising Dong-hoon for rushing into danger. He warns that illusions born of the sunspear's power are as lethal as any real threat. His voice echoes, reminding Dong-hoon to keep his wits sharp. Dong-hoon, drenched in sweat, looks around uneasily. He struggles to separate the sunspear's illusions from reality, fearing any misstep could be fatal. His confusion grows, but he fights the mounting dread, determined not to let panic weaken his resolve. Sparks of eerie light dance on Dong-hoon's fingertips as a strange power stirs in him. He senses that his necromantic ability may grant him a way past the deceptions all around. Awestruck, he wonders if this awakening could tip the scales. Dong-hoon glances at the elder and confirms his suspicion. They stand in a mental world shaped by his unconscious. The elder admits the sunspear forced entry during Dong-hoon's weakest moment. Real or not, this place holds grave consequences for them both. Though the corridor feels solid beneath his feet, Dong-hoon realizes it is a reflection of his fears and memories. The elder clarifies that the sunspear's influence distorts everything. Dong-hoon steels himself, knowing they must end this invasion from within. The elder urges Dong-hoon to move aside, insisting the winged warrior's strength far exceeds Dong-hoon's current limits. Stepping forward, the elder braces for direct combat. His stern expression makes it clear he will protect Dong-hoon, even if it costs him everything. With measured confidence, the elder regards the winged warrior. He speaks of past empires crushed by this dark conqueror's might, calling it both monstrous and strangely fascinating. Tension crackles as the elder prepares to match wits and strength with the fearsome foe. Crimson flames swirl around the sunspear, reflecting the winged warrior's deep rage. The elder acknowledges the enemy's near-perfect mastery of the spear. Embers drift between them like falling sparks, setting the stage for a showdown that crackles with raw intensity. Dong-hoon shudders, fearing the elder's statement means certain defeat, yet the elder clarifies he refers only to weapons skill. In sheer power, he believes himself stronger. Calmly, he tests Dong-hoon's opinion of their mansul arts, hinting that bigger secrets lie ahead. The elder slashes the air with a graceful move, calling it an unexpected thrill found beyond death. He glances back at Dong-hoon, remarking that training this young necromancer was no waste. Beneath his composed exterior, he seems quietly impressed by Dong-hoon's promise. A brilliant glow surges in the elder's eyes as he summons an ancient power with a single command. The corridor vibrates with unseen energy, pressing even the sunspear to be cautious. Dong-hoon holds his breath, anticipating the elder's next mystical revelation. High above, the winged warrior hovers, dark wings spread wide. He raises his gear-topped spear, prepared to strike from the sky. The elder stands rooted below, robes rippling in the wind, ready to counter any aerial assault with calm, unwavering focus. The winged warrior snarls at the elder's interference, golden energy radiating off his body. Seething fury and wounded pride shape each of his movements. Determined to prove his supremacy, he channels his rage into the spear, causing the entire corridor to tremble. A violent memory flickers. Chained and blinded, the winged warrior once suffered cruel torment. Blood drips from bandaged eyes as he recalls the day his freedom was wrenched away. That old pain now fuels his hatred, sparking his relentless drive for revenge. Enraged by past injustices, the winged warrior dives downward, spear blazing with golden arcs. His vow to inflict equal torment echoes through the corridor. The elder braces his shield while Dongyun watches, feeling the swirling tension that threatens to tear everything apart. At the point of collision, the elder counters with a sweeping wave of shimmering energy. Sparks erupt as spear and barrier collide. The winged warrior senses an odd familiarity in the elder's technique, stirring a fragment of memory he cannot ignore. From behind, Donghun gasps, feeling the same mysterious aura pulsing through the battlefield. The elder's power seems tied to something beyond mortal comprehension. Donghun wonders if this is the key to merging his necromantic skill with the puzzle of the sunspear. A vivid flashback shows Donghun's arrival at the pyramid, where a cryptic notification hinted his necromancy would unlock the dungeon's secrets. He remembers a loyal skeleton ally greeting him. Now, he suspects those early signs were guiding him to this confrontation. While the elder holds back the winged warrior, Donghun's thoughts race. He recalls references to the dead, the spear, and skeletons, realizing they all converge here. Each clue points to a grand design binding his necromantic gifts to the sunspear's fury. The sunspear's gear-topped weapon spins in midair, crimson aura flashing. The winged warrior hesitates, caught off guard by a sensation of déjà vu. It feels as if he has wielded this motion before, triggering half-remembered echoes of a distant life. In a sudden vision, a simpler spear soars through a sunny forest clearing. The winged warrior's heart twinges with old emotions he scarcely recognizes. This fleeting glimpse hints that his devastating techniques came from a time when he was still human. A rattling noise interrupts. A skeleton soldier stands behind the winged warrior, grasping his staff. It stares blankly as though awaiting orders. The moment feels surreal, each side uncertain whether this bony arrival will tip the balance or unleash fresh chaos. Seeing the skeletal ally appear, Donghun's eyes widen. The winged warrior crosses his arms, momentarily unsure whether to attack. Donghun senses the undead soldier responding to his own necromantic call, proving that even in this dreamlike arena, his power remains potent. Bright text announces a new stage. Sunspear's resentment. Difficulty unmeasurable. Scarlet wisps twist around the winged warrior, revealing deep hatred for humankind. The message states, "Only by subduing him can a crucial awakening occur," hinting at powers within Donghun's reach. Dark mist seeps from the winged warrior's wounds as system text urges Donghun to subdue the sunspear for a skill upgrade called Bonehead 2. Although injured, the winged warrior stands defiant. His fury seems unstoppable, forcing Donghun to confront unimaginable peril. Shouting the elder's name, Donghun watches protective magic collide with relentless spear strikes. The corridor quakes under each impact. Stepping forward in determination, Donghun realizes he cannot remain a bystander. His choice is clear: to fight or watch the elder fall. The elder, sweat rolling down his face, yells for Donghun to stand aside. He insists the sunspear is still beyond Donghun's ability, yet the fierce light in Donghun's eyes suggests defiance. As though the call to prove himself has grown irresistible, Donghun steadies his racing heart and steps forward, declaring he must handle this. Voice trembling yet resolute, he pleads with the elder to trust him. In that moment, his purpose shines through. Only by facing the sunspear can he truly grow. Red light flares in the winged warrior's eye as the sunlight window resonates around him. He stands, tense and silent, brimming with hatred. Shadows coil under his wings, reflecting a harsh past. His gaze warns of a battle with no mercy. In a blinding white arena, the winged warrior confronts the elder's calm stance. His gear-topped spear gleams ominously, channeling leftover desert fury. Despite the brightness, an uneasy darkness swirls around him. The elder braces, sensing a harsh clash ahead. Donghun, silver-held necromancer, watches anxiously. He senses the winged warrior's hatred building in the air. Sweat drips down his cheek, revealing hidden nerves beneath his cloak. Ready or not, he knows a dire test awaits him. The elder steps closer, white beard swaying. He explains the terrifying figure ahead is his summoned beast, once sealed but now unleashed. Concern lines his features. He glances at Donghun, silently asking if he can face this dangerous foe. A skeleton with golden eyes stands protectively behind a brown-haired individual. Its ancient voice calls them "my child," revealing a powerful bond. Undaunted, the figure insists it's their fight, not the elder's. Determination burns in their unwavering stare. The elder's eyes widen in disbelief. He never imagined anyone he taught would claim such a duty. Shock and concern crease his brow as he realizes the young ones plan to fight the winged warrior alone, defying all his protective instincts. A resolute footstep echoes, accompanied by a thought. This battlefield was never truly the elder's. Light motes swirl around that step, signaling a power shift. Self-belief anchors the speaker, who claims this place as their rightful domain. Dong-hun stands firm, sweat beading on his brow. He declares this mindscape belongs to him. Clutching his staff, he steadies his breath, prepared for the winged warrior's wrath. His tone reveals a newfound resolve, tempered by underlying fear. The winged warrior, cloaked in swirling darkness, vows to fight until his hatred is spent. His wings spread wide, each feather bristling with rage. Dong-hun stands before him, determined not to waver, sensing malice intensifying all around. Fury distorts the winged warrior's face as he spits an insult at humans. Tinted by betrayal, his voice crackles with contempt. Darkness coils around him, shaping echoes of past anguish. His scorn for humankind stands clear, fueling this merciless conflict. With thunderous force, he slams his gear-topped spear into the floor, splintering stone. He roars accusations, branding Dong-hun a deceitful mortal. Shards scatter around them, reflecting rage. The arena trembles under his power, warning that no defense will hold easily. Dong-hun lunges forward, staff clenched tight. The winged warrior's voice echoes. "You, of all people." Winds and lights crash around them as the necromancer refuses to back down. Determined, he prepares to counter, despite facing a being consumed by bitterness. A flashback unfurls in crimson hues. A bearded man in desert clothes, sword in hand, bellows if anyone can fathom his agony. Dark silhouettes loom behind him, echoing a life of betrayal. This memory hints at the winged warrior's tragic origins. The nightmare deepens. Two adults restrain a young child against the floor. A mocking voice scoffs at mercy, painting the scene in brutality. Red overlays everything, signifying anguish and fear. The child's helpless struggle reveals the seeds of unrelenting hatred. That child cries out, "I hate humans! I curse humans!" The words echo like a lifelong curse forming. Rage floods his eyes as heartbreak turns into fury. This tragic vow plants darkness in him, foreshadowing the winged warrior's unending resentment. Returning to the white battleground, the winged warrior raises his spear overhead. Desert Empire's scars fuel his smile. Light orbs swirl around him, hinting at power and illusions. He dares Dong-hun to face centuries of pain coursing through his wings. The winged warrior surges forward, spear aimed at Dong-hun. He bellows, demanding the necromancer die by his hand. Blurring feathers and blades slice the air, each strike fueled by rage. Dong-hun braces, heart pounding at the unstoppable force hurtling closer. A searing golden arc erupts from the spear's tip, illuminating Dong-hun's face. He grips his skull-topped staff, trying to parry. Sparks explode where steel meets necromantic power. The collision shakes the air, as each side clings to survival and vengeance. Dong-hun staggers backward, feeling the spear's impact. Pain courses through him, but he refuses to collapse. His face tightens as he struggles to remain standing. Though battered, his resolve burns bright, fueled by his mentor's teachings and an unyielding spirit. The winged warrior's strike draws blood, staining Dong-hun's cloak in crimson. A cough escapes him as he drops to one knee. Wings loom overhead, hatred undiminished. Yet Dong-hun clenches his staff, determined not to surrender. The battle's outcome remains uncertain. The winged warrior lifts his spear overhead, black feathers unfurled in rage. A fresh crimson stain drips down the spear's tip, revealing a brutal attack moments earlier. His intense glare and battered attire reveal an unyielding hatred that hangs over the battlefield. A piercing cry echoes across the arena, drawing the elder's alarmed gaze. He sees Dong-hun collapse nearby, blood evident from a grave wound. Though visibly unsettled, the elder weighs whether to rush to aid or let the necromancer prove his resilience. The winged warrior strikes again, and red droplets spatter the cold floor. Each sweeping motion of his spear radiates bitterness for humanity. Dark feathers accent his menacing form while his gaze burns with vengeance born from a world that once scorned him. Dong-hun lies motionless, silver hair streaked with blood. An ethereal display signals his pain tolerance ability, keeping him barely conscious despite terrible wounds. Though fear lingers in his eyes, a stubborn determination glimmers, suggesting he refuses to surrender to the winged warrior's rage. Barely able to move, Dong-hun acknowledges the stabbing pain engulfing him. Blood seeps across his robes, yet a flicker of resolve survives within his trembling form. Despite overwhelming agony, he clings to hope, unwilling to accept defeat against this formidable adversary. Nearby, the winged warrior stands with clenched fists and bitter eyes. Fresh wounds line his arms, but his fury seems to push him forward. Each ragged breath underscores a seething hatred, shaped by a life filled with rejection and the desire for vengeance. Struggling upright, Dong-hun locks eyes with his foe, refusing to bow to despair. His silver hair, slick with blood, frames a gaze of fierce defiance. He challenges the winged warrior to reveal his darkest rage, prepared to fight until his final breath. A sudden golden glow bursts from Dong-hun's injured hand, bathing him in brilliant light. The The radiance highlights his wounds, yet fuels a renewed determination. Even surrounded by pain, he summons hidden strength, hoping to stand firm against the winged warrior's relentless bitterness. Standing, Donghun grips his spear, its tip crackling with that same golden energy. His ripped cloak and bloodied chest testify to brutal damage endured. Yet a fiery gaze invites his adversary's next move, signaling he intends to meet hatred with unwavering resolve. Breathing unsteadily, Donghun braces his free hand to stifle both fear and pain. He silently dares the winged warrior to pour forth every shard of rage. Though battered, his upright stance defies surrender, revealing an iron will hidden beneath his wounds. The winged warrior narrows his eyes, seemingly shocked by Donghun's resilience. His black wings arch around him as tension crackles in the air. Long-buried fury collides with unwavering bravery, setting the stage for a showdown that neither side appears willing to lose. Winged feathers stretch wide as the warrior brandishes his spear. Malice lingers in every movement, reflecting years of suffering. He taunts Donghun, questioning if his endurance can match ancient grudges. The arena grows silent, anticipating a final decisive clash between two indomitable wills. His voice echoes like thunder, declaring no one can ever carry his burden, even if they understand. Bitterness drips from each syllable, shaped by isolation. The arena trembles with his fury, revealing a wounded soul lashing out at a world he deems cruel. Spreading his wings, the warrior dives forward with lethal speed. He condemns Donghun's efforts as arrogant and hurls his spear in a crushing blow. His unstoppable charge crackles with fury, threatening to obliterate any hope the young necromancer clings to. Donghun grits his teeth, refusing to surrender. He raises his own spear, attempting to parry the warrior's savage thrusts. Though fresh blood seeps from his wounds, a fierce resolve sustains him. Even as exhaustion mounts, he dares not turn away. Sparks explode as steel meets steel, each clash resounding like thunder. The arena illuminates with bursts of energy, revealing neither fighter yielding ground. Their weapons collide again and again, driven by unbreakable hatred and courage. Threatening to shatter the silence forever, weapons lock in brutal stalemate, and droplets of blood fling off each blade. The winged warrior's eyes blaze with unwavering rage, matched only by Donghun's defiance. Their strength collides at the center, forging a moment of high suspense in the white arena. Donghun trembles, muscles burning, but refuses to collapse. Sweat drips down his face, mingling with blood. Though pinned by the warrior's force, his will remains steadfast. He grips his spear tighter, resolved to stand against hatred no matter the agony he endures. In close quarters, the winged warrior reveals his secret. Born half-human and half-eagle creature, he's lived unloved and alone. Rejection shaped his boundless anger, fueling every strike. Donghun sees raw anguish in his enemy's face, realizing rage hides deeper wounds beneath. His trembling hands grip the spear, tears mixing with blood as he demands if anyone could ever accept him. Pain and fury tangle in his cry, echoing through the battleground. The moment hangs uncertain, poised between destruction and a faint possibility of understanding. Donghun raises his arms as a golden slash whips past, sparks flying. His silver hair clings to his forehead, and exhaustion lines his face. Still, determination burns in his gaze. Opposite him, the winged warrior's cold fury presses down like a storm. A dark voice echoes across the battlefield. The winged warrior bitterly recalls how people turned on him at birth, calling his existence a mistake. His gear-tipped spear gleams with cruel energy, each swing fueled by memories of endless cruelty. Rage flares in his eyes. He roars that they once tried to take his sight, cut his hands, and sever his ankles. Blazing arcs of gold swirl around him, revealing the pain buried deep within, each slash echoing his desperate fury. Blood splatters as he demands if anyone could ever grasp his dreadful torment. His voice cracks with bitterness, echoing across the battlefield. Watching, Donghun senses the lonely, wounded heart behind each brutal strike, realizing this rage hides profound sorrow. Donghun falls to his knees, blood staining his cloak. The winged warrior stands close, wings lowered as if uncertain. He expected defiance, yet sees deep wounds and unwavering courage. A flicker of sympathy crosses his stern face. A soft tension crackles as the warrior admits Donghun's journey must have been harsh. Though bitterness lingers in his voice, a trace of empathy emerges. Donghun, breath ragged, feels both relief and shock, sensing the warrior's pain runs far deeper. In a hushed memory, the warrior appears as a timid child, wings curled tight. A hooded figure offers bread out of pity. Though the child accepts, doubt clouds his gaze. Even small kindness feels fragile, overshadowed by fear of betrayal. In another flashback, villagers chase the young winged warrior across a dusty settlement. Once friendly faces turn hostile, brandishing weapons and spitting insults. Their fear drives them to cruelty, stabbing his back and pushing him into a life of distrust. In the darkness, the child crouches as spears surround him, each tip reflecting his terror. He realizes every kindness leads to cruelty. Numbness grows inside his heart, convincing him that humans are built on lies, leaving no room for trust. Snapping back to the present, the grown warrior hurls his spear at Dong-hoon, golden energy crackling. He declares if people always saw him as a monster, he will embrace that role. Dong-hoon braces himself, nearly buckling under the force. Wincing from a new wound, the warrior's grip shakes. He wonders if this searing pain could free him from the hatred that shaped him. Doubt flickers in his eyes, as though each heartbeat cracks the unyielding walls he built. Blood drips from trembling fingers, each strike chipping at the resentment trapping him. The rage fueling his blows seems less certain now. He presses forward, yet a subtle shift suggests his hatred might not be as eternal as believed. Golden arcs illuminate Dong-hoon, forcing him to stagger. The warrior watches, sensing turbulence behind Dong-hoon's weary eyes. Dong-hoon cries out, struggling to remain upright. Exhaustion and resolve radiate from him, fueling the warrior's uneasy curiosity about this adversary. Dong-hoon drops to one knee, pressing a shaking hand to his wound. The warrior towers over him, demanding how long he'll remain in sorrow. Beneath the harsh tone lies urgency, as though urging Dong-hoon to fight rather than give up. Dong-hoon's gloved hand grips his staff, dripping blood. The warrior warns that wallowing in pain will only drag others into despair. A spark of understanding flashes in Dong-hoon's eyes, as if he finally grasps the weight of the warrior's words. The warrior leaps skyward, wings flared wide, and swings his gear-tipped spear. He shouts for Dong-hoon to consider his choices. Steel clashes with steel, echoing a final challenge. Will Dong-hoon yield to sorrow or rise with new determination? The warrior locks eyes with Dong-hoon, accusing him of knowing his torment. He refuses judgment by anyone's standards. Their blades stay pressed, tension crackling as they struggle against the weight of hidden pain. Sparks fly when the warrior roars not to judge him so easily. Dong-hoon's stance wavers, yet he holds steady, refusing to back down. Their colliding weapons symbolize deeper wounds, each strike releasing old resentments neither side knows how to mend. Catching his breath, the warrior asks if Dong-hoon truly understands why he hurts. Then he admits a painful truth. He was abandoned, and his emotions withered. Vulnerability flashes in his eyes, revealing a wounded soul beneath all the hostility. Pressing his bloody hand against his chest, the warrior declares old scars never fade. He questions what Dong-hoon hopes to reverse now, frustration boiling over. It's clear centuries of betrayal weigh heavily, leaving him unsure if redemption is possible. Dong-hoon, trembling and bloodied, softly acknowledges the past cannot be undone. A hint of sadness shadows his eyes, yet a gentle resolve flickers there. Though battered, he stands firm, determined to face the warrior with an unwavering spark of hope. Raising a shaking hand, Dong-hoon explains his intention to begin anew, perhaps not fixing past damage, but creating a fresh path forward. Though pain grips him, he speaks with surprising faith. The warrior watches, startled by this offer of possible redemption. The winged warrior stands rigid, uncertain how to react. He never expected someone to face him with such determination and compassion. Shock flickers across his blood-stained features. Could there truly be a future after centuries of rage, even for him? For a moment, neither moves. The warrior speaks a single confused word, as if struggling to believe Dong-hoon's resolve. The battlefield falls eerily quiet, thick with tension and faint hope. Both men face each other, unsure what tomorrow might bring. Facing the warrior, Dong-hoon states the truth. He died long ago, reborn as a restless spirit chained by grudges. Even those who caused his pain are gone. Uncertainty shadows the warrior's face, wings sagging under that grim reminder. A flicker of clarity shines in the warrior's bruised eyes. He reflects on having destroyed all who tormented him, yet emptiness lingers. Vengeance offered no peace. Realizing this, he feels something stir, an unsettling sense that his hatred lost its purpose. A vision of a desert temple surfaces in his mind, half-buried arches and swirling sand. This is where he once sealed himself away after his rampage. Winds howl through silent ruins, echoing the devastation unleashed by his rage and bitterness. Back on the battlefield, he stares at his blood-stained hand, recalling every life ended. His spear hangs by his side, heavy with regret. A question forms. Is there a path forward after centuries of wrath, or will he remain chained? Head bowed, the warrior quietly repeats Dong-hoon's proposal of a new life. He recalls betrayals and carnage behind him, voice trembling with uncertainty. Could he abandon vengeance and begin again? The question lingers, a fragile hope flickering in the wind. In a ruined hall, the winged warrior stands with black wings stained in crimson. He grips a gear-tipped spear, eyes reflecting exhaustion and anger. Magical sparks flicker around him, marking the end of a fierce battle that has tested his resolve. He glances at the swirling dust, wondering if someone truly believes he can discard centuries of hatred. Every scar on his face tells a story of betrayal. Yet a faint flicker of hope stirs beneath the storm of his emotions. Ju Donghoon stands nearby, his silver hair matted with blood. He explains that he is not judging the warrior's past but offering a different path. Despite the pain from his wounds, Donghoon's unwavering gaze carries a sympathy that cuts through the warrior's turmoil. A fleeting memory surfaces. The warrior, cloaked and bruised, crouches in darkness. Longo torments shaped his rage, yet his eyes show lingering sorrow. This vision hints that his suffering need not define him, though old wounds still bleed with regret and isolation. Back in the rubble-strewn hall, the warrior hears that no cruelty done to him justifies his own acts of destruction. Bitterness flashes in his eyes. Each truth spoken pierces his heart, reminding him that one injustice never cancels another. A black boot steps forward on the stained floor. Donghoon's voice is steady, insisting the warrior choose what he truly wants for himself. Echoes of footsteps resonate in the hollow chamber, urging the warrior to face his buried dreams. Donghoon's eye widens as he senses a shift. Reflected in his pupil is the warrior, spear at the ready. Fear meets hope in Donghoon's gaze, revealing how fragile this moment is, with redemption or ruin hanging in the balance. The warrior unleashes a brilliant surge of power, cutting through the gloom with searing light. Magic collides with the air, sending waves of raw energy across the room. Whether fueled by anger or hope, his attack shatters the tense silence. Donghoon staggers back, shielding his eyes from a burst of golden radiance. He cries out, momentarily blind to everything but the overwhelming glow. All traces of the battlefield fade, as though a doorway to another place has forced itself open. When the glare subsides, Donghoon stands in a vast desert under a crystal blue sky. Strange symbols shimmer in the air like wandering fireflies. He breathes heavily, baffled by this sudden shift, unsure whether he has been rescued or tested. Emerging from a haze, the elder greets him with calm reassurance. Though tired, Donghoon feels safer in the elder's presence. It's clear the elder has quietly observed this conflict, waiting for the right moment to show Donghoon another way forward. In a gentle voice, the elder praises Donghoon's compassion toward the winged warrior's buried resentment. His robes flutter in the desert wind. Wisdom etched into his gaze, he reminds Donghoon that true understanding can transform even the deepest wounds. Suddenly, glowing blue panels hover before Donghoon, revealing that his pain tolerance has increased. Overcoming the warrior's anguish has expanded his limits. He regards this strange phenomenon with relief, realizing empathy may unlock hidden strengths in their world. Smiling at the elder, Donghoon says he never intended to prove power, only to show the warrior he wasn't alone. He pledges to bear that burden. Beneath the desert sun, hope rises that kindness can mend even the worst rifts. In a sudden shift, the scene returns to the broken battlefield. The warrior's spear slams into the cracked floor, sending tremors through scattered debris. Echoes of past fury linger in the air, as though centuries of anger refuse to fade. Panting and wounded, the winged warrior locks eyes with Donghoon. Slowly, he admits, Donghoon's compassion is unlike anything he has known. Suspicion flickers, but a glimmer of hope breaks through. In his battered state, he sees a chance for change. Drained of energy, the warrior staggers forward, confessing that he longs to throw away his old life and be reborn. His trembling voice reveals fear. Each painful breath reminds him of lost centuries. Yet he dares to imagine a different future. He sinks to one knee before Donghoon, blood pooling around him. Addressing Donghoon with reverence, he calls him my lord. A shattered soul that once raged at the world now submits, uncertain but willing to trust the hope Donghoon offers. Despite his own wounds, Donghoon stands steadfast, returning the warrior's gaze. Sensing true remorse, he offers understanding instead of scorn. The warrior's head bows, lifted slightly by the prospect of forgiveness. In that moment, centuries of isolation begin to unravel. Suddenly, panels appear, proclaiming a hidden stage cleared. Resentment of the sunspear. Donghoon, bruised and panting, watches the glowing letters shower down. New possibilities unfold in the darkness, indicating that peace and second chances might be closer than ever. In a stark transition, the story shifts to a grand banquet hall sparkling with delicate lanterns. Well-dressed guests converse around flower-laden tables. Yet, beneath the polite smiles, an undercurrent of tension lingers that the warm glow can't quite hide. In one corner, Ji Soyo closes her eyes, breathing a soft sigh. Surrounded by swirling chatter, she appears bored, longing for something more stimulating. Her calm exterior hides the truth. She finds the party meaningless, forced here by a family request. Leaning against a pillar with a wine glass, Soyo observes friends and strangers alike. Their lively conversations and laughter only deepen her disinterest. A quiet figure in the corner, she feels disconnected from their world, her thoughts drifting beyond polite banter. Taking a sip, Ji Soyo reflects on her brother's insistence that she attend. Though she keeps a pleasant facade, the event feels pointless. She stands apart, pondering when she can leave this empty social obligation and find a real purpose. At the glamorous banquet, Soil listens politely as a suited man boasts about meeting high-ranked guests. Dull chatter and gentle music swirl around them. Soil nods, yet she feels disconnected, craving deeper meaning beyond these routine social gatherings. Suddenly, an image flits through Soil's mind, a pale, legendary figure rumored to overshadow every rancor present. Compared to him, these powerful guests appear like newborns. The vision fades, leaving Soil unsettled, certain that greater powers linger beyond this hall. Back in reality, Soil exhales wearily, brushing her hair aside. Glowing lights and refined chatter surround her, but she only wishes this banquet would end. Though everyone is all smiles, she feels bored and distant, craving purpose in a place she finds meaningless. A gentle voice calls her name, Soyo. She turns, startled to see someone approach from behind. Curiosity and slight relief flood her expression. Perhaps this visitor will offer something more than trivial banter, or confirm her urge to escape this grand event. Across the room, a blond man in a formal tailcoat greets Soil warmly. He claims he searched everywhere for her, his voice echoing amid the gleaming marble floors. Although his manner is friendly, Soil's guarded gaze shows her uncertainty about his sudden attention. The blond man smiles broadly, asking if she remembers him from before. Soft music lingers, making the moment feel unreal. Soil studies his face, trying to recall any past connection. Beneath her polite exterior, she still feels she doesn't belong here. In another scene, Ju Dong-hoon, battered and cloaked in black, stands before the winged warrior. Blood stains them both, reflecting a fierce battle. Gently, Dong-hoon urges the warrior to envision a fresh start rather than remain locked in old grudges. The spear lies nearby. The winged warrior, wings drooping in fatigue, wonders what he truly wants now. His expression reveals weariness and longing. Freed from endless rage, he stands at a crossroads between revenge and redemption, uncertain about stepping into an unknown future. With quiet determination, Dong-hoon reminds the warrior that his personal desires matter. Though battered, Dong-hoon's sincere gaze offers hope, hinting he will stand beside the warrior no matter what. This compassion contrasts with the warrior's uncertainty, creating a fragile space for trust. Shakily, Dong-hoon grasps the blood-spattered spear while the warrior watches. Their eyes meet in tense silence, acknowledging countless struggles. This small gesture of support suggests a pact. If the warrior dares to choose a kinder road, Dong-hoon will guide him there. A memory flashes. The warrior, alone in a dark courtyard, trailing blood across the ground. His once proud wings sag under a starry sky. A distant voice recalls sensing his heartbreak, underscoring how ancient sorrow has shaped his fearsome reputation. That vision centers on his anguished face, marked by scars from battles and regret. Pain and an unspoken wish blend in his eyes. Despite the gloom, hope flickers faintly, suggesting he might still reclaim the dreams buried beneath centuries of wrath. Dong-hoon's voice gently reminds the warrior that he once longed for more than war. Beneath the wounds, there was curiosity about distant lands and hidden wonders. Dong-hoon's words stir something in the warrior, nudging him to remember the happiness he abandoned. The warrior murmurs, "The world," as if testing a forgotten desire. Sweat beads on his brow, uncertainty mingling with faint excitement. He senses a path forming, one leading beyond revenge. For the first time, doubt about his dark destiny begins to bloom. Memories of scorching desert sands resurface. He recalls marveling at each shifting grain beneath his feet, once amazed by simple wonders. Before hatred consumed him, he found delight in the world's small details. That lost wonder now feels quietly close. A sunny vision appears. Caravans with camels traverse vast dunes under a brilliant sky. The warrior remembers his dream to roam freely, unbound by anger. The endless horizon suggests a hopeful future, if he dares embrace this forgotten desire. Under the scorching desert sun, the winged warrior stands alone, his cloak torn and stained with dried blood. His black wings cast a solemn shadow on the sand. Once driven by battle, he now recalls a distant wish to see more of the world. He lifts a hand toward the bright sky, reflecting on a simple yet powerful truth that transcends questions of human goodness or evil. If curiosity can guide him, maybe that alone is worth living for, despite every bitter memory. A flicker of doubt crosses his eyes, as he wonders if one fragile hope can erase centuries of anger. Hood drawn low, he feels the weight of his blood-stained past. Still, the desert breeze carries a hint that change could be possible. Ju Dong-hoon steps closer, white hair streaked with blood. Although he cannot fully share the warrior's pain, he stands ready to help. His torn cloak reveals the intensity of the fight he endured. With patient sincerity, he offers understanding over empty comfort. Meeting the warrior's gaze, Dong-hoon explains he cannot pretend to erase deep wounds. He refuses shallow sympathy when heartbreak runs so deep. The blood staining his cheek proves he has fought his own battles to stand here now. He grips the warrior's weapon, letting red droplets slide onto the blade. He suggests putting aside old hatred to follow a genuine desire. No matter how stained their histories, he believes the warrior deserves to pursue a dream free from bitterness. Removing his hood, the warrior reveals his wings and sculpted arms. Golden sunlight highlights his scars. Dong-hun reminds him that simply seeing the world can be a priceless gift, especially after lifetimes defined by war. The warrior wavers between caution and hope. A close-up shows the warrior's uncertain face as he wonders if Dong-hun truly intends to guide him beyond this lonely desert. Sweat beads on his brow, reflecting both fear and yearning. In this moment, he imagines a life of discovery instead of isolation. Dong-hun smiles softly, calling himself a necromancer. Though bound by dark powers, he's willing to lead the warrior away from old burdens. Blood still drips from his wounds, yet his eyes shine with resolve. He offers a glimpse of a different future. His skeleton-topped staff strikes the ground with a resonant thud. Dong-hun warns that his realm differs greatly from the warrior's savage past. Still, he extends the invitation. If the warrior wants to see it all, he will guide him without hesitation. Dong-hun's gloved hand moves purposefully, causing the warrior to flinch, uncertain of trusting a mere human. Past betrayals have scarred him, yet the promise of escape from endless bloodshed tugs at his heart. He stands at the edge of a fateful choice. Blood covers Dong-hun's cloak and face, but he still offers his hand. His unwavering eyes promise new horizons, far from haunting battlefields. The warrior hesitates, sensing sincerity in this battered human. Their destinies align in the desert's glare, forging a fragile alliance. Glowing blue panels hover above, declaring the sunspear in anguish and conflict. The warrior's black eyes reflect inner turmoil. He feels centuries of rage crash against a tiny seed of hope. He stands motionless, torn between revenge and the promise of more. From across a blood-spattered floor, Dong-hun asks if the warrior's nature truly sets him apart from ordinary humans. His cloak drips with the proof of their brutal struggle. He hopes the warrior can see that not all humans are cruel. A closer view shows Dong-hun's weary face, stained with blood and worry. He wonders if the warrior's power places him beyond mortal understanding. The warrior remains silent, recalling betrayals. Yet he senses a rare warmth in Dong-hun's questioning eyes. The warrior's hand grips a gear-edged spear, its blade caked with dark red. A silent memory reveals he once ruled an ancient desert empire with this weapon. Behind his calm exterior lies immense power, waiting to see if Dong-hun can truly earn his loyalty. From behind, the warrior sees Dong-hun's blood-matted hair. A question lingers in the warrior's mind. Is this human worthy to be called his master? Doubts surge, fueled by past betrayals, yet he wonders if fate has granted him a new chance. A vision of his past appears, steps leading up to a grand desert temple under a blazing sky. The warrior, half human and half beast, spreads enormous black wings. His spear once devoured the sun, granting him a name that struck fear everywhere. The crimson-stained spear glows with haunting power, reflecting centuries of conquest. Sand and blood swirl around him. His pride is legendary. He won't serve just anyone. Only those who prove worthy can command the loyalty of the weapon that once swallowed the sun. Lowering his gaze, the winged warrior confesses he resents following a mere human. Yet there is hesitation in his voice. Centuries of rage forged his hard shell, but Dong-hun's sincerity sparks something unfamiliar. He stands at a crossroad, deciding if trust can prevail. A glowing golden notice appears in mid-air, declaring a hidden quest linked to the warrior's anger. Zhu Dong-hun, exhausted and wounded, reads the words. He realizes this trial demands he become the warrior's true master, or risk losing everything. Zhu Dong-hun clutches his bleeding side, absorbing the quest's demand for a master. Though uneasy, he senses no escape. The winged warrior stands watchful, his black eyes unblinking. Uncertain but determined, Dong-hun wonders if he can truly guide this ally. Golden flames spark around the winged warrior's fist, scorching the sandy ground. Intense heat radiates, carrying the weight of old fury. Zhu Dong-hun shields his face from the crackling energy, realizing this fiery power is the warrior's long-held anger. Breathing hard, Dong-hun raises his staff. Blood drips from his wounds as he studies the quest panel. Unsure how to prove his worth, he steels himself. Though trembling, his resolve burns brighter, fueled by a promise to save the warrior. The winged warrior extends his spear, offering a test of true sunlight against lingering bitterness. His voice is calm but demands respect. He challenges Dong-hun to embrace the spear's real fire, asking if he dares to accept its blazing truth. Standing firm, Dong-hun answers with resolve. Though bloodied and weary, he refuses to waver. He lifts his staff, declaring he will do what is needed. The warrior senses this fresh determination, wondering if their shared faith might spark hope. The winged warrior leaps into the air, black wings unfurling against the sky. A fiery glow envelops his spear, echoing the quest's challenge. Dust flies as he rises higher, determined to see whether Dong-hoon can endure the sun's scorching power. High above, the warrior flips, spear glinting like a star. Dong-hoon stands below, blood pooling on the sand, staff clutched tightly. Each breath feels electric. If Dong-hoon accepts the true sun's power, he may free them both from lingering resentment. Under a sunset sky, a modern building reflects the sun's last rays. Inside, the blonde man recalls a powerful rancor he met abroad. He hopes forging connections will help him ascend higher among elite circles, hinting at fresh intrigue ahead. Standing in a grand lobby, the blonde man greets Ji Soyul. He insists everyone wants to see her, praising her status. She wears a polite smile yet remains composed, giving little away. The gleaming decor underscores the gathering's elite feel. He offers to arrange a special introduction, mentioning an exclusive whiskey. Ji Soyul stands with folded arms, listening calmly. The softly lit hallway accentuates their refined setting, though she seems unimpressed. He hopes to impress her, but she remains distant. A close-up reveals Ji Soyul's measured expression. Though her features remain serene, she seems uninterested in the social pleasantries around her. Quiet tension lingers in her eyes, suggesting deeper thoughts. She stands calmly, unmoved by the lively atmosphere and chatter. Ji Soyul politely announces her early departure, citing another engagement. The blonde man, surprised, points out the party has barely started. She maintains a gentle tone, yet intends to leave. This exchange reveals her preference for serious matters over mingling. She thanks him for hosting, turning away with an air of resolution. He nods awkwardly, wanting more time. The corridor's soft lighting frames her retreat, emphasizing differences. Her exit signals quiet determination for bigger concerns. Far beyond this refined setting, we see Ji Soyul from behind, her long hair swaying as she heads out. The hall's panels line her path, but her thoughts seem distant. She departs, mind on urgent issues, not glamorous gatherings, revealing she values deeper goals instead. Alone, the blonde man's composure cracks, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. He murmurs about Ji Soyul's arrogance, questioning her refusal. His clenched jaw hints at envy or bitterness. Beneath his polished exterior, resentment grows, fueling conflict ahead. Outside, he stands in a courtyard, recalling rumors that Ji Soyul might be secretly involved with someone. A high view reveals his rigid posture. If she truly hides a partner, he must know. Curiosity and suspicion now color his ambitions. Determined, the blonde man sets his jaw beneath the darkening sky. He vows to dig into Ji Soyul's affairs. Fury edges his polite facade, hinting he may exploit her secrets for leverage. Ambition and jealousy blend into a dangerous brew. Far away, Ju Dong-hoon stands by a blue portal etched with runic signs. Holding a staff topped with a skull, he braces for travel. The gateway radiates energy, linked to his necromancy and the hidden quest with the winged warrior. He steps through the portal, breath ragged and sweat beading on his forehead. Though drained, relief flashes across Ju Dong-hoon's eyes. Danger still clings to him, a reminder of his vow to free the winged warrior from centuries of rage. Later, his skull-topped staff thuds onto grass. Ju Dong-hoon collapses beside it, gasping from magical strain. The staff's hollow eye sockets reflect the risks of necromancy. Each breath reminds him how close he came to disaster during his latest ordeal. Flat on his back, Ju Dong-hoon mutters that he truly thought he might die. Sweat drips from his brow as he recovers under the sun's warmth. Despite lingering fear, he's relieved to have survived, reminding him of his crucial mission. He gazes at the glowing sky, astonished the sun remains so high. Time hasn't slipped away as much as he feared. A flicker of hope crosses his face, suggesting there's still a chance to guide the winged warrior toward redemption. Sitting upright, he recalls Anjay's warning he'd vanish for hours. Glad to have returned sooner, he steadies himself. Exhausted, he remains set to guard the warrior's path. With a trembling hand on his staff, he prepares for what comes next. Blue panels flash before Ju Dong-hoon, declaring Bone One and others are being adjusted. He watches as his necromantic summons gain new strength. Each window glows like magic code, signaling a transformation to strengthen his bond with the winged warrior. New messages show rising stats for each skeletal minion. Ju Dong-hoon studies the glowing panels, noticing boosts to strength, stamina, and skill levels. Excitement spreads across his face. Whatever synergy triggered is reshaping his army, preparing him for trials ahead. A larger status screen displays a skeleton named Solar Spear, its eyes blazing with eerie light. Strength, agility, and new skills, like Raging Desert, stand revealed. Ju Dong-hoon sees the undead, shares the winged warrior's essence, hinting at a legendary power reborn. Another notification appears. Bone 2 inherits the memories and will of Solar Spear. Ju Donghoon smiles, realizing a special awakening has occurred. The skeleton now holds a sliver of the winged warrior's fiery spirit, paving the way for their destiny. Ju Donghoon stands in a dim room, raising his skull-topped staff over his skeleton, Bone 2. A golden burst renames it Solar Spear, boosting all stats by 10. He senses the winged warrior's sun-like energy flowing into this undead ally. Ju Donghoon reviews a glowing status screen listing Solar Spear's newly gained abilities. They match the winged warrior's attacks. Amazed yet cautious, he realizes his summoning has absorbed that fiery spirit. A bond stronger than magic now links them together. Ju Donghoon recalls the winged warrior's past. Bloodied yet unbroken, he wields a spear blazing with golden arcs. Each furious strike scorches the air, leaving trails. This memory reveals how Solar Spear inherited its dazzling moves from that legendary champion. Another vision shows the warrior summoning a swirling sandstorm, blanketing the battlefield in grit. The storm crackles with golden sparks, echoing the warrior's rage. Ju Donghoon realizes this same desert wind thrums inside Solar Spear, forging a link between them. In a flashback, the winged warrior ascends, golden flames dancing across his wings and chest. This technique, called Soul Flame, burns part of his spirit for speed and strength. Ju Donghoon senses determination within that fire, crucial for conquering grudges. Under a sunset, Ju Donghoon reads a glowing blue screen showing Solar's new skills. He feels excitement and worry, noting these abilities mirror the warrior's sun-like fury. Though thrilled, he knows mastering them requires patience, discipline, and the warrior's trust. In a training area, Ju Donghoon studies the skeleton, calling it bony, seems too dull now. Observing nearby, the winged warrior remains silent as Ju Donghoon announces a new name, Solar. This gesture symbolizes the hope they seek to share. He checks a quest screen marked Clear Rewards. Though proud of his progress, Ju Donghoon knows the journey continues. He senses the warrior behind him, watching intently. With a tap, he braces for the system's surprise, heart full of excitement. Panels appear overhead, congratulating him for completing an unmeasurable stage. The reward materializes, a golden box, radiating brilliance against a sky backdrop. Ju Donghoon stares in disbelief, realizing the system acknowledges his feat, yet wonders what power the box might hold. A display reveals the item is classified as S rank, the highest level he has seen. Memories flash of his struggles as a low-tier necromancer. Now, holding this treasure, Ju Donghoon dares to hope his future challenges will be worth facing. He recalls past raids, slumping in dusty caves with barely any loot. Tired and overlooked, he believed greatness was impossible, yet the golden box in his hands proves otherwise. This moment reveals how far he has come, hinting at trials ahead. At sunset, Ju Donghoon lifts the lid of the gleaming box. Its glow illuminates his face, reflecting both curiosity and hope. The winged warrior watches, sensing a powerful turning point. Ju Donghoon knows this reward might change their destinies forever. A prompt asks if he wants to open the SRHR treasure. Though nerves linger, Ju Donghoon nods. Nearby, the warrior stands ready, as if expecting something. With hands trembling, he begins, hoping this artifact can safeguard them from looming threats. He urges himself to open it right away, excitement mingling with fear. The golden light swirls around him, illuminating his smile. Determined to protect those he cares for, Ju Donghoon lifts the lid, preparing to unleash whatever wonder lies inside. A fierce beam shoots skyward as soon as the box opens, bathing the clearing in gold. Leaves rustle in the intense radiance. Ju Donghoon shields his eyes, feeling time briefly halt. Then the light intensifies, revealing the long-awaited treasure within. Fragments of crimson crystal swirl together, forming an obsidian staff. Ju Donghoon watches in awe, each shard clicking into place. The winged warrior stands behind him, sensing its magic. They understand this forged SR rank weapon could reshape their shared destiny. A blue display identifies it as the Flame Dragon's staff, bound to a red dragon's power. Its effects grant extra vitality, reduced cooldowns, and doubled fire skill potency. Ju Donghoon marvels that he wields something beyond the treasure he once imagined. He notices plus 100 vitality, finding it modest for SR rank. Then he sees the huge fire power boost, realizing it could be unstoppable if mastered. A thrill moves through him, imagining how his necromancy might merge with that blazing magic. The staff floats in flames as Ju Donghoon contemplates new spells. He believes fusing its fire with the winged warrior's solar aura could create techniques. Each spark rekindles his resolve, confirming that true power demands trust, cooperation, and tireless practice. For a second, he considers the staff's value on the market, then he dismisses selling it. Ju Donghoon senses this weapon is key to saving allies and healing wounds. With hope renewed, he vows to guide the warrior toward redemption. Ju Donghoon sees the Hunter community board icon on his phone. purple wisps swirl around the app, reflecting the staff's magical energy. He taps the screen, eager to share news of his newly found S-rank relic, the Flame Dragon's staff. On the board, he posts, "I have an S-rank staff. Please evaluate it." The specs show extra vitality, quicker spells, and doubled firepower. Other hunters scoff at how an E-rank like him could obtain such a very fearsome artifact. Irritation flashes across Dong-hoon's face. He clutches his phone, angered by people mocking him. Doubts swirl in his mind, but he refuses to stay silent. Determined to prove his claim, he ponders showing video proof of the staff's blazing power. Dong-hoon records the staff's ruby-like pieces glowing under a swirling status window. Flames flicker along its edges, revealing scorching energy. He hopes this footage convinces everyone of its authenticity. If words fail, maybe images of this artifact will silence doubters. He updates his post, adding a video showcasing the staff's brilliance. Comments pour in. Some viewers now accept it as real, intrigued by its powers. Others remain wary, suspecting a trick. Dong-hoon senses the tension quickly rising on the forum. Suddenly, Dong-hoon's phone chimes with endless alerts. Ping after ping, new replies flood in, leaving him breathless. He wipes away sweat, excited yet overwhelmed by so many strangers discussing his discovery. The staff's fame is growing faster than he expected. He checks the best board, discovering his post ranked at the top. Thousands of curious eyes scrutinize the staff's stats. Each refresh reveals more shares, debates, and theories. Dong-hoon's heart pounds, unsure if he can handle being in this spotlight. The forum headlines shout, "Mystery SRI item found." Reporters speculate about the staff's origin. Dong-hoon stares at his phone, adrenaline coursing through him. He never imagined a post could trigger chaos. Now people want to learn more about this relic. News sites quote Sohole Sohe, an A-rank hunter, praising the staff for its fire-boosting prowess. Dong-hoon, wide-eyed, reads the article. His discovery has turned mainstream, and high-level hunters are curious. He realizes this hype could draw powerful allies or threats. Dong-hoon covers his mouth in disbelief, worried that so much publicity might expose him. At least the hunter board protects his personal data, so only urgent merc is known. Yet he fears masked rivals or enemies might start hunting for him. His phone buzzes with message alerts climbing higher, 78 and counting. Each might be a chance to sell, a threat, or a curious question. His heart races. Dong-hoon regrets how everything spiraled, unsure if he can manage this chaos alone. In panic, he hovers over delete post. A prompt appears, asking if he's sure. He worries that selling this staff might bring danger. Fame is no longer fun but terrifying. Maybe hiding the truth is safest until he feels prepared. At sunset, Dong-hoon steps outside to steady his nerves. Light spills through the trees, giving him room to breathe. He recalls that no rule forces him to use the staff. Instead, he can rely on his necromantic skills. Until he's ready, he grips the staff, noticing its crimson glow. Though it grants fiery strength, he fears misusing such power. As a compassionate necromancer, he'd rather summon undead responsibly. Deciding not to rush, he weighs how this relic could complement his arts. His strength restored, Dong-hoon admires the sunset's glow. He wonders if combining necromancy with the staff's fire boost will open new paths. Taking a deep breath, he prepares a test. Magic stirs around him, reflecting his cautious but determined spirit. Purple sparks erupt, unveiling his skill. Summon Awakened Skeleton, rank D. It costs 10 vitality, causing a skeletal minion Bone 5 to appear. Its eye sockets glow red, and Dong-hoon studies whether the staff's fiery aura will affect his undead soldier. In the forest clearing, Dong-hoon greets Bone 5. Soft light filters through autumn leaves, painting the scene gold. The skeleton stands quietly, awaiting orders. Dong-hoon wonders if using the staff's power might help them grow, or if caution is wiser. Dong-hoon offers the staff, motioning for Bone 5 to hold it. The skeleton tilts its head, a question in its glowing eyes. Carefully, it grasps the handle. The staff's edges shimmer, as though acknowledging a new bond with its undead companion. Bone 5 lifts the red-tinted staff gently, amazed at its warmth. Though it lacks speech, excitement flickers in its glowing eyes. The sunset sky frames them both, creating a moment. Dong-hoon senses potential synergy between fiery magic and undead resilience. In sudden glee, Bone 5 swings the staff a bit too wildly. A loud whack echoes, making Dong-hoon jump back, rubbing his shoulder. He realizes combining powerful relics and lively skeletons can lead to accidents, yet might unlock necromantic firepower.
Amid a glowing sunset, Dong-hoon carefully offers the Flame Dragon's staff to Bone 5, hoping this gift might boost their bond. Bone 5 tilts its head curiously. Bone 5 grabs hold of the staff with an excited flourish, sparks flickering around bony fingers. Dong-hoon watches with relief, proud to see flames glow against the evening sky. A brilliant flash envelops Bone 5, equipping the Flame Dragon's staff. Embers dance around and its eyes blaze red. Ju Dong-hoon senses fiery magic merging with undead toughness. Ju Dong-hoon stands speechless as Bone 5 wields scorching energy with ease. He's surprised yet hopeful that this blend of dark sorcery and fire might spark new possibilities. In another spot, 3 skeletons hover around a jewel-hilted sword, each tilting a skull in confusion. Ju Dong-hoon once thought undead couldn't handle gear. Something in his necromancy stands apart. Back in the forest, Ju Dong-hoon eyes Bone 5 clutching that precious S-rank staff. He wonders if he should sell it or let a skeleton keep such priceless loot. Bone 5 lifts the staff high, eyes shining with excitement. Ju Dong-hoon imagines harnessing fire magic with undead resilience, though a tiny voice asks if it's too risky. His face grows tense, pondering the artifact's fate. Selling it means wealth, but maybe it holds a bigger purpose. He weighs the risks while Bone 5 grips it stubbornly. Bone 5 rattles joyously in a crimson-lit space, celebrating the new staff. Embers swirl around, each clack of its bones echoing a gleeful triumph in the dusky forest. From a few steps away, Ju Dong-hoon insists Bone 5 return the staff. He fears losing control of something so valuable, but Bone 5 refuses to relinquish its blazing treasure. Frustration etches Dong-hoon's features. Bone 5 stands firm, fiery eyes flickering with what looks like defiance. An undead minion refusing orders, their bond just got more complicated. Dong-hoon exhales sharply, realizing the staff's allure might fracture their trust. The distance between Necromancer and Summon feels shaky, leaving him uneasy about Bone 5's growing independence. He finally waves his hand, letting Bone 5 keep the staff. The skeleton rattles happily, sunset glow reflecting Dong-hoon's acceptance and a touch of lingering concern. A gentle smile crosses Dong-hoon's face as he imagines Bone 5 awakening, like Solar Spear once did. Golden light flickers, symbolizing his hope in this daring choice. He shifts his focus to the floating dungeon panel announcing his completion, tapping check your clear rewards. He braces for surprises, knowing one item can reshape everything. 2 shimmering panels appear, revealing the A-rank root of racial conflict. Dong-hoon's heart pounds, sensing another wave of power and mystery that could alter his path. Swirling blue text explains the root's link to a special profession. Dong-hoon frowns in curiosity, suspecting this treasure holds bigger secrets than standard dungeon rewards usually offer. He sees the root glimmering like molten amber, voicing wonder about its connection to that profession. He senses it's no mere trinket, there's a grand design at play. A status panel reveals it unlocks Forest and Stone Dungeon, binding to him and needs at least C rank. His pulse quickens at the promise of a fresh path. He cradles the root with both hands, energy coiling around it. Under the fading sunlight, he whispers about receiving another catalyst and feels its potent aura thrumming. He recalls Gi Soil, hair tied back, warning that catalysts spark chain quests shaping one's destiny. Her serious gaze hinted she knew too well the weight of these items. His mind conjures images of a glowing scroll and treasure chest, echoing Gi Soil's voice. She said these quests scale in difficulty, stirring both excitement and fear. A golden S emblem flashes, symbolizing top-tier potential. Gi Soil's caution resonates. Certain catalysts can rocket a hunter to S rank or beyond if they survive the trials. He imagines winged warrior Sunyang, standing in a sandy ruin with black wings extended. The swirling desert echoes the grandeur of legendary secrets that might link to his route. Returning to reality, Dong-hoon glances at his 10 summoned skeletons crackling with purple energy. He wonders if each undead could hail from some fabled realm, maybe unstoppable champions. Bone 5 stands foremost, staff blazing, while Dong-hoon contemplates. The setting sun frames him, suspecting this necromancy might be more powerful and more unique than anyone ever expected. A close-up of Dong-hoon's trembling hand shows his doubt. Why me? He murmurs, the encroaching night highlighting his mix of awe and uncertainty over this forbidden magic. His status window names him Cursed Necromancer, rank D, yet boasts formidable skills like memory reenactment and teachings of 10,000 arts. He's overwhelmed by the system's generosity. He exhales, deciding not to overthink. Running a shaky hand through his hair, he tries focusing on simpler goals to avoid drowning in endless possibilities. A leaderboard flickers, packed with S-rank icons. Dong-hoon's gaze burns with ambition, determined to see his name climb among those elite hunters one day. He clenches his fist, vowing to exploit every advantage the system grants. The sky burns orange in sync with his rising determination, even as lingering doubts lurk. A lone skeleton in shadows is labeled, also known as a skull head. Its hollow sockets gaze into darkness, reminding Dong-hoon how modest these undead appear initially. Under a soft blue glow, another skeleton's jaw stretches in a strange grin. The text highlights their simplicity, all bones, yet Dong-hoon suspects hidden strengths beyond mortal logic. Night settles in the forest. Dong-hoon watches Bone 5, whispering that undead with nothing but bones. The hush emphasizes how surprisingly far Bone 5 has already advanced. Out of nowhere, Bone 5 lifts a long spear and addresses him as my lord. Dong-hoon's heart nearly stops. He never dreamed a skeleton could speak so fluently. A close-up reveals 2 bright orbs glowing in Bone 5's sockets. Dong-hoon can only stare, realizing this undead companion is far beyond a typical summoned minion. Under the moonlight, Bone 5 casually mentions sharper vision. Dong-hoon chuckles at the irony, a skeleton with no eyes seeing more clearly than anyone. It's weird but impressive. He forces a grin, reminding himself this is necromancy's quirkiest side. Secretly, he's blown away by Bone 5 prowess, defying all logic yet proving extremely useful in battles. Soft crunching footsteps signal someone else's arrival. Black boots step out from the darkness, setting Ding-hoon's nerves on edge as he tightens his grip on possibility. Gi Soil appears hair-catching moonlight, observing the talkative skeleton. Ding-hoon's relief is visible. Having her around is strangely comforting in this eerie, undead-filled setting. She remarks how extraordinary it is for a skeleton to speak. Ding-hoon recalls his own shock at that first conversation, the quiet forest feeling almost enchanted now. Ding-hoon echoes her word skeleton with dry amusement, acknowledging how insane it seems. Gi Soil tilts her head, noticing he's both awed and oddly proud. He clarifies it's Sun Yang, an important summon, not just any bony minion. Bone 5, sensing the discussion, stands straighter while Gi Soil nods at their unique bond. She glances at the moonlit sky, teasingly calling him Dark Lord and asking if he's safe. She worries about the attention he might attract with such extraordinary relics. Bone 5 murmurs softly, and Ding-hoon recalls how no necromancer would believe this. It's wild watching an undead minion hold a conversation like a casual roommate. Gi Soil calls it just a skeleton, and Ding-hoon repeats her phrase, still bewildered. She catches his tone, realizing he's half offended for Bone 5's sake. He insists it's Sun Yang, his precious ally. The skeleton stands calmly, staff resting at its side. Gi Soil sees the deep respect he holds for this undead warrior. Looking at the moonlight above, Gi Soil half jokes again, calling him Dark Lord. She questions if staying outside with such a rare summon is really wise. Ding-hoon lifts his hands, insisting even skilled hunters need proper rest. He tries to sound in control but still feels uneasy about letting his guard down around others. Gi Soil's cheeks flush slightly. She thanks him softly but says he didn't have to bother. Her voice carries genuine appreciation despite her calm, composed demeanor. He jokes about needing clear boundaries in their cramped space, eyebrows raised in a nervous grin. She watches him, thinking he's both sincere and hilariously awkward. He adds if people heard he forced her to sleep on a rooftop, his D-rank name would be Toast. She concedes with a faint, amused smile. Indoors, Ding-hoon sighs, wondering when he'll finally rank up. Moonlight slices through the window, illuminating his impatience to grow stronger and handle bigger challenges without drama. Bone 5 assures it needs no extra spear practice guidance. It vows to recover its lost power. Ding-hoon observes, amazed at this skeleton's unyielding drive to improve. Ding-hoon steps back, letting Bone 5 train under Gi Soil's watchful gaze. She's intrigued by the skeleton's loyalty and independence, quietly waiting to see its potential. Bone 5 executes graceful spear arcs in moonlit silence. Sparks reflect off the weapon, hinting at a hidden mastery within those bones, longing to reclaim greatness. Cross-legged on the floor, Ding-hoon wonders how long until he reaches C rank. Sweat beads on his temples as he steels himself for the climb ahead. He glances at the root of racial conflict, recalling it activates only at C rank. The system likely expects him to rise soon, or it wouldn't have given this item. His confidence grows. If Bone 5 can evolve so quickly, he can level up too. A determined spark gleams in his eyes, ready for tomorrow's challenges. A sudden scene shift reveals a cramped room piled with boxes. The abrupt change suggests new conflicts looming, waiting to crash into Ding-hoon's already hectic world. Gi Soil peeks from behind tall boxes, telling Ding-hoon not to fuss. The overhead light reveals gratitude in her eyes, though she insists he's overdoing his hospitality. She promises not to break boundaries, aware she's just a guest now. The cardboard wall underscores their attempt at privacy in this cramped living arrangement. Ding-hoon points to a rolled-up sleeping bag, offering it again. It's not exactly 5-star lodging, but it's the best he can do without a real guest room. He throws a wry glance at his own bed, and Gi Soil crosses her arms, amused. They both accept this odd arrangement as their temporary living standard. He coughs, joking that a hunter like her deserves better sleep. Inside, he's anxious about meeting her expectations, trying not to look too flustered. Gi Soil's cheeks redden slightly. She thanks him but insists there was no need. Beneath her composed demeanor, she appreciates his effort more than she lets on. He raises his hands, emphasizing clear boundaries. His grin looks clumsy, revealing he's unsure how to house a powerful hunter without crossing any lines or giving offense. He jokes about forcing her onto the rooftop again, saying that it'd trash his D-rank reputation. Gi Soil lets the tension ease, accepting his goofy reasoning for now. Ding-hoon imagines her stern brother, some major clan figure, learning she slept on a rooftop. Shadows swirl in his mind, anticipating big trouble if that story leaks. Gi Soil firmly refuses to be controlled by her brother's opinions. She's determined to manage things her way, ignoring whatever big shot status her sibling holds. Pointing at the cardboard divider, she calls it awkward. She'd rather have no barrier at all, shocking Ding-hoon, who is certain her brother's anger was the real issue. He blurts yes, in confusion. Turns out her main concern isn't big family drama, but these silly boxes blocking space. He's thrown completely off balance by her directness. Gi Soil's small smile implies she doesn't need cardboard walls. If she truly wanted, she could tear them and him apart before he noticed. Ding-hoon feels a chill. Suddenly, a menacing silhouette underscores her words about ending him swiftly. Ding-hoon stammers, shaken by her lethal aura. Tension crackles in the small room. He mumbles, "Why yes," clearly unnerved. She holds that intense gaze a moment longer, letting him stew in her threat's weight before shifting back to casual banter. Then she breaks into a mischievous grin, reminding him boxes are pointless to someone of her skill. The tension dissolves, though Dong-hoon remains slightly on edge. A dramatic shadowy shot of Gi Soil appears, suggesting she's always calculating her best strike. Dong-hoon wonders if her mind runs on silent battle plans every second. A loud knock jolts them both, red markers highlighting urgency. Somebody's pounding the door in the dead of night, fueling immediate suspicion and apprehension. They exchange shocked glances. Blazing across their faces, they turn toward the rattling door, uncertain if it's friend, foe, or something worse at this late hour. A timid voice calls through, excuse me. Dong-hoon and Gi Soil share wary looks. Whoever's out there seems desperate enough to bang on doors after dark. Dong-hoon mutters nobody should knock now. Gi Soil stands alert. He edges closer, suspecting if this were a real threat, Gi Soil's instincts would have flared already. He carefully unlocks the door, heart pounding. Gi Soil keeps watch. They brace themselves as it creaks open, uncertain who or what they'll face tonight. A frightened young woman stands there, eyes darting between Gi Soil and Dong-hoon. He whispers, "Who are you?" She shakes, looking like she's seen a ghost. She locks her gaze on Gi Soil, then stammers that she's seeking her. Clearly distressed, she begs for help, posture trembling with urgency and fear. She also confirms Dong-hoon's name, though mispronouncing it in panic. He nods, unsure how she knows him. Her shaky voice reveals she's desperate and terrified beyond words. Tears filling her eyes, she pleads for them to save her brother. Dong-hoon's heart clenches at her anguish. He can't imagine why she's come to him now. He blurts, "What?" while Gi Soil listens intently. This girl's desperation is undeniable, and the frantic tone hints her brother might be in mortal danger already. She shows them a note with a photo attached, explaining it arrived unexpectedly. Dong-hoon catches enough glimpses to sense a sinister threat behind this midnight visit. He reads, sweat beading on his brow. "This is," he mutters, scanning words that confirm a hostage situation. Danger is spelled out in chilling detail. A photo shows a blindfolded man tied up, with threatening red text asking if anyone wants to save him. It's a twisted taunt from the kidnappers. The note demands Dong-hoon arrive alone or the captive dies. He stares, rattled by the seriousness. Gi Soil glances over, sharing his alarm and fury. He recognizes the Dark Shadow group's trademark cruelty. Calling them bastards, he fumes, realizing they've set a trap. Gi Soil braces for a possible conflict. He never expected them to act so openly. The sister clings to his sleeve, trembling. Gi Soil stands ready, anger flashing in her eyes at these heartless abductors. Blurting names like Amj Jaisal, the sister confuses Gi Soil's identity. She's frantic, only certain that Dong-hoon and Gi Soil are her last hope to save her brother. Gi Soil confirms the kidnapping matches Dark Shadow Group style. Targeting Dong-hoon's rising notoriety, they want leverage. Her clenched fists show her readiness to fight back. Dong-hoon's phone buzzes. Gi Soil points at it, suspecting more threats. He steels himself, expecting another ominous message egging him toward a dangerous confrontation. He reads quickly, seeing a reference to a ticking clock. Frustration rises as the group toys with him. Gi Soil's glare shows she's ready to crush them. The sister trembles, apologizing for dragging them into her nightmare. Dong-hoon gently reassures her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Gi Soil nods, resolved to protect innocence. They exchange a determined glance, vowing to thwart Dark Shadow Group's plan. The sister clings to hope, trusting these two hunters to pull off a daring rescue. They huddle, forming a quick strategy. Gi Soil points to the text, planning a response. Overhead lights cast heavy shadows, yet a spark of hope endures they'll save her brother. Late at night, Gi Soil stands in Ju Dong-hoon's dim living room, urging Anj to hurry to Parang Guild. Tension shows in her intense gaze and urgent tone. Crossing her arms, Gi Soil explains she cannot abandon Ju Dong-hoon. She mentions her powerful brother, ranked 58th among hunters and leading Parang Guild, making Dark Shadow's capture unlikely. Gi Soil imagines her brother in a white hunter's coat, glowing with bluish aura. Reminded of his fierce strength, she decides to focus on protecting Ju Dong-hoon instead. Gi Soil glances at Ju Dong-hoon, admitting her brother has guild support, while Dong-hoon stands alone. Fearing his vulnerability, she struggles between defending him and returning to Parang. Silver-haired Ju Dong-hoon agrees Soil should protect herself, yet insists her brother's kidnapping is urgent. With concern etched on his face, he warns they are running out of time. He holds the ransom note and a photo showing the tied hostage. Its threatening message demands he arrives alone. Anxiety grips him, but he strengthens his resolve to act. In the living room, Gi Soil warns this is a dark shadow trap. Her grave tone suggests she is certain they want to lure Ju Dong-hoon into grave danger. Elsewhere, a pale man mutters in a crimson-lit space that Hellhound has allied with Gi Parang. Red energy crackles, hinting shifting allegiances could worsen Ju Dong-hoon's predicament. In Ju Dong-hoon's memory, Old Man Mansell appears calm beside a glowing skeleton armed with the sunspear. These figures symbolize his ancient wisdom and resurrected might. In the dim living room, Ju Dong-hoon addresses Gi Soil, also called Amj, recalling a past conversation. He searches for that same insight and determination she once shared as an ally. Ju Dong-hoon remembers Soil's belief that life begins and ends with connections. They both realize they need each other's help and allies to handle the guild's kidnapping crisis. He briefly envisions a smiling friend, now in danger because of these kidnappers. That memory fuels his determination to act quickly before more harm befalls the hostage. Ju Dong-hoon announces he cannot remain idle. Despite the risks, he chooses to confront the threat. His eyes reflect a newfound resolve, replacing the earlier fear. He approaches Gi Soil, insisting he refuses to act like a cowardly hunter. Though his voice wavers, a fierce spark in his eyes reveals unwavering determination. Clenching his fist, Ju Dong-hoon vows to repay the trust placed in him. He promises to use every ounce of necromantic power to save those in danger. Gi Soil sighs and finally agrees to help. Though reluctant, she admits admiration for Dong-hoon's sudden boldness. Their uneasy partnership solidifies as they face the looming crisis together. By the door, Dong-hoon holds the ransom letter. He explains he'll visit Parang Guild first, while Soil hovers close by, hoping this plan will hasten her brother's rescue. Turning to Dong-hoon, Gi Soil recalls her promise to introduce him to powerful allies. Her steady voice signals she might summon those connections sooner than planned. A slight smile creeps across her face. She mentions gathering those contacts now, surrounded by subtle energy that hints at her confidence in their potential support. Eyes widening, Dong-hoon realizes this sudden backing might be huge. Yet he remains cautious, aware their urgent path is loaded with peril and uncertainty. Night falls at the Han River. A lonely pier extends over dark water, creaking under the breeze. This secluded spot becomes the kidnappers' chosen meeting ground. A wider shot shows a dim walkway and two towering evergreens. The wind howls, throwing shadows around. This eerie scene reveals the dangerous stage for tonight's negotiations. A figure in dark, reinforced gear steps onto the path. Each footstep echoes ominously, suggesting they are armed and prepared for a high-risk confrontation at the river. Lying bound and gagged is Soil's brother, trembling on the cold ground. His muffled groans heighten the grim reality of the dark shadow group's ruthless methods. A cluster of masked kidnappers wearing spider emblems checks a digital watch. They demand Ju Dong-hoon arrive by 8 p.m. Minutes remain and tension escalates with each second. The watch reads 19:55, only 5 minutes left. Their impatience mounts, each second pushing them closer to unleashing violence if Ju Dong-hoon fails to appear in time. The hooded group confidently declares Ju Dong-hoon will soon show up alone. They believe their ambush is flawless, convinced no allies will interfere with their cruel plan. Suddenly, Ju Dong-hoon arrives, accompanied by a glowing skeleton minion. His footsteps break the hush, revealing he did not come completely alone as they had hoped. Under the moonlight, Ju Dong-hoon, hood partially obscuring his silver hair, faces the kidnappers. Despite being outnumbered, he holds steady, meeting their gazes with calm determination. The kidnappers whisper, shaken by his timely arrival and eerie composure. Their earlier smugness fades, replaced by doubt about how easily they can overpower him now. One kidnapper jerks the hostage's collar, threatening harm. The captive's muffled cries confirm the danger if Dong-hoon resists their demands or fails to cooperate immediately. They shove the hostage to the floor with a harsh impact. Dong-hoon narrows his eyes, realizing they will show no mercy and might injure him at any moment. Behind the fallen hostage stands a smirking kidnapper, flanked by cloaked accomplices. The prisoner groans on his knees, sweat dripping as the kidnappers tighten their lethal grip. One masked figure laughs cruelly, obviously enjoying Ju Dong-hoon's cornered position. His dark amusement reveals their twisted eagerness to push the situation toward a violent climax. They mock Dong-hoon's summoning skills, dismissing his single skeleton as weak. Labeling him a low-tier necromancer, they scoff at any idea he might pose a threat. Dong-hoon quietly senses several A-rank hunters among them, suspecting more lurking nearby. He knows one wrong move could unleash a larger ambush and turn the odds further against him. The lead kidnapper waves a sharp knife, hinting Dong-hoon should know why he's summoned here. His subtle menace suggests deeper motives beyond a simple ransom. A wide shot reveals the hostage on one side, Dong-hoon and Bone 5 on another, and 3 kidnappers across. A single street lamp casts cold light on their standoff. Raising his blade again, the kidnapper insists Dong-hoon must grasp their real plan. The other masked figures stand ready, their silence amplifying the chilling threat. Ju Dong-hoon calmly states he followed the ransom note. Though tense, he hides his doubt. His posture suggests he's braced for any sudden moves the kidnappers might unleash. He points to the captive, reminding them the note promised safety if he complied. Urgency seeps through his voice. He wants the hostage spared at all costs. The lead kidnapper glares, accusing Dong-hoon of pretending ignorance. Hostility brims as he assumes Dong-hoon already knows their hidden reason for abducting this particular hostage. Suddenly, he lunges, threatening the hostage again. Any small mistake by Dong-hoon could cost a life, raising the pressure in this dangerous standoff. He jerks the captive upright, knife at his throat, demanding Dong-hoon reveal the prized opportunity. The brothers' muffled panic underscores the dire stakes. A thin line of blood appears where the blade presses. The kidnapper growls that without answers the brother dies now. Tension spikes as seconds tick by. Inwardly, Dong-hoon fights panic, remembering he only has 5 low-tier skeletons. Fear churns, but he refuses to hand over his power or forsake the hostage. Purple necromantic energy ripples around his staff. He wonders if he can truly counter these strong enemies, yet steels himself to try, unwilling to yield under pressure. Bone 5, called Sunyang, stands alert with golden eyes. Ju Dong-hoon recalls these undead minions are more than tools. They reflect his unique power and empathy. He steps forward, hands raised in apparent surrender, offering to reveal everything. Meanwhile, Bone 5 stands poised behind him, ready to defend if violence erupts. The hostage looks briefly hopeful. The lead kidnapper sneers, insisting that obeying is the only way Dong-hoon stays alive. Malice lingers in his mocking tone. Dong-hoon responds with feigned gratitude, claiming he's relieved to avoid death. Bone 5 remains tense, hinting this surrender might be a trick rather than genuine compliance. He declares the opportunity straightforward, but confidence seeps through his voice. The kidnappers sense he's hiding a crucial secret, uncertain if he's truly submitting. He envisions Old Man Mansell, a formidable mentor dwelling on a misty peak. Dong-hoon explains this teacher's necromantic mastery underpins his unusual abilities. A kidnapper recognizes that name, recalling rumors of a master even Gi Soil struggled to fight. His widened eyes confirm this teacher's reputation is legendary. Dong-hoon claims the Dark Emperor repeatedly failed against Old Man Mansell. The kidnappers exchange nervous glances, realizing they may have cornered a disciple of a fearsome legend. One kidnapper hesitates, saying he heard the tales but doubted anyone so powerful existed. Their growing unease shows they suspect this isn't just empty talk. Another demands the master's location, irritated by the idea of a mere vision. If Old Man Mansell can't appear physically, they consider him useless to their plans. Dong-hoon offers a cryptic grin, claiming a special method to summon his mentor. He motions as though unveiling a powerful presence, sparking the kidnappers' curiosity. He says he can show them Old Man Mansell's teachings and even share them. The promise of such power tempts the kidnappers, who lean in with interest. The kidnappers grow hungry for this legend's abilities, ignoring caution. Greed overtakes their earlier suspicion, letting Dong-hoon keep control of the tense situation. Dong-hoon touches his cloak's brooch, stating even the Dark Emperor stuck around for that reason. This revelation fans the kidnapper's ambition, further hooking them into his plan. The lead kidnapper demands proof Dong-hoon can transfer this knowledge now. Suspicion competes with excitement, as they weigh the risk of a trap against the promise of power. Dong-hoon says a 30-minute chant is needed for the ceremony. Nervous sweat on his brow betrays he's stalling, hoping their greed will keep them listening. He silently repeats 30 minutes as a swift shadow darts across a deserted road nearby. This fleeting movement hints at approaching reinforcements or unseen allies. Earlier, Dong-hoon checks his phone under city lights, reading Gi Soil's warning not to fight alone. This message sets the tone for his risky night. He sees her response, understood. It conveys worry and support, reminding him they face a dangerous situation together, heightening his resolve to meet the kidnappers. A second message arrives, making him sweat. Something Gi Soil said will strongly affect his choices, intensifying the pressure as he heads toward this nighttime confrontation. He sees her silhouette on his phone, recalling her promise of powerful connections. Steeling himself, he prepares for the Han River meeting, determined yet anxious. Still recalling Gi Soil's text, stall them for 30 minutes, Dong-hoon braces himself. He must hold the kidnappers in place until reinforcements can arrive. On a lone street, Dong-hoon repeats 30 minutes, vowing to distract Dark Shadow. Pocketing his phone, he steels himself for the confrontation unfolding by the river. At the Han River, Dong-hoon cheerily offers the kidnappers a choice. Who wants the first transmission? They're puzzled whether he's honest or just stalling again. The lead kidnapper sweats under his mask, torn between suspicion and greed. The night remains deathly silent, hinting that violence may erupt at any second. A sly grin crosses Dong-hoon's face. He thinks the dice are cast, letting their own lust for power drive them closer to whatever trap he has prepared. His thoughts continue. They must decide if they'll take my offer or flee. One kidnapper steps forward, revealing the group's uneasy curiosity toward this mysterious ritual. Time drags on. Dong-hoon sits cross-legged, chanting. Bone 5 watches while the kidnappers form a wary circle, letting him perform this lengthy ritual with growing impatience. Someone remarks Dong-hoon has been chanting forever. Suspicion rises. Is it real magic or a stall tactic? Tension coils tighter with every passing minute. One kidnapper recalls meeting Dong-hoon before. He recognizes this could be another deception. Growing more certain Dong-hoon is waiting for something or someone else. In his mind, he sees Dong-hoon in red shadows from a past conflict. Muttering quietly, he confirms this necromancer is known for cunning stalling tactics. Fed up, the kidnapper yells, "Hey!" Dong-hoon, seemingly in deep concentration, looks up with mild surprise, acknowledging the interruption that threatens his careful plan. The kidnapper demands an end to this ritual. He threatens their patience is gone, and warns that further delay means deadly consequences. Dong-hoon politely apologizes, claiming interruptions reset the process. He tries to buy more time, voice tight with tension, as the kidnappers simmer with anger. A faint grin flickers. Dong-hoon murmurs, could it be, teasing them about their fears. His calm demeanor rattles the kidnappers, who sense a trick they can't pinpoint. They accuse him of being nervous, but they're clearly the ones losing composure. Their accusing glares show they suspect a con but haven't figured it out. Dong-hoon shrugs, suggesting they leave if frightened. The lead kidnapper seethes with anger, outraged by his taunt. Tension spikes, hovering on the edge of violence. Suddenly, a kidnapper slashes the air with a knife, red light flaring. He's done waiting, unleashing a surge of aggression that pushes the scene toward chaos. He grabs the hostage by the hair, pressing the blade close. The captive's muffled screams ring out, heightening fear of immediate bloodshed under the crimson threat. Dong-hoon steps forward, sweat on his brow, demanding to know their intent. Fury and dread mix in his voice, aware the hostage is seconds from danger. The kidnapper snarls that their deal is void, freeing him to kill the captive. The brother shakes with terror, eyes pleading for a last-minute rescue. Dong-hoon, drenched in sweat, warns them not to blame him for this brutality. His voice trembles with rage, seeing how quickly the situation has escalated. Dragging the hostage back, the kidnapper's knife hovers dangerously near his throat. Every breath could be the captive's last, amplifying the urgency to intervene. Suddenly, the kidnapper's eyes widen in shock, startled by an unseen strike. He loses his advantage, giving Dong-hoon a crucial opening. Bone 5 slams its spear down, forcing the kidnapper away from the hostage. The piercing impact rattles the pier, showing Dong-hoon won't stand idle. A hooded figure staggers back, groaning in pain. He's taken aback by the skeleton's unexpected power, realizing their target may be stronger than they assumed. He spins around, silently demanding to know who just attacked. Realization dawns that Dong-hoon's skeleton ally can strike with surprising force, shifting the power balance. Spotting Bone 5 golden glow, another kidnapper gasps. A skeleton. Their shock reveals they underestimated this minion's strength and Dong-hoon's hidden capabilities. Bone 5 eyes blaze with gold. The kidnappers now sense this mere skeleton can disrupt their plan, hinting at greater power behind Dong-hoon's necromancy. Dong-hoon casually notes they barely dodged some strikes. He taunts their reflexes while maintaining a calm expression, highlighting how prepared he truly is. Brushing aside his silver hair, he thanks them for letting him chance so long. Their greed bought him all the time needed to set up a counterattack. A furious kidnapper curses Dong-hoon, calling him insolent. Hatred darkens his voice as he realizes they've been tricked, fueling an explosive rage ready to ignite. Red energy coils around this enraged foe like a storm. He roars, "You dare mock me," revealing his own unleashed power. The confrontation quickly escalates. Dong-hoon smirks, asking if they believed one skeleton was all he had. His confident tone suggests more surprises await, making the kidnappers warier than before. The lead kidnapper howls, "Assassins, assemble." Hooded figures rush forward under a crimson sky, weapons gleaming. They plan to kill the hostage and subdue Dong-hoon for his betrayal. Even more assassins appear, brandishing knives. They shout, "Capture him," determined to punish Dong-hoon for duping them. The hostility intensifies with every new arrival. Dong-hoon and Bone 5 hold their ground, defying the kidnappers' demands. "Make him pay." The group roars in unison, but Dong-hoon's calm stance suggests hidden confidence. Bone 5 bursts into motion, spear shimmering under moonlight. Its sudden speed catches assassins off guard, forcing them to brace for an unexpectedly fierce defense. Dong-hoon grips his staff, purple necromantic aura crackling. He utters a single command, "Summon," unleashing dark power that suggests more undead reinforcements will soon join him. Suddenly, a legion of skeletons materializes in swirling purple light. Archers, swordsmen, and shield-bearers appear, eyes glowing faintly. They assemble behind Dong-hoon, shocking the kidnappers. With a slight grin, Dong-hoon commands, "Wipe them out." The skeletal army charges forward. Realizing they're hopelessly outmatched, the kidnappers stare in horror as the undead surge closes in.